This young man, following a message from someone claiming to be his future self 10 years from now, went in search of something called primordial yang, climbing for several hours up a mountain, nearly losing his breath. After a while of gasping for air, Chen An realized he'd been tricked, but coincidentally the moon was particularly beautiful that night. As the minister of the Tribal Affairs Department, he decided to stop and admire the moon for a moment. However, he could barely enjoy the view before hearing the sound of police sirens. Around 3 or 4 police cars stopped here, all armed officers with a white-haired woman leading the group. She split the personnel into 2 teams. One team was tasked with blocking the area, not allowing anyone to enter Tianling Mountain, while the other would follow her up the mountain to investigate. Seeing such a well-equipped police force, Chen began to feel afraid. Could they really have appeared because of the primordial yang being released? Thinking this, he immediately turned and ran. Chen and headed north and eventually found the lake, though it looked more like a puddle than a proper lake. From the center of the water, a strange fragrance truly emanated. Chen took out his phone and sent a message to Zhu Zhu. What exactly is the expansion of primordial yang? And also, if you really are me, are you still alive or already dead? The reply came, primordial yang is something very important for humanity's cultivation after the world underwent 18 days of transformation. It's equivalent to the spiritual energy in legends. As for the question of life or death, that person passed away long ago. They were betrayed during Ascension, their soul trapped in the void, which is why they were able to send a message to you 10 years ago. Message received here, this person seems to be in a hurry. My energy is running low. Remember what I'm about to say. This release of primordial yang is the first omen of the 18 days when the world will change. After you absorb the primordial yang tonight, I will contact you again. Remember to seize this opportunity. The more Chen read the message, the more confused he became. He still doubted whether he was being tricked. However, after putting down his phone and looking up, he saw that the small puddle from earlier had now turned into a massive lake. Such a terrifying phenomenon couldn't be explained by science. Chen decided to leave it to fate and sat down to begin absorbing the primordial yang. During the absorption, many of Chen's talents were activated, including the Devour talent at level B, the Space talent at level S, and the Hidden Future Connection talent at level S. But not long after he began cultivating, a voice suddenly startled him. Who are you? Why are you here? It turned out that some armed police officers had discovered Chen An. He was so frightened that he immediately fell off the rock ledge. The police officers were also shocked and quickly jumped into the lake to try and save Chen An. However, at that very moment, his Devour talent was triggered. The calm surface of the lake suddenly turned into a whirlpool, instantly swallowing several of the police officers. As a result, Chen An's talent value increased by 1,000 points. After the water had drained away, he lay in the middle of the desolate wasteland, unconscious. In his delirium, Chen An found himself standing in a strange space, surrounded by a blindingly white expanse. The only thing that existed was a lake identical to the one he had just seen on Mount Tianling. Chen An sat down, and for some inexplicable reason, he scooped up a handful of water and drank it. As a result, a virtual window appeared in front of him, displaying a message, innate talent value plus 10. Chen An muttered under his breath, did I just get a black in? Could it be that I'm the protagonist chosen by heaven in some legend? At this point, Chen An couldn't think of much else. He began splashing handfuls of water onto his face one after another. Meanwhile, his innate talent value kept rising rapidly, and Chen An couldn't help but enjoy this new, exciting sensation. Having lived 20 years of being bullied, he was finally in possession of the heavenly secret, becoming the protagonist at last. However, that simulated window kept reminding him to add points to his innate talent value, but he had absolutely no idea what the value of innate talent actually was. Chen An tried touching the virtual window, which triggered another window that displayed all the current information about him, including the 3 innate talents he had just unlocked. Along with that, he currently had 15,000 points of innate talent value available to use. What really caught Chen An's attention was the hidden innate talent that connected to the future. He wondered if this talent could help him make contact with a person who claimed to be himself 10 years from now. But the problem was that Chen An didn't know how to use it, so he decided to set it aside and first try to figure out how to use that innate ability. However, as soon as he touched the innate ability section, the space around him suddenly shook violently. Chen An felt his head throb with pain and then gradually began to regain consciousness in the real world. Standing before him now was the short-haired female police officer who led the police team. As soon as she saw Chen An wake up, she immediately began questioning him loudly. Who are you? What are you doing here? We've already sealed off Tianling Mountain. How did you manage to get in? While asking, the female officer aggressively grabbed Chen An by the neck. Flustered, he pointed toward his backpack, lying a distance away. Officer, please let me explain. I was just out on a camping trip. She shot him a glance as though seeing right through his flimsy excuse. This person knows Chen and is lying. Better explain yourself honestly, or I won't let you go. I really came here to camp. I accidentally fell into the lake just now. I can't swim, and it was your people who saved me. As he spoke, Chen An waved his hands around in a rather panicked manner. The girl frowned after hearing this. You just said it was a lake. Really? A big lake like that over there? If you don't believe me, take a look for yourself. Chen An pointed towards the north, but by this time, he realized that the lake had disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Fearing that the other party might think he was lying, Chen An desperately tried to explain that there had been a lake here earlier, emitting a pleasant fragrance. The lake has disappeared? I'm not lying. Chen An hurriedly explained. The girl just shrugged and said, nonsense. Then she immediately ordered her people to take Chen An back. He was escorted onto a vehicle sitting next to the female officer. She began interrogating him, making Chen An extremely nervous. So who are you? Why are you here? She asked. He dared not hide anything, so he clearly stated his school information and also mentioned that he had just been expelled. And the reason? She asked again. Chen An only replied that he was too poor to pay the tuition fees, but he didn't mention that he had been kicked out of the school for beating up the principal's grandson. You couldn't pay the tuition, but you still have money to come here for a trip, the other party asked skeptically. I came here to clear my mind. Anyway, I can't go to school anymore, Chen An replied. At that moment, the girl began rummaging through his backpack. Inside, it was filled with camping gear. Chen An let out a quiet sigh of relief. He had already anticipated that things wouldn't go smoothly, so he hadn't brought anything with him to prove his identity. But the other party's ears were sharper than a dog's. Even the slightest sigh from Chen An caught her attention. The woman immediately drew a gun and pointed at Chen An's head, demanding that he reveal his true purpose for being there. Under the barrel of the gun, Chen was so terrified that he nearly wet himself. Beautiful sister, please don't act rashly. I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything. I advise you not to try anything foolish. People like me don't have to follow the rules. As she spoke, she pointed to the badge pinned to her hat. Chen An snapped to attention, noticing the two characters L engraved on it. That's not right. This hat's insignia doesn't belong to the armed police. So who exactly is this woman? With this thought, Chen An somehow found the courage to turn the tables and ask her, if you want me to tell the truth, then you should also reveal who you are. The woman laughed. You got some guts. Questioning you back, but I advise you to understand the situation. Right now, it's you with a gun aimed at you, not me. Her words were certainly not wrong. After going through countless hardships, Chen An finally made it back home with a business card from the woman in his hand. It didn't have any contact details, just 3 words. Bai Wai. Thinking back to earlier when Bai Wai Wang had forced him, her demeanor had indeed been terrifying. Chen An shuddered just recalling it. He decided to go out for a while to clear his mind, hoping to stop thinking about it. Chen arrived at the King Yun Internet Cafe, originally planning to play a few rounds of games, but he was distracted by breaking news. Today, it seemed like many strange things were happening. First, the Dayuan volcano erupted in a magnificent display, accompanied by pictures from the scene. Next, there was a mysterious incident in the northern city, where someone fell from a great height without leaving a trace. It seemed that it wasn't only the Tianling Mountain that was experiencing unusual phenomena, just as the account of Zhu Zhu had warned. Chen An thought back to those messages where the person who claimed to be him from 10 years in the future had said that the Earth would undergo strange changes within 18 days. During those 18 days, many bizarre events would occur. Today was just the first day, and already there had been several unusual occurrences. If what that person had said was true, it was even more concerning. Although he had successfully absorbed the primordial yang during his first attempt, no one could guarantee that he would be able to continue resisting it in the future. Moreover, Chen An still didn't fully understand what changes the primordial yang would bring to him. Feeling a headache from all the thoughts, he decided to set the issue aside and find a place to stay for the next few days. Chen An picked up his phone and noticed that Sun Ming had sent him a message. He had also sent a few earlier, mostly keeping Chen An updated with the latest news, including notifying him about the recent earthquake at his location. The most recent message asked if Chen was alright, probably out of concern that he might have been caught up in some of the strange events happening recently. I'm still fine, Sun Ming, but I might have to stay at your place for a few days in the coming days. Chen An said this because earlier, when Bai Wai had managed to get him to talk, he had revealed his address. Now that his information was exposed, staying at his old house was no longer safe. At this point, Chen An began searching the internet again, but he still couldn't find any useful information. Bai Wai appeared to be a heavily armed officer at first glance, but in reality, she wasn't. There was no information on her business card either. Could she be a member of some special department? Speaking of which, when Chen An was forced by them earlier, he had been in great distress, even being pressured to reveal all of his personal information. But what he didn't expect was that, even now, Bai Wu and her group had managed to hack into the internet cafe's cameras and were still closely monitoring him. Even the fact that Chen An had been searching for information and hadn't found anything was under their watch. Bai Wu had originally planned to cut off Chen An's internet connection to prevent him from continuing to search for information on recent special events. However, she didn't want to alert him just yet. She intended to keep watching quietly in order to find out who was behind the person advising Chen An. A little while later, Sun Ming arrived at the internet cafe to pick him up. On the way back, he kept grumbling about how he hadn't even had the chance to invite his girlfriend over to the new place yet, and now he had to take Chen An there for a while. Chen An simply made up an excuse, saying that after the earthquake tremors, his house was no longer safe, so he needed to crash at Sun Ming's place for a while. After entering Sun Ming's apartment, the young man couldn't stop marveling in astonishment. The room was spacious and luxurious to the point of exceeding Chen An's imagination. He had known for a long time that his friend had money, but he never expected Sun Ming to be a second-generation rich. "Don't make a mess in my house, and hurry up and find a job," Sun Ming said, tossing Chen An a bottle of Coca-Cola. "Got it, young master. Thank you." After returning to his room, Chen An turned on his device and opened the system. He had absorbed countless innate abilities before, but he still didn't know how to use them. Now, it seemed he would have to study them carefully. Looking at the list of abilities in front of him, Chen An clicked on the first one, Devour, to see what it was about. Suddenly, a green orb appeared in the space and kept spinning, and within moments, the large bed was completely devoured by the orb. At that moment, Sun Ming opened the door and entered. He had intended to bring Chen An a new set of bedding, but he was shocked to find his bed was gone. Furious, he rushed forward and grabbed Chen An by the collar, fuming. He had just told him not to make a mess, and now, after leaving for just a moment, the 32,000 yuan bed had vanished. "Hey," and carefully, "how many times have you stayed in this room since you bought it? Did you forget that there's no bed in here?" Chen An said earnestly. Such a ridiculous explanation, yet Sun Ming believed it, because it was his first time staying in this room. He assumed he had confused the bed with one from another room. Anyway, it really doesn't make sense to ask Chen An to dismantle such a big bed in a split second. Chen An managed to escape one disaster, but that night, he had to sleep on the floor. The next morning, barely 8 a.m., he was already awake due to a phone notification. Still grumbling and cursing for being disturbed so early, he then noticed a message from Chen An from the future. He immediately snapped out of his grogginess. "So how is it? Do you believe me now? Have you absorbed the primordial yang? Have you awakened any abilities?" Chen An quickly sat up and, without hesitation, typed a response. "I believe it now, boss. I've absorbed the primordial yang like you said, but I don't feel any different. Also, I have awakened some abilities, but I don't know how to use them." Then Chen An listed the 3 abilities he had activated to the other person. But after half a day, he still hadn't received a reply. Chen An began to feel anxious. Could it be that these talents of his were useless? In his impatience, he sent a few more messages, and after quite a while, he finally got a response. "Bro, did you get the jackpot?" "Wait, no, I should say you get the jackpot." "So, these abilities are really powerful. Tell me about them." "I don't really understand it either. I'm just guessing that these abilities are something special." Chen An was speechless. After that, he followed the other person's instructions and recounted everything that had happened the day before. From that, Chen An realized that Bai Wu was also someone who would awaken early. But based on the current situation, she has almost not activated any of her innate abilities yet. There are only 2 days left, and at the northern outskirts estate, while investigating, Bai Wu will be attacked by an unknown force. After that, she will catch a bullet with her bare hands. Hearing this from his future self, Chen An was extremely excited. "Wow, is it that thrilling? Is she that strong? Tell me, will this goddess eventually become my wife?" This time, Chen An from the future was left speechless. He never imagined that his past self would be this shameless. As for these future events, even 10 years later, Chen An wouldn't dare to predict them. Since the moment he made contact with his past self, the trajectory of the future had already changed. Only the special events triggered by the primordial yang eruption would remain unchanged. In just over half a month, the world would face a huge shift. Between now and then, spiritual energy would begin to recover, and Chen An needed to prepare well to become stronger. If he went astray by even a bit, he might fall into the same trap as the Chen An from 10 years later. At that point, all their efforts would turn to smoke, their souls shattered, and their bones turned to dust. Even though that person had said so, Chen An wasn't that afraid because he had the support of his future self. As for the Chen An from 10 years later, though his soul was trapped, he never stopped striving. His main goal was to ensure that he wouldn't lose his life again. After chatting with his future self for a long while, Chen An finally rolled over and went to sleep. But this sleep was intermittent, as he also felt uneasy inside. If what he would say in the future is true, then he must seize the initiative now and stay one step ahead of others. But what exactly he needed to do, Chen An was still unsure. He read the message again, then paused at the information about Bai Wu. Based on that story, Chen An suspected that there would be another expansion of Primordial Yang at a mansion in the suburbs in the coming days. Otherwise, what was Bai Wu doing there? Thinking of this, Chen An decided to set up an ambush there first, but before that, he needed to fill his stomach. While eating, Chen An received a message saying that the Zu account was live streaming. The little celebrity had just started a live stream and offered the viewers a spring song. However, what caught Chen An's attention was a comment that was spammed repeatedly. Everyone go to 564,241. There's someone there performing a fire-blowing act that looks real. This comment was repeated so many times that even Zu became curious about the user performing the fire-blowing act. Chen An, like the majority, exited and clicked into the live stream of 564,241. Sure enough, this person was performing the fire-blowing act, but his appearance didn't seem to suggest that he was using alcohol to do so. Therefore, Chen An began to suspect whether this was someone who had awakened a supernatural ability like himself. But before he could watch for long, the live stream was interrupted, and not far from the restaurant, a fire broke out in an apartment building. Chen An felt that something was off because he had just sensed the aura of Primordial Yang, and just when the live stream of 564,241 was cut off, that fire happened. This was really a strange coincidence. Chen An quickly put down his chopsticks and ran towards the source. He guessed that the person he was looking for must be in this place, so he followed the trace of the aura up to the next floor. The fire had only recently broken out, but the apartment had already turned into a pile of rubble. As soon as Chen entered, he was unexpectedly attacked by a burst of flames. Indeed, the person was an awakened with special abilities, though he appeared rather frail, looking as though he had suffered serious injuries. "You're here to capture me, aren't you? Let me tell you, Su Yuan will never go with you." Chen An seemed tense. When he clearly saw Su Yuan's face, he confirmed that he was the same person who had just demonstrated fire-blowing earlier. Yet only a short time had passed since the live broadcast, and Su Yuan was already so badly injured. What on earth had happened? "Bro, don't think like that. I'm not here to capture you. I'm just curious. You were live streaming fire-blowing, right? Who's after you? Are you not with them?" Su Yuan looked at Chen An with suspicion. "Then what about the earthquake last night?" Chen An quickly seized the key point. "I know about the earthquake last night, but I want to know where you went last night." Su Yuan clutched his stomach, his face growing paler by the moment. However, before he could respond, two more strangers appeared. Both Chen An and Su Yuan exclaimed in surprise because these two strangers were armed with machine guns. For their safety, they quickly hid behind the wall. These two didn't look like armed police. In fact, they looked more like terrorists. But Chen An couldn't understand why they were after Su Yuan. What could they want with him? He threw it aside, intending to ask the man to clarify the situation, only to find that Su Yuan had disappeared. This guy was quick, disappearing without a word. If Chen An had known it would be this difficult, he wouldn't have rushed here recklessly. At this point, Chen An originally wanted to negotiate with the two thugs to stop them from shooting. However, as soon as he poked his head out from behind the wall, he almost had a bullet lodged in his skull. In order to survive, Chen An quickly retracted and started running. The thugs chased after him for half the day, firing continuously but never seeing him retaliate. From that, they concluded that Chen An was just an ordinary person without any special abilities, and senselessly killing a regular person would be troublesome for them. However, no matter how fast Chen An ran, he couldn't escape. In the end, the two thugs caught up to him and subdued him with their guns, but instead of killing him, they cuffed him to a window frame, seemingly not intending to take his life. Instead, they began searching for Su Yuan. Chen An let out a breath of relief. At that moment, he heard a notification sound. After a series of awkward movements, he finally managed to grab his phone with both hands. Sure enough, it was a message from his future self. The message reminded him not to trust or interact with any organizations except for the Special Handling Bureau. After reading it, Chen An looked at the handcuffs around his wrists and sighed helplessly. "Bro, you should have said something earlier. I just got chased and now I've been captured. What should I do now?" Chen An tried to calm himself down and then sent a set of cultivation techniques and an absorbing technique to his past self. These were things he had intended to send after his future self and finished absorbing the second round of Primordial Yang. But now that Chen An has been captured, the plan had to be accelerated. Chen An followed the method in the manual exactly, and before long, he managed to unlock the handcuffs. He could clearly feel the power transforming his body, filling him with an immense surge of energy. Chen An could even punch through the wall in front of him with his bare hands. "How is it? Any changes?" The person on the other side anxiously texted. "Absolutely amazing. Right now, I feel completely energized." At that moment, the two thugs had returned. They had lost track of Su Yuan. Upon seeing Chen An texting, they became even more irritated. The blonde man immediately pressed a gun to his head. He wanted to vent his frustration on Chen An, but the instant he pulled the trigger, Chen An seized the perfect moment to deliver a superior kick straight to his opponent's throat. The blonde man was sent flying, and the gun fell from his hand. "This is bad. He's an awakened one. This kid tricked us. Boss, kill him quickly." The other thug screamed. With that, the remaining thug began shooting. Chen An continuously jumped and dodged, but the blonde man had already retrieved his gun. Under attack from both sides with bullets flying, Chen An found it increasingly difficult to keep up. If this continued, he wouldn't last long. He was forced to use his devour talent, even though he still didn't fully understand how to control it. The black hole reappeared, sucking in all the bullets. Even those two terrorists almost got sucked in. It was just that Chen An didn't have enough energy to sustain his talent. The devour black hole was getting smaller and smaller. The two terrorists didn't dare to continue the attack and hurriedly returned to report to their organization. After they left, Chen An, exhausted and powerless, collapsed to the ground. It wasn't until more than an hour and a half later that he regained consciousness. The first thing Chen An did was pull out his phone and text his older brother, asking why he had fainted. It had been due to him depleting too much mental energy during his cultivation. Once he absorbed enough primordial yang, things would get better. His current strength wasn't enough, and he couldn't use too much power. Otherwise, when he ran out of mental strength, it would be troublesome. Chen also mentioned his plan to go to the outskirts the day after tomorrow to absorb primordial yang. Since this was a good thing, his older brother didn't stop him. He only reminded him to be extra careful. Moreover, the two terrorists who had just chased him would soon return. The next time they met, it would be best to eliminate them once and for all to ensure his own safety. Chen An, remember this, the world has changed. You must give up fear and weakness if you want to survive in this world. Chen An stood still for a long time, realizing that he truly understood himself the most. The reason he had shrunk the area of Devour earlier wasn't simply because he ran out of energy, but because he had softened. However, after speaking with his future self, that thought had vanished. No matter how difficult the future world might be, Chen An was determined to keep moving forward. With this newfound resolve, he didn't realize that he was being silently observed by Su Yuan. He was still on the phone with someone called Miss Jing. So Yuan originally planned to take Chen An for that person, but Miss Jing asked him to observe him for a while longer. If he truly proved to be capable, she might allow him to join her organization. Chen An had just left the ruins when, before he could even take a few steps, he was knocked out by a blow from a stick. When he came to, he found himself tightly bound with ropes. To his surprise, the person standing in front of him was none other than Bai Wu. "Care to explain where you went this afternoon?" This woman was really rough. Every time they met, she resorted to violence, but this time, Chen An was a little more defiant. As soon as he heard Bai Wu's question, he snapped back. "Hey, what does it have to do with you where I went? Should I report every time I get a stomach ache to you too? Don't tell me you've been looking for excuses to meet me just because you think I'm handsome." This taunt clearly worked. Bai Wu immediately untied the ropes binding Chen An. "Huff, talk nonsense. Kid, you better watch out. Sooner or later, I'll catch you and turn your world upside down." Once Chen An was freed, he twisted his body a bit and then leaned toward Bai Wu. He had always been curious about what this woman's intentions were till he decided to ask her directly today. But Bai Wu refused to answer, saying that knowing too much would only harm him. Before letting Chen An go, she didn't forget to remind him that if the person who had asked him to go to Tianling Mountain earlier called again, he should report it. Chen An nodded on the surface, but in his heart, he thought to himself, "I'm not stupid. Why should I report anything to her?" Returning to Sun Ming's house, Chen An was so exhausted that he dozed off even while sitting still. In his drowsy state, he had the sensation of entering the Devour space, where there were all sorts of items. Chen An had a theory. If he could draw things into this space, surely he could also bring them back out. So he began testing this ability, and indeed he was able to do it. After mastering his newfound power, the first thing Chen An did was to take Sun Ming's bed out of the space. However, he didn't expect that at the very moment he was doing this, Sun Ming would push the door open and walk in. "Chen An." Sun Ming gasped, looking at him in shock. Chen An was startled to the point of almost jumping out of his skin. Luckily, Sunming didn't think too much of it, assuming that Chen had just bought a new bed. Then his attention shifted to the bottle of Coca-Cola on the table. This was also something Chen had pulled out of the Devour space, but the liquid inside was, in fact, water from the Devour space as well. "Oh, you Coke?" Sunming said, immediately unscrewing the cap and drinking it all down. Chen An didn't manage to stop it in time. At first, Sunming only noticed a strange taste, but about 2 seconds later, he started clutching his stomach and dashed straight to the bathroom. Chen An didn't know what to say, only hoping that the drink would just give him a case of diarrhea and not cause any real harm. While waiting for Sunming to finish his business with the bathroom, Chen An used the time to practice a little, following the cultivation method that Chen An's older self had sent him. As he was practicing, the aura he emitted caught the attention of someone who had been watching Chen An. "I see now," a person thought to themselves. "I didn't expect it to be the fierce tiger breathing technique from the eternal ancient sect. It seems this kid has some kind of fate after all. It's just a pity that this breathing technique wasn't fully developed." Of course, Chen An didn't know that someone was following him outside, but after a while, Sunming finally caught up. "Bro, I'm completely exhausted. What the heck was in that potion just now?" Seeing Sunming barely able to catch his breath, Chen An suggested taking him to the hospital, but Sunming said he just needed to rest for a night to recover his strength. Seeing that there didn't seem to be anything too serious, Chen An packed up his things and immediately headed toward the manor on the outskirts. However, when he arrived, the security stopped him. Just as he was unsure of what to do, a message from his future self came through. "Go directly into the forest outside. The far end of the forest leads to the other side of the manor." Following the instructions, Chen indeed walked through the forest and soon saw the manor, which was surrounded by a large metal fence. Chen An took a deep breath and, with his bare hands, tore through the metal fence. Just then, a new notification appeared on his phone. "Have you entered yet? There are only 10 minutes left until the primordial yang transformation. When that happens, a metal tree will appear in the manor at its peak vitality. Don't miss it." Chen An thought it would be a pond like last time, and he hadn't yet figured out what the metal tree was supposed to be. However, before he could find it, another problem arose. A wolf, having slipped through the hole in the fence, followed him inside. The first thought that crossed Chen An's mind was to run, but after thinking it through, he realized that even if he did run, he wouldn't be able to outrun it. It would only further fuel its bloodthirsty nature. He had long heard that this estate was home to many wild beasts, and now witnessing it firsthand, he saw it was true. The tastes of the wealthy were truly perverse, keeping and breeding wild animals for hunting purposes. But that wasn't the main issue. The main issue was how Chen was going to deal with that wolf. This creature was already difficult to handle on a normal day, and now it seemed to be some kind of mutated beast. Before Chen could even come up with a plan, the wolf lunged toward him. In the end, he had no choice but to run for his life. However, the wolf was incredibly fast, and even if he ran, it would be hard to escape. Fortunately, Chen An spotted a large tree ahead. As he neared it, he gathered all his strength and jumped. The wolf, unable to stop in time, crashed straight into the tree and was immediately killed. To avoid drawing attention, Chen An quickly pulled it into his Devour space. At that moment, there were only 5 minutes left until the primordial yang would erupt, and the ground began to tremble. Chen An hated these kinds of earthquakes, and for some reason, driven by instinct, he found himself climbing up a nearby tree. Before he could even catch his breath, he heard Bai Wei's voice. She was a distance away, but thanks to a handheld microphone, her voice was still crystal clear. "An earthquake has occurred. Everyone, please do not panic. Stay where you are and await instructions. Anyone who disobeys will be dealt with according to military regulations." At this moment, Chen An finally noticed that besides Bai Wei, there were many other people, and their numbers were far greater than the ones on Mount Tianling earlier. Though he didn't know how they got the information to come here, he truly didn't want to cross paths with the female demoness Bai Wei any further. Having prepared in advance, Chen quickly took out a mask from his backpack and put it on. Then, he sent a message to his future self. "Bro, there's an earthquake again here, just like last time. What's going on? Don't worry, this is the sign before the primordial yang erupts. The stronger the earthquake, the closer the eruption is. Just make sure you're ready to absorb it." Hearing this explanation from his older self, Chen An felt somewhat reassured. As soon as he put his phone away, the tree began to shake violently again. This time, the earthquake was much stronger than before. Given that the time had arrived, it seemed that the primordial yang was about to erupt. Suddenly, a bare tree trunk rose from the ground devoid of leaves. Chen An went down to investigate, and to his surprise, the tree was made of iron. It seemed this was the marker that his older self had warned him about. Chen An quickly sat down, activated both his Devour talent and his spatial ability, and began absorbing the primordial yang within. The value of his talent kept increasing rapidly. Chen An was so excited that he hugged the iron tree and kept muttering, "I'm going to get rich, I'm going to get rich." This time he devoured the primordial yang for so long that it hadn't ended yet. Over 10 minutes had passed. When he finally stopped for a moment, Chen An realized that his devour space seemed to have grown much larger than before. It seems that absorbing the primordial yang will cause his space to level up, which means other talents might also be enhanced. Chen An thought to himself, then looked over his 3 talents once more. Of the 3, only Devour had the lowest level, level B. He then asked the system to help him level up this talent. As expected, it was effective, and his talent was upgraded to level A. After that, Chen An continued to devour the primordial yang. Once the process was complete, both he and the iron tree left the space created by his talent and returned to the manor. However, Chen An, focused on absorbing the primordial yang, didn't notice that he had already returned. His discovery was noticed by Bai Wu and her group. She was about to go over and check when she was hit by a tree, leaving a large wound on her right shoulder. "Captain, maybe you should bandage it first," one of Bai Wu's subordinates urged. "All right, you all go over there and chase him off first. Don't let him cause trouble here." As soon as she finished speaking, Bai Wu took out a white cloth, but when she tried to wrap it around her arm, she discovered that her wound had already disappeared. Bai Wu was astonished. Her body had somehow healed on its own. Before she could fully comprehend what was happening, several bullets suddenly shot towards her. A few of Bai Wu's subordinates, unable to react in time, were shot through the head. The gunshots were so loud that they disturbed Chen An, causing him to open his eyes. The first thing he saw was Bai Wu using her bare hands to catch a bullet flying towards her. It was just as Chen had predicted. It seems that the main character is also extremely panicked upon realizing that he could no longer dodge bullets, and the mysterious forces that had been attacking them had now revealed their identities. Chen An found himself stuck between 2 sides, having to hold his breath and wait for them to resolve their own conflicts. Bai Wu and her subordinates quickly dealt with those people, though some of them had committed suicide, and no clues could be found on their bodies. Bai Wu suspected they were all professional assassins. A name popped into her mind, but she wasn't sure if the organization she was thinking of was responsible for this. After resolving that dangerous situation, they finally turned to Chen An. This young man seemed to always get caught whenever he went out on missions, and this was the second time Bai Wu had captured him. However, unlike last time, Bai Wu didn't seem as interested in him now and simply instructed her subordinates to release him. One of her subordinates, Bai Lang, seemed dissatisfied because Chen An's identity hadn't been fully investigated yet. But since Bai Wu had given the order, he had no choice but to let go. Unexpectedly, Chen had been kneeling for too long and his legs had become numb. As soon as Bai Lang released him, he instinctively fell forward, his face landing right against Bai Wu's chest. In this awkward situation, before she could even react, Bai Lang puffed up in anger. "Kid, are you tired of living? Get out of the captain's way." Bai Lang shouted as he aggressively moved toward Chen An, but he was kicked away by Chen in one swift motion. Once everything settled, Chen An stood up straight, casually dusting off his hands as if nothing had happened. "Ah, young people these days really are so hot-headed. I just accidentally fell into the arms of a beautiful woman, and look at all the fuss they're making." This time, Bai Wu was astonished because Bai Lang was her most trusted subordinate and also the strongest person in the team, yet Chen An had managed to knock him out with a single strike. She felt that this person was extremely unusual and her killing intent began to rise. She ordered her subordinates not to fire, deciding to settle things with Chen An herself. However, Chen An was the first to make a move, and he had also absorbed a considerable amount of primordial yang. This battle was clearly uneven. Bai Wu launched a kick, but not only did it miss, Chen had managed to grab her ankle. She was furious. Unable to land a kick, she resorted to punching, but he blocked that as well. Chen assessed that the opponent's strength was not bad, but her speed and precision were lacking, and her temperament was far from good. Bai Wu became increasingly ferocious, trying to pin Chen An down to make it easier to subdue him. However, she didn't expect that her actions would be read by him, as she ended up being counterattacked. Chen An effortlessly grabbed her, then threw Bai Wu with great force as though tossing a stuffed bear. Bai Lang hurried out to catch her, but Chen An's throw was too powerful. Not only did he fail to catch the woman, but he was also knocked down, with Bai Wu landing on top of him, leaving him gasping for air. In the midst of this chaos, Chen An managed to escape. Bai Wu lay on the ground, gritting her teeth and swearing after him, "Kid, sooner or later, I'll handle you myself." But after saying this, Bai Wu suddenly felt something different in her body, as if she had become significantly stronger, and it seemed that the person wearing the mask had just helped her stabilize her power. As for Chen, during his escape, he encountered many mutated creatures, such as a giant white snake and a monstrous wild boar of equally massive proportions. Adding the wolf, there were increasingly more strange phenomena happening as time went on. It seemed that the moment when the earth would change completely was no longer far off. Chen had been busy all day and was exhausted. He stopped by a nearby restaurant, planning to grab a meal. However, to his surprise, he found the goddess Zu in the flesh, live streaming. How could Chen pass up such a good opportunity? Immediately, he rushed over to Zu's table, introducing himself as her diehard fan, and smoothly sat down with her, appearing in her live stream. Due to his handsome appearance, he was even encouraged by Zu's fans to flirt with their idol. As for the goddess, after a few exchanges, she could sense something about Chen An and even wanted to take out her phone to add him as a friend. However, at that very moment, a creature rushed forward and snatched a piece of meat from Zu's plate. It wasn't exactly a person. It was more of a human-shaped monster, clearly mutated, and it wasn't the only one. There were at least 3 or 4 more like it in the restaurant. Ju, being a weak girl, didn't know what to do in such a situation and could only throw herself into Chen An's arms. As for him, after absorbing the primordial yang, he was more than capable of dealing with these monsters. Once everything was settled, he sat down to talk with the head chef and the staff responsible for the food in the restaurant. It turned out that all the monsters had one thing in common. They had ordered dishes containing pork. The 2 staff members admitted that the previous day, a man brought meat to sell at a much lower price than the market rate, and in order to save a bit, they had accepted it. The man also looked quite special, especially his eyebrows. Chen then thought of Su Yuan from that day, but the truth still needed to be investigated. So he instructed the kitchen to wrap up the remaining strange meat for him to take home. The first thing Chen An did was take a picture of the meat and send it to his future self. Then he asked the person about the situation. The other party quickly explained, "This is the meat of a mutated wild beast. Ordinary people cannot eat it. If they do, they will experience the symptoms you just witnessed. Wild beasts naturally tend to be violent, and when mutated, they carry a virus that causes brain damage in normal people who consume it. The negative emotions in their minds are magnified infinitely, eventually leading to mental chaos and uncontrollable behaviors like what you saw earlier. However, this kind of meat is different for awakened ones like Chen An. Your body has been modified by primordial yang, so eating such food actually helps enhance your energy." The staff said this meat was brought by a man. "I guess it was that guy who can spit fire, Su Yuan." Chen An replied, "I do have some impression of Su Yuan. He has a mysterious organization behind him, equipped with heavy weapons, and they are also competing for primordial yang. Therefore, I must be cautious." While the 2 were still talking, Sun Ming called to inform him that he had some personal matters tonight and would be coming home. Hearing Sun Ming's voice, Shen guessed that he was probably drunk somewhere. However, to his surprise, Sun Ming had also mutated by then and had become an ability user. He didn't want to tell him because he feared Chen An would be shocked, and he hadn't expected that his best friend would wake up before him. Sun Ming was still daydreaming about a future where he would become a world-renowned hero, helping the bad guys when the door suddenly opened. The person who entered introduced himself as Hong Ju from the Special Operations Department. He wasn't sure how they had found their way here so quickly, but Hong Ju wanted Sun Ming to come with him on a mission. When Chen An returned home to Sun Ming's apartment, it was empty. He sat down weakly and finished the tray of mutated meat he had brought back from the shop that received a message from Chen An Sr. The message informed him that in 3 days, a primordial yang would erupt again on Wanuan Mountain, but there was no map to the mountain. For now, Chen An had to go to Wanuan village to assess the situation, and in 2 days, the people from that organization would also arrive, so he had to be extra careful. Chen had no idea what the organization behind Su Yuan was, but since Chen An Sr. had said so, and given his current lack of ability, he knew it was best to stay humble and keep a low profile. As he focused on finishing his meal, Chen An received another call. This time, it was from Zhu Yang, his university friend. Having heard that Chen An was looking for a job, Zhu Yang offered him a temporary position as a security guard at a food event. He remembered that Chen An was good at fighting. The time was 8 o'clock a.m. tomorrow, and the location was Yu Ming Xian. The name sounded familiar, and after thinking for a while, Chen An remembered that it was the place Zhu Yang had mentioned in his live stream last time. He quickly agreed. A paycheck and a chance to meet the goddess could turn that down. At this moment, Zhu was lying at home, reminiscing about what had happened earlier that afternoon. She thought Chen An was not only handsome but also strong, and she really wanted to see him again. To her surprise, they met again the very next morning. However, this time his job was mainly to protect the big star, Suo Wuxpei. Before officially starting the job, he had to go through another round of interviews. But Zhu Zhu didn't expect the interview to be so superficial. When it was Chen An's turn, the person in charge made things difficult for him. Perhaps it was because his looks were too striking, leading to jealousy, and they believed he wasn't suitable for this bodyguard job. The person in charge even required Chen An to get approval from Han Feng, the one responsible for the security team, before being hired. Zhu Zhu was extremely angry about her friend being discriminated against. Han Feng, on the other hand, was a 7th degree black belt in Western Kondo martial arts and was not someone to be underestimated. At that time, Zhu Zhu was sitting there touching up her makeup, eavesdropping on the conversation, her heart filled with anxiety as she wondered whether Chen An would make it through. Meanwhile, the staff members surrounding her began to gossip. They're saying Chen An looks flashy like a monkey, and you can tell right away he's not cut out for this job. Some even think he'll get knocked out by Han Feng and embarrass himself. Don't underestimate him, he's actually very capable. Zhu Zhu couldn't help but defend him a little, and her words happened to reach Chen An's ears, giving him a lot of encouragement. Han Feng lived up to his reputation as a black belt, with sharp and decisive moves, and his speed was impressive. However, he was still just an ordinary person and couldn't compare to someone like Chen An, who was an awakened one. In the end, Han Feng was pushed back by Chen An, and he successfully gained his approval, becoming a bodyguard for the star Suo Wuxai. Zhu Zhu, because of this, had a moment of pride and arrogance, even publicly expressing her desire to take Chen An's WeChat account in front of the crowd, which made many people jealous to the point of turning red with envy. Meanwhile, the guy in charge, named Lo, who had just made things difficult for Chen An, sneaked into the bathroom to make a phone call to someone. First child, there's a bit of a problem. The person I arranged has been replaced by a kid who suddenly showed up. He was introduced by a guy named Zhu from the organizing team. All right, just stick to the plan as before. The voice on the other end of the line responded. We'll take action only after everything is over. Remember who you're working for. Understood. I follow the organization's orders and will never go against them outside. As Chen An and Zhu Zhu were scanning QR codes to add each other on WeChat, a luxury sports car pulled up in front of Yu Ming Xian. Everyone quickly became restless because the big star Suo Wuxai had arrived. Suo Wuxai's arrival also marked the moment Chen An had to begin his job. When separating from Zhu Zhu, she still seemed reluctant. That sister of hers was truly a famous star, and as soon as she appeared, the crowd at the event had to push and shove to get a glimpse of her. Though Zhu Zhu knew Chen An had been assigned to protect Suo Wuxai, she couldn't help but feel upset when she saw him running toward her. In the midst of dodging each other, she almost tripped, but in a flash, Chen An appeared and smoothly caught her. This caught Suo Wuxai's eye, and for some reason, it made her a little annoyed. So when she got into the car, she casually remarked to him a few words. Mr. Chen, you're truly enthusiastic. As my temporary assistant, you even care so much about protecting other women. Just by the way, if there were someone else, they would do the same. Chen An leaned back in his chair, responding in a very relaxed manner. Is there any bodyguard who looks as undisciplined as you? Sorry, Miss Suo, I didn't get enough sleep last night, but how I look doesn't matter. What's important is that I can protect you. Seeing that Chen An was speaking out of control, without any hint of being captivated by her beauty, Suo Wuxai became even more irritated. However, she didn't bother to pay attention to it and took out her phone to text herself. Bro, do you know Suo Wuxai? Right now, I'm her personal bodyguard. She's a living celebrity. Chen An quickly checked the message that was sent to him. He immediately guessed that he was at Yu Ming Xian. In his previous life, Zhu Yuan had also sent an invitation, but Chen An was unable to defeat Han Feng, so he was rejected. Chen also revealed an important piece of information. Today, Suo Wuxai would be kidnapped at the event due to some organization, so Chen had to pay special attention to her. The event venue was incredibly lively, and Suo Wuxai's presence was so magnetic that people were more concerned with pushing and shoving than with their safety. As for Chen An, after receiving the message about the kidnapping, he became extremely alert, working in a very professional manner, ensuring no one could get close to the celebrity headquarters. Seeing that he was working seriously, Suo Wuxai no longer held on to the earlier frustration and even handed him a towel to wipe off his sweat. While he had a moment to rest, Chen An used his sensitivity to scan for any potential danger around, and he noticed a cardboard box in the hand of one of the staff members. It was said to be the prize for the contest, and inside it was a rare fruit that grows on a mountain. Chen An moved a little closer and noticed that the crates of fruit emitted a faint primordial yang, so he deduced that the troublemakers today were targeting this. But if the goal was the primordial yang, why would they also want to kidnap Suo Wuxai? Chen An thought for a long time but couldn't figure it out, so he could only keep his eyes fixed on the target, doing his best to prevent her from being taken. When Suo Wuxai stepped onto the stage, she hadn't even said a few words when a crazy fan holding a sign rushed forward, constantly expressing his admiration for the actress. Seeing the intruder crossing the barrier, Han Feng immediately stepped forward to stop him, but to his surprise, he was shoved with such force that it left him staggering in pain. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, Han Feng didn't react in time, and the crazy fan started charging towards the stage. Chen An hurriedly rushed forward, kicking the fan, and asked, "Who sent you?" At that moment, Lao Du dashed out to intervene. "That's enough. Take him away." He and Han Feng each grabbed hold of the fan, subduing him. It seemed that the man was part of the plan to kidnap Suo Wuxi, but Chen An was simply too strong for him to break through the encirclement. Chen An also vaguely suspected that there was something unusual about the man. Not wanting the situation to escalate further, he quickly pulled Han Feng backstage. Suo Wuxi might be in danger. What did that mean? Naturally, Chen An couldn't reveal that he had foreseen the future. It can only be said that the backstage team is unreliable, yet the event still attracted too many viewers. If chaos were to break out, you wouldn't be able to handle it on your own. Han Feng heard the reasoning and thus arranged for additional bodyguards outside, while Chen An stayed close to protect the female celebrity inside. A tiring day passed like that. Once everything was settled, Chen An returned to the hotel to shower. He sighed in relief as there were no other dangers today, except for that crazy fan. However, feeling uneasy, he decided to use his sensing ability to check the area before going to sleep. Suo Wuxi was in the next room, but now he could no longer sense her presence. Its heart skipped a beat. Realizing she hadn't been gone for long, Chen An followed her aura. Unexpectedly, Suo Wuxi had gone out on her own, and as of now, she was still unharmed. But as he trailed her, Chen An discovered she had gone to meet Bai Wu. Why would these two know each other? While he was lost in thought trying to figure out the answer, Chen An suddenly sensed a heavy killing intent. A dagger came flying from somewhere. Because Chen An dodged in time, it lodged into the wall, indicating it had been thrown with great force. "Damn you for ruining my plans, go meet your maker." Chen An heard a shout right next to him. He turned around and found that the one who had spoken was the thug he had beaten earlier in the day. He held two knives in his hands, one pinned to the wall, the other aimed at Chen An flying toward him. But he won't give up easily. Chen An immediately pulled out the gun he had stolen from the two terrorists earlier. The fanatical man was terrified upon seeing this. Perhaps he hadn't expected an ordinary bodyguard like Chen An to be armed with a weapon. Chen An fired several shots, but none hit the target. The man swiftly fled, vanishing in the blink of an eye. Chen An felt a slight regret for not hitting the weak spot of that bastard. However, the gunshots would certainly have alerted the police. He guessed that the bad guys wouldn't dare to act again today. He then stored both the gun and knives back into his space. After waiting for Suo Wuxi to finish speaking with Bai Wu, he followed her back to the room. Only when the actress had fallen asleep did Chen An dare to go to bed. At that moment, another woman was watching him, the same one who had followed him while he was practicing his martial arts at Sun Ming's house. She was the superior of the fanatical man. You shouldn't have provoked him. The fanatical man clutched his shoulder, where a gunshot wooed Stillblood. His face was pale with pain. "I just wanted to test his strength. The higher-ups wanted to assess him to determine the organization's future direction. Remember this well. This man is very powerful. You must not provoke him. The organization doesn't want any more enemies like him." "Yes, but I heard Suiyu and Sega higher-ups are considering recruiting him into the organization." "That's none of your concern. That girl's Suo Wuxi, we don't need to worry about her. But keep a close eye on Chen An. This is a matter of the aristocracy, and it's not appropriate for us to reveal ourselves. You should know what to do." After saying that, the woman vanished. The fanatic clicked his tongue, then forced the bullet pin out of his shoulder and limped away. A peaceful night passed. The next morning, the event reached its final segment, the awards ceremony. Chen continued to guard Suo Wuxi closely. This made the people from the organization sitting in the audience squint in irritation. He was even harder to deal with than they had imagined, but they whisper among themselves that they needed to be patient. Their mission was not just to target Suo Wuxi. They also had to get their hands on the award. However, approaching Suo Wuxi was very difficult because Chen An was no easy opponent. Among the individuals responsible for presenting the awards, there were those planted by the organization, so they were ready to act. On the other side, Chen An had also sensed the danger. Still, the organizers announced the first winner. "I am here, it's me." Chen An immediately went on high alert because although only one winner had been declared, two voices had answered. He then sensed the presence of Death Key. "This is bad. Could it be that the real winner has been eliminated?" Almost immediately, a man with a joyful expression ran up. As soon as he grabbed the orange filled with primordial yang, he immediately broke into a sinister grin. "It's in hand. Let's move." Instantly, many people in the audience surged forward, charging directly at Suo Wuxi and Chen An. Being attacked by many people at the same time, Chen An remained calm, even taking the time to tell Suo Wuxi to hide behind him. However, before he could even show off his martial arts, those bastards had already collapsed. Chen observed closely and discovered they had been hit by tranquilizer needles, like sleepy Detective Kogoro, causing them to fall over. The security team quickly rushed in to clean up the mess, but Chen An was also targeted by a tranquilizer needle. He was quick enough to activate his spatial ability, and the needle went straight into it without touching him. But then he saw Bai YY sitting below the stands. She did distinguish between friend and foe, even attacking him. As a result, Chen An continued to pretend he had been struck, as though he had been hit by a dart. Han Feng, who was worried down below, rushed up but was stopped by several security staff. Only then did he realize they were not his team. However, as soon as these people showed their work IDs, Han Feng didn't dare to take another step. All the attackers were taken away, leaving only Chen An to be brought to Bai YY's private room. Suo Wuxi also followed them. Looking at Chen An slumped on the sofa, Bai YY seemed quite worried. What's wrong? Is he okay? He's fine, just unconscious. It seems like you're worried about him. Not at all, but he is my bodyguard. What? I don't even know why you drugged him. I also heard that you awakened your powers, hadn't you? Based on this conversation, Chen An initially guessed that they had known each other for a long time. However, the information that Bai YY inadvertently revealed next was shocking. The great celebrity Suo Wuxi not only shared the common surname Su, but she was also the young lady of the Su family, the leading clan among the 4 major families in Yincheng. Chen An tried to control his expression as he was pretending to faint. The head of the Su family was Su Baitian, a well-known figure throughout Yincheng. His career spanned across the entire country with vast financial resources, and he owned numerous entertainment companies. There had been rumors that Suo Wuxi was an exclusive artist of an entertainment company under the Su family, but now it was revealed that her identity was far more complicated. She was also the princess of Yincheng. The two women talked for a long time before Bai Weiwei stood up, lazily stretching her arms. Everyone I sent are lights, nothing will happen. The issues here have all been resolved. I should head back now. Unexpectedly, at that moment, the door suddenly cracked open. The bodyguard guarding the door was also knocked inside, much to Bai Weiwei's astonishment. What was even more surprising was that Suo Wuxi was the first to react. Her skills were clearly impressive, but her strength wasn't enough to match the person rushing in, and she was knocked back by the opponent. It was a man with a scruffy face who stormed in aggressively. As he barged in, he immediately asked, "Where's the spirit fruit?" Chen An remained still, but his suspicions had been confirmed. These villains had indeed come for the fruits emitting the primordial yang. "I don't know what you're talking about," Bai Weiwei replied. As soon as she finished speaking, the opponent lunged at her, landing a punch. But Bai Weiwei was quick, crossing her arms to block the blow. The opponent seemed intrigued by her strength and followed up with a powerful kick. Bai Weiwei was able to block it, but the force was so strong that it nearly broke her bones. Chen continued to lie there, not daring to open his eyes, but based on the sounds, he could tell that Bai Weiwei was at a disadvantage. However, he could sense any fluctuation of primordial yang, which indicated that the man wasn't an awakened one. But how could an ordinary person possess such strength? "I'm bored. Let's finish this," the man suddenly said. Then Bai Weiwei was struck directly in the abdomen, coughing up blood as she fell backward. The man seemed ready to deliver a final powerful kick to her, and Suo Wuxi, panicked, rushed over to stop him. But at that moment, the man felt something sharp and fast whiz past his face, nearly cutting it. When he regained his composure, Bai Weiwei had already been carried away by Chen An. The object that had flown past his face was a security card, now stuck firmly in the wall. "You're awake," Bai Weiwei exclaimed, startled, looking at Chen An. "I wasn't unconscious, just playing around with you guys," Chen An replied. The moment these words were spoken, both Bai Weiwei and Suo Wuxi felt uneasy. Chen hadn't fainted, which meant that everything they had set up until now had been overheard by him. Chen An gently placed Bai Weiwei back on the sofa. The pressure from his hands alleviated her pain a little. Bai Weiwei realized that Chen An was helping her treat her injury, and her cheeks couldn't help but flush slightly. Perhaps out of gratitude, she reminded him that the man they were facing was very strong, and even he might not be able to defeat him. "Leave now, this has nothing to do with you." But running away from trouble was not Chen An's style. The man with the steel beard, seeing a stronger opponent appear, grew even more excited and wasn't about to let him off easily. "I thought you were a master from somewhere, but it seemed to just an ordinary nobody not worth mentioning, huh? You don't need to guess my background. I'm just a regular handsome guy. Even if you take my life, no one will come after you to cause trouble. Once Chen An finished speaking, both Bai Weiwei and Sua Wuxai turned pale with fear. With such a statement, their opponent would no longer hold back, nor show mercy. Yet Chen An remained calm. Even if the man was truly powerful, he was confident that in order to defeat him, the guy would probably need to retreat to his mother's womb and train for several more decades. His defiant demeanor, especially with his middle finger raised in arrogance, drove the man with the steel beard into a fit of rage. It was only then that Chen An sensed the fluctuation of primordial Yang's aura. It turns out that he was not an ordinary person. It was just that he had completely concealed the primordial Yang power he had absorbed. That's why he hadn't emitted any aura earlier. Now, because his anger had reached its peak, a little bit of it was revealed. It seems that the breathing technique he practiced was not simple at all. His opponent charged aggressively, but with the very first strike, he missed, allowing Chen An the opportunity to counterattack. He landed a punch on his opponent, but the man quickly responded, aiming to strike back with his knee. Chen An reached out to block, only to discover that when he made contact with his opponent, his strength was being drained away. It seemed that he could not only devour the attack of this bearded man, but also store it. After a while of fighting, the bearded man was gasping for breath. Chen An was so at ease that he even had time to scout the surroundings. The sound of fighting outside had grown so loud that it couldn't be heard anymore, but he didn't sense any trace of Def K. It seemed that everyone was acting, and the event with the spirit fruit as a reward was actually a trap set by the Su family, meant to ensnare those who were eyeing the spirit fruits. They hadn't expected someone this strong to emerge from the crowd. It seemed that the army, which initially wanted to cooperate with the Su family, had hesitated because they didn't want to offend that mysterious organization, so they were waiting to see who would come out victorious between the Su family and the bearded man. Kid, who the hell are you? Do you even know what it means to anger us? Don't talk so much while fighting. Chen interrupted him, then declared loudly, "You've lost." When he threw the punch, the man with the steel beard also struck. The two fists collided head-on, and the one who lost, of course, was not the male lead. Just now, he had absorbed so much of his power. Chen An continued to accumulate his strength and then returned all of it with this blow. Looking at the man lying sprawled on the ground, he finally let out a breath. Lu Jing, he was the expert sent by the Chen family. It was said that he was an ancient martial artist. So Wuxai, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. Chen An, do you know? Lu Jing is an ancient martial artist. Chen An remained silent for a few seconds, not expecting that ancient martial artists still existed in this world. Now that primordial Yang had appeared, it was very likely that those called ancient martial artists would start to emerge from the shadows. They seemed to have a special way of absorbing primordial Yang, and the long-established cultivation methods they used were extremely helpful for training. Otherwise, apart from Chen An, who had been guided by his future self, no one else could have cultivated to this extent upon awakening. So Wuxai added, Lu Jing's master is Yan Master, and it's said that his power is supernatural. The current awakened ones are no match for him. Chen An had taken the life of his disciple. He would most likely come looking for revenge. So Wuxai was worried for Chen, and because of this, and she was even willing to step forward and take responsibility, claiming that the Su family was behind this. If Yan Master decided to cause trouble, it would be trouble with the Su family. Chen An, I'm sorry for getting you involved in this. I originally thought you were just an ordinary martial artist, but I didn't expect. So Wuxai's voice was filled with regret. No need, the person was taken down by me. You don't need to worry about me. If that Yan Master wants to settle things with me, then tell him I'll be waiting. Although Chen An took responsibility upon himself, So Wuxai couldn't just ignore it. After all, he had acted against Lu Jing because of them. Furthermore, Yan Master wasn't the only threat because the Chen family was still out there. Since they had suffered losses this time without gaining any benefits, they would certainly find a way to get revenge. And Chen An, being her only family, was unaffiliated with any forces, making him an obvious target. Bai Weiwei, who had been lying flat on the sofa, finally lifted her head upon hearing this. She wanted to invite Chen into her military, so at least he would have some backing. However, just earlier, Bai Weiwei had intended to shoot him. Chen had already held a grudge, and sooner or later, he would definitely give Elle a beating to vent his anger. Thus, in the face of the two women's invitations, he was hardly moved. All right, I'm tired after a whole day. I'm heading home to sleep. On his way back home, Chen An finally had time to check his phone. Zhu Yang and a few other friends had sent messages asking about him, their tone full of urgency. Chen An replied with a few simple texts, letting them know that he was safe. So Wuxai was extremely concerned about Yan Master and the ancient martial artists, indicating that this person's power was no trivial matter. Worried, Chen An decided to send a message to his future self to inquire, and the reply he got was this. Don't mind him. The things those old stubborn fools left behind aren't worth you wasting too much energy on. Just focus on improving your own strength. Chen An was very pleased with this arrogant attitude that dismissed everyone. Indeed, the person he would become 10 years later had barely changed. It was only when he got to his doorstep that Chen An realized his pocket was empty. The key card to open the door had vanished without a trace. After searching through his memory, Chen An recalled that he had used the key card as a throwing weapon earlier. At the time, he thought it was pretty cool, but now, standing in front of his door, he couldn't get in. With no other option, Chen had to call Sun Ming. However, as soon as the call connected and before he could say anything, the eager voice of the young man came through. "Sorry, my friend, but I'm dealing with some matters at home right now, so if I can't meet with you, can you keep an eye on that apartment for me?" After hearing this, Chen An couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but when he asked for more details, Sun Ming repeatedly assured him that everything was fine, only that his family had something to deal with, and they wouldn't be in touch as frequently in the near future. Then he hung up. Chen An had no chance to ask more. Little did he know that ever since Sun Ming was taken by the Special Handling Bureau, he had undergone hellish training. His ambition to be a savior had been crushed. Now, Sun Ming only wanted to live as an ordinary person. Chen An stared at the abruptly disconnected call, a restless unease growing in his chest. But at this moment, all he could do was hope that his friend was safe, and there was nothing more he could do. The most urgent issue was still a room key. Since Sun Ming wasn't coming back, Chen An could only grit his teeth and scrape together 200 coins to call a locksmith. As soon as he entered the house, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Hello, are you still doing well?" Chen An had barely answered the phone when a sweet voice, almost sugary, came through the receiver. "Is it Zhu?" The voice on the other end laughed, clearly pleased that the person on the other side still recognized her voice. "Looks like you're a real diehard fan." Chen An felt his heart flutter with joy at the fact that his idol was calling him. During the chaotic event, Zhu had heard that he was taken away, so she had been very worried. She asked Zhu Yong for his phone number to personally call and check on him. Now that she could hear his voice loud and clear, she could finally relax, reassured about his health. "I just got home. I'd taken a few days off to rest." Zhu began to explain. "By the way, where do you live?" Chen An had only asked casually, not expecting Zhu to answer so quickly. But the thing was, she lived in Wanuan village. What a coincidence. Just the other day, Chen An had mentioned that the third outbreak of primordial yang would occur in this area. It really was a small world. "The place I live is hard to find, but the scenery here is beautiful. If you have time, you could come here and enjoy the view." Seeing that he hadn't replied, Zhu continued. The goddess had taken the initiative to invite him, and since he also had an important matter to attend to in Danyuan village, he agreed. Zhu didn't expect him to agree so readily, and her cheeks couldn't help but flush red. "Is this a date?" "He's Zhu, no, you can't be shy now." She silently thought to herself perhaps by then the girl had already started thinking about what to name her child. The two quickly agreed that Chen An would soon arrive in Wanuan and Zhu would definitely go and pick him up. After hanging up, Chen An in a good mood began his cultivation. Half an hour passed, but there was no significant progress. It seemed that the amount of primordial yang he had gathered was still too little. With this, facing powerful beings like Yan Master and the like, it would be like using a stone to fight against a spear. While still troubled about how to solve this, Chen An received a message from his future self 10 years later. Chen An smiled so much that he couldn't see his homeland anymore. It seemed that, when things were difficult, one still had to rely on oneself. His future self had just sent him a new book titled Star-Breaking Blade Technique. Chen An quickly learned the Star-Breaking Blade Technique. But since the earth had not yet fallen into chaos, finding a real blade was nearly impossible. He could only practice with a badminton racket, so he still hadn't fully found the right feeling. Once he had settled down, Chen An realized something. In order to master the Star-Breaking Blade Technique, he had turned Sun Ming's house into a pigsty. It took him about an hour to clean up and move everything. After finishing his work, Chen had rushed to the bus station to catch the earliest ride to Wanuan village. On the way, he kept dozing off. In his drowsy state, he once again entered his own space. Inside, the iron tree from the estate that Chen An had absorbed during his last visit was still there. Feeling that it was decent material, Chen An decided to use it to forge a blade. You really succeeded after all. It seems that within this space, you can control everything as you wish. Chen An then tested it with the water surface inside. Spirit water can even be altered according to my thoughts. At that moment, he was able to walk on the water's surface as if walking on solid ground without sinking. Chen An, excited, tried a few steps with lingering wave traceless step. After running for half a day, he returned to the iron tree, which had produced numerous swords in one casting. Watching the swords fall from the tree like rain, Chen An felt like the unrivaled champion of the world. In his excitement, he ordered the iron tree to turn into a mountain for him. However, this time, nothing happened. Chen An couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. It seemed that inside this space, he couldn't create things at will. He could only transform the shape of existing objects. Stop sleeping, we're at the stop. Chen An woke up to someone shaking him repeatedly. When he opened his eyes, he saw an elderly woman staring at him intently. Sorry, I fell asleep. He hurriedly grabbed his things and got off the vehicle. Although this place was barren, the scenery was indeed beautiful. Zhu hadn't lied to him. Chen An looked around for a while, making sure no one was watching him. He then tiptoed and ran at a speed far beyond what a normal person could achieve. Not long after, he arrived at Wanuan village. Not seeing a sign at the entrance of the village, Chen asked an old man to inquire. Elder uncle, may I ask if this is Wanuan village? Are you from outside? Yes, I came to meet a friend. It was supposed to be a normal response, but as soon as Chen An finished speaking, the uncle's face darkened with displeasure. You little brat? Don't try to fool me. You're also from the archaeology team, right? People like you only enjoy deceiving simple folks like us. The last person who came here also said they were looking for someone, but last night, they secretly brought people to the back of the mountain to dig for ancient relics. Chen An was being scolded for no reason, but he didn't feel upset. This was because the information that the elder uncle had just provided was far more important. It seemed that many people had come before him, but who were they exactly? Were they from Bai Wei's army, or was it the mysterious organization behind Su Yuan? Lost in thought, Chen An stood still, letting the uncle shout at him as much as he wanted. However, suddenly, he heard Zhu's voice. Father, I bought everything. Zhu. Chen An stuck his head out. The atmosphere quickly shifted to one of excitement. Zhu hadn't expected that the young man would find her so quickly, and the uncle Chen An had just asked for directions from turned out to be her father. At that moment, he finally believed that Chen An had indeed come to meet a friend, but what he hadn't expected was that the person he was looking for was his own daughter. Zhu's father immediately turned around and grabbed his phone, calling her mother. Come home quickly. The fire is almost out of control. Our daughter is about to be taken away by some brat. Chen An and Zhu ignored him, immersing themselves in the ambiguous atmosphere of love. At this moment, while the two were having a cheerful conversation on the roof, a girl with dark purple hair and orange-yellow eyes was quietly hiding, observing and saying, "Haha, you really came." Chen An smiled and said, I cast a spell for you, then spread his hand out to show Zhu. Surprised, Zhu asked him, You know how to cast magic? Chen An happily replied, Count to 3. Don't blink. Zhu agreed, Okay. 1, 2. As soon as he counted to 3, a bracelet appeared, which he took out from within space. The bracelet had intricate patterns that looked beautiful, with a prominent chibi figure of the god of love. Zhu was taken aback, her face full of joy. She looked at the beautiful bracelet and said loudly, Wow, how did you do this? It's so beautiful, but it's too precious. Seeing her so happy, Chen An replied, I made it myself. It's not worth much as long as you like it. Zhu tightly held the bracelet in her hand and raised it to her chest. She smiled happily, her cheeks flushing pink, and said, I really like it, but you can't give me more next time. Chen An, hearing this, was a little confused and asked, Next time? Zhu, hearing him, blushed, flustered, her eyes spinning, and quickly explained, No, that's not what I meant. Suddenly, Chen An felt a chill, sensing something. He quickly turned his head behind him, thinking to himself, Killing intent? Zhu stood there, confused, not understanding what was happening. She then asked him, What's wrong with you? Chen An regained his composure when she asked and responded, He's fine. Just then, Zhu's father returned, exuding a murderous aura. His face was slightly angry, his eyes red as he looked at Chen An. He spoke coldly, causing Chen An to shiver, breaking out in a cold sweat. He said, Are you done talking? You should go find your mother now. Zhu, seeing her father, seemed a bit regretful and said to Chen An, Sorry, I was going to finish my sentence, but you changed the topic to ask him. That's right. Where are you? You're not leaving this soon, are you? Hearing Zhu's question, he pointed his thumb towards the village and said, I found a place nearby, in case you miss me. Before he could finish his sentence, he was startled by the murderous aura and angry expression of Zhu's father, who was glaring at him, making him turn pale. Then Zhu and her father went back home. As they walked, she turned around and quietly spoke. Later, when they parted ways, he waved goodbye to her. When they left, the atmosphere seemed to calm down. He coldly wiped the smile off his face. Chen An shoved his hands into his pockets and looked towards the fields. Who was she? Everything became quiet. Then, a woman suddenly appeared in the misty air, asking, How did you notice me? He replied indifferently, Instinct. Is that why you're following me? At that moment, the woman's figure became clearer as she walked towards Chen An and answered, Following would be the wrong word. After all, you arrived after me. So, It turns out you're Mulin Shuo. She brushed past Chen An and said, I want to collaborate with you, follow me. Mulin Shuo walked ahead, leading the way while Chen An quietly followed behind her. As she walked, she spoke, perhaps you sensed the disturbance and came here, right? Our goals might be similar, and I think we can work together. Then they walked up to a small house in the village. Mulin Shuo continued, after all, the two of us have collaborated at least once, right? Chen An, standing behind, didn't say a word, his face showing clear disdain. At the same time, Su Yuan walked out of the house and said, we meet again. Chen An felt irritated upon seeing him, gritting his teeth, his face full of contempt, and coldly said, ha ha, do you think you're a reliable partner? Su Yuan, upon hearing this, felt uneasy and nervously explained, I was just too frightened last time, but I won't make the same mistake again. Mulin Shuo looked at Su Yuan with a neutral expression and said, looks like there's a story here. Chen An still stood there with his arms crossed, glaring angrily at Su Yuan. Chen An tilted his head and asked, why should I trust you? Seeing Chen An's attitude, Su Yuan anxiously explained, the flames inside me are almost out of control. This time, I just want to find an opportunity to control the power within me. Su Yuan continued, the powers of an awakened one need to be constantly used or else they'll backfire. But if I release my flames recklessly, it's very easy to be discovered. Mulin Shuo added, same here, I have to use my abilities all the time. Su Yuan, in doubt, asked Chen An, don't you feel the same way? Chen An, still showing disdain, didn't even glance at Su Yuan and replied, my powers aren't as flashy as yours. At this moment, Mulin Shuo shifted to the main topic. I received news that around 6 to 7 o'clock today, underground tremors will begin to occur. At that time, primordial yang may emerge. Do you have any news? Chen An, hearing her words, began to think the people from that organization were not easy to deal with. Having some help would be bad, and besides, they had shown genuine intent. Then he spoke, Wanuan Mountain, southwest direction. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. Mulin Shuo and Su Yuan seemed to doubt this claim. What? Mulin Shuo spoke. With our current technology, we can't pinpoint the exact location, but I believe you. Chen An responded, at that time, I just need primordial yang. The rest doesn't matter to me. Su Yuan, seemingly not believing her ears, asked, is it really that simple? Mulin Shuo smiled and said, no problem. We just need the location where changes occur and the deal is made. Before he could finish his sentence, Chen An was startled and turned his head, looking at the scene. What you see ahead is a house burning violently. His expression changed slightly, and he thought and worried that was the direction of Wanuan village. Zu, the fire was still burning fiercely and smoke was rising in thick columns. Mulin Shuo looked at the fire and said, how can a sealed warehouse like that explode without any airflow? Or is it due to the sudden release of Huai? I wonder if this village will be destroyed. Hearing that, Su Yuan sneered and said, who cares if this backward place gets destroyed? Upon hearing his words, Chen An's face darkened. He shot him a cold glare before jumping down from above and running towards the fire. Seeing this, Su Yuan said, what's this kid up to? Think that brat can survive. Mulin Shuo crossed her arms and stood on the side, saying, there's no other choice. A lot of forces have gathered this time. To gain any advantage, we have to cooperate with him. I heard he defeated Lu Jing, and that kid has some connection with Bai Wu. She then left, but before going, she reminded Su Yuan, I don't care what you do, but if you mess up the plan, you know the consequences. Hearing Mulin Shuo's words, Su Yuan gritted his teeth in anger and muttered, sooner or later, you'll regret this. At that moment, the phone screen lit up with a message. Chen An anxiously texted Zhu, was there a fire at your place just now? Are you okay? Zhu replied, I'm fine. It was just the room next to ours that caught fire, so we went to help. Chen An, still worried, texted, be careful, okay? He used his skills to observe Zhu, who was busily helping out. He thought to himself, it seems like she's still a little injured, but it's nothing serious. His phone lit up with a message notification. He asked Chen An, in the future, will Wanuan village be affected? Chen An replied immediately, it seems that Wanuan village will suffer a huge fire, and after that, Zhu won't be seen live streaming anymore. Chen An read the message with great concern and quickly dialed the phone. On the other end, Zhu answered, hello, it's me. Before she could finish her sentence, Chen An interrupted, saying, can you come back to Yincheng? Come back tonight, bring your family along, and get out of there for a while. Chen An urgently urged Zhu, who was confused and asked, huh? What are you talking about? Chen An didn't have time to explain. He just said loudly, the world has changed. Your village is about to be destroyed. Since the fire started, don't you feel like something's off? Zhu froze, and she pondered for a moment before saying, actually, There was a warehouse fire last night, and with what just happened, there hasn't been a fire in Wanuan village in years. Then hesitantly she asked, do you know something? At this point, Chen An calmed down and said, I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, I hope you believe me. After that, Chen An didn't say anything else and hung up. From a distance, he saw Zhu and her father arguing. Soon after, her father left, leaving her standing alone. She stood there, took out her phone, and typed something. Chen An's phone screen lit up with a message notification from Zhu. She wrote, I need to talk to my parents for a bit, but I still want to thank you for caring about me. Chen An read Zhu's message and reflected on it. It made sense. How could anyone just leave because of a single word from him? At this point, his worries shifted to something else. He silently thought, it must be about time. Is this the place where my future self said there's the most spiritual energy? And are there also unimaginable transformations happening here? The sky at that moment was quickly covered by clouds, obscuring the bright moonlight, making everything seem pitch dark. The ground began to tremble, vibrating, and even the village shook in response. The villagers started to panic, shouting, earthquake, run fast. From beneath the ground, columns of light shot up in all directions in various colors, blue, red, purple, yellow. Then a huge explosion occurred, and several men in black shouted, it's starting. Everyone gathered together. They stood in the midst of the great flames, and it appeared that spiritual energy was flying out of the fire. Suddenly, a beam of light zipped past one of the men in black, and he cried out. Bai Wu, along with a group of well-equipped armed personnel, issued an order. Put out the fire first, and then deal with the rest. From within the flames, a loud voice yelled, are you trying to die? Who told you to put out the fire? Su Yuan stepped forward, his body engulfed in flames, his eyes blazing with fire. He scowled and continued, you're interrupting my cultivation. Because of his fire ability, he could absorb power from the flames to strengthen himself, which was why he was angry at others trying to extinguish them. He saw Bai Wu and said, iron attribute ability. Bai Wu didn't expect to meet a woman like her here. Hearing this, her face darkened, and she coldly stared at Su Yuan. The group of awakened individuals then joined together to extinguish Su Yuan's flames. At this point, Su Yuan became even angrier. He extended his hand forward, gathering energy into a small fireball, and shouted, busybody. Suddenly, the fireball flew towards Bai Wu. She raised one hand to block the flames and exclaimed, what? He stood there, smugly saying, your body might be able to block my fire, but what about your clothes? If you keep meddling, I'll burn your clothes off. Bai Wu took off her outer jacket and threw it on the ground. She was seething with rage, her eyes wide open, and golden spiritual energy crackled around her. She said, the man wants to die. With a powerful leap, she soared directly towards Su Yuan, and he, thrilled, shouted, come on, this is great. He clapped his hands together, sending streams of fire toward Bai Wu. She yelled, it's too hot, and quickly retreated behind a large rock to dodge Su Yuan's attack. He taunted her, saying, quick on your feet, huh? I wonder if you're just as quick in bed. Come out here, let's continue playing. She wasn't going to back down either and retorted, your mouth sure is filthy. Su Yuan sneered, saying, ha ha, my mouth can do more than that. At that moment, Bai Wu threw something towards Su Yuan. He instinctively used his fire ability to block it, but before he could comprehend what was happening, he screamed, ah. Suddenly, Bai Wu rushed quickly to Su Yuan's side. He shouted loudly, what? Before he could react, a punch landed squarely on his face, making him grit his teeth and let out a cry of pain. Old Su Yuan was knocked back by Bai Wu's punch, his body trembling slightly, half of his face swelling, with blood dripping from the corners of his mouth. He wiped the blood away and said, you dare hit me? Calmly wait for your death. Bai Wu cracked her knuckles, her face filled with killing intent. Her cold, sharp eyes flashed with blue electric sparks as she continued, well, it's a coincidence, it's just beginning now. Mulin Shou, who was standing not far behind, also appeared with a tattered figure. He said, this kid can't accomplish anything. If it weren't for hiding his abilities, then this time. Meanwhile, Chen An stood on a high hill looking down. Everything around him was now engulfed in flames. He said the temperature around here is rising more and more. Then, a surge of green spiritual energy emanated around him. Suddenly, a small flame ignited at Chen An's feet, causing him to panic and exclaim, oh no, it's already burning my feet. Gradually, larger flames began to spread. He stomped his feet to put out the fire, still muttering, hot, hot, hot. Get away from me. Chen enveloped himself in green spiritual energy for protection and thought, the fire has spread here already. When will the UN nourishment? It was as if he sensed something, turning his head to look, thinking to himself, it's here. Chen An began to activate his spatial skill, initiating Devour as he absorbed the UN nourishment, his potential increasing rapidly. After absorbing the energy, he refreshedly exclaimed, "Ah, my face is flushed with satisfaction," he said, as if his strength had doubled compared to before. Then suddenly, he sensed something and immediately jumped to a different spot, a small wisp of smoke rising from the ground. Suddenly, Mu Linshuo's voice rang out, "Chen An, where's the cooperation you mentioned?" Seeing her ask that, he replied, "Didn't I already tell you the location? Why haven't you come?" Chen An sharply retorted, "Your sincerity is lacking, and yet you still have the nerve to blame me." Then he asked again, "Where's your teammate?" At this moment, Mu Linshuo was still invisible. When Chen An asked, she fell silent, making no sound. Chen An, surprised, said, "No, no way. Has he abandoned you again?" Mu Linshuo floated past him, revealing herself, and said, "Forget about him. The two of us will cooperate. Right now, there's fire all around us, and the concentration of primordial essence is getting higher and higher. It will definitely attract experts. I want to set up a concealment formation nearby, and I'll need your cooperation." Chen An, with an indifferent expression, asked, "Create the formation. What can I do to help you?" As he spoke, his mind briefly thought of the mirror formation used by some magicians. Mu Linshuo then answered, "I can use the concealment formation to cover the area around us, so when we absorb the primordial essence, no one will be able to detect us." But then she turned to him and said, "However, I need." Her face turned slightly red, and she said, "To have you supply energy for me." Chen An was stunned, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. He pointed at her face and asked, "Are you blushing? How should I provide energy for you?" "Could it be?" he exclaimed. In his mind, the image of Mu Linshuo wrapping her arms around his neck, the two of them in an intimate position with their faces close together, appeared. Just thinking about it made his body tremble, his face flushed, and his mouth agape, unable to imagine what would happen next. Seeing him like this, Mu Linshuo was visibly displeased, exuding a murderous aura as she said, "You just need to stick cross-legged behind me and press your palm against my back." The two of them sat down on a flat spot. Chen An tried to explain, "Just kidding, don't be angry." Then he placed his hand on Mu Linshuo's back, transferring his spiritual energy to her. As her body received a surge of power, she trembled and let out a soft sound. Huff. And she began to concentrate, gathering her spiritual energy in one spot, forming a purple orb. After a while, a purple barrier appeared, enveloping a large area. Perhaps this barrier required a great deal of power, as it consumed quite a bit of spiritual energy. She was slightly fatigued as she said, "All right, now, no one can see us from the outside. We can safely absorb the nourishing energy now." Then, noticing his angry expression, she said, "Hey, you can take your hand off now." Upon hearing this, Chen quickly withdrew his hand, a little flustered, saying, Okay. She sat and absorbed the nourishing energy, wondering why the absorption speed was so slow. She opened her eyes, her brows slightly furrowed. She then glanced over at Chen An, who was also sitting and absorbing the nourishing energy. She was shocked, thinking to herself, how could this be? His absorption rate is so fast. Could he have A-level talent? The barrier was a thin, purple membrane. An hour later, the barrier disappeared. On this side, the high heels scraped against the ground as if trying to stop. Bai Wai was sweating, with several wounds on her body and parts of her clothes torn. So Yuan looked even worse, his face bruised and his nose bleeding. He was panting heavily and said, "Gannett, that damn woman is really hard to deal with." Then, a few men from Bai Wai's team looked over to the side and shouted, "There's someone over there." Bai Wai also noticed and looked over, exclaiming, Chen An." Mu Linshuo walked ahead, casually glancing at them, while Chen An walked behind, his hands in his pockets, glancing at one of the men in the group and saying loudly, "Mu Linshuo, she's with the underground organization." Bai Wai, standing behind, was also startled and looked toward them. Mu Linshuo turned his head, smiled at Chen An, and said, "Bao Zong, even Chen An is interested in her?" He called out. Before he could say goodbye to her, a few bullets suddenly flew toward them, but she had already disappeared, leaving only a shadow behind. The bullets flew past without hitting anything, and Chen An was startled as well. One man ran forward, slamming his weapon to the ground, and shouted, "Die." Seeing him flail his knife around in the air, Chen An laughed. The man raised his glasses, furious, and shouted, "You and her are in the same group." Bai Wai realized what he was about to do and screamed, "Don't." Chen An looked at the man in front of him, thinking, this girl should not be underestimated. Her armor was intentionally worn to make others think she and he were on the same side. At the same time, the man from earlier lunged at Chen An with the knife, shouting, "I'll kill you." But Chen An just gave a cold stare and with an emotionless face, flicked his hand, sending the man flying, causing him to scream. The knife in his hand spun in midair before falling to the ground. He glanced to the side where Bai Wu remained silent, saying nothing. When Chen An turned to leave, the man who had been struck seemed not to give up just yet. He pointed at him and shouted, "We can't let him go." Bai Wu, feeling irritated, said, "Earlier, when dealing with that fire-breathing guy, why didn't I see you helping?" His face twisted with hatred, as though he wished he could kill the person in front of him immediately. He said he's with Mu Lin Shuo. She's for an underground organization, and he's no good either. Capture him. Hearing this, Chen An let out a cold laugh. Then two men rushed forward, intending to seize him. Bai Wu, losing her patience, angrily shouted, "Chenzai, I command you to return to the team immediately." Upon hearing this, Chenzai turned his head and replied, "Bai Wu, he killed a master that the Chen family invited. I haven't even caused you any trouble about this matter. I hope you don't go against the Chen family, or else don't blame me for not being merciful." The two henchmen standing nearby just stood there, sweating, unsure of which side to take in this confrontation between the two senior figures. Bai Wu trembled with anger, unable to speak. She shouted, "In your heart, you must be thinking that these people seem to all be from the Chen family. No wonder no one told me the details of this mission from the start." The men stood frozen, guilty, not daring to speak. She then thought, feeling upset about how she had fought the Fire Brother alone without their help, yet they were so enthusiastic when it came to dealing with Chen An. Chen An stood outside listening to the conversation. He sighed and then laughed, saying, "What if there is no talk of loyalty? Can words kill me?" He then looked at Bai Wu and asked, "If I kill them, you won't mind, right?" Bai Wu was indifferent to their fate, stretching out her hand to gesture for him to proceed. Chen An arrogantly beckoned with his index finger and said, "The Chen family, right? Come here." "All right, if you have any last words, hurry up and say them," one of them responded. Hearing this, the others immediately rushed forward to attack Chen An. Chenzai, standing behind, said, "Seeking death." Then he took the black sword out from his spatial pocket, enveloped in a layer of green spiritual energy. Chen An, in a ready stance, drew the sword behind his head and shouted, "Die!" He swung the sword forward, causing a massive explosion. One of them teleported backward. Chen An, holding a knife, said, "You go die." But before he could strike, a sword pierced through his chest, catching him off guard. Chen An then spoke, "I'm not going," coldly added, "You go." The one who was stabbed collapsed to the ground, causing Chenzai to stumble backward, its face pale, saying, "This level of power." Before he could finish his sentence, a fierce fire suddenly erupted from behind Chen An, startling him. Chen An turned to look behind him and said anxiously, "This is the direction of Wanuan village. Why is it?" Without paying attention to himself, Chenzai turned and fled. When Chen An turned around to look at him, he'd already run far away. He muttered, "Touch that guy." He used his reconnaissance skills to think to himself, "I don't have time to worry about him right now. I need to see what's going on in Wanuan village." He saw that the entire village was engulfed in flames. Zooming in further, he saw Su Yuan standing there, laughing wildly with arrogance. He cursed under his breath, "This bastard," and flew out of the forest, heading straight for Wanuan village. Chen An shouted in anger, "Su Yuan, the screams for help are still echoing in my ears." He was about to go and give that bastard Su Yuan a good beating, but hearing the cries of the people, he hesitated. Gritting his teeth, he thought to himself, saving people is more important. He quickly went to protect a mother and child who were trapped and healed their injuries. Just as he was about to move them to a safer place, he suddenly heard the cry of a man for help. He glanced over and immediately recognized that it was Zhu Zhu's father. He said, "It's Zhu Zhu's father." He handed the child to the mother, telling them to go to a safe place, then rushed over to help Zhu Zhu's father, who was trapped by a pillar. He asked anxiously, "Are you okay?" The man managed to free himself, his face a little pale, and said, "Cough, thank you." Now that he was safe and sound, Chen quickly asked, "Where's Zhu Zhu?" The man remembered and replied, "She couldn't sleep, said she was going out for a walk. I couldn't see her after that." He pleaded desperately, "Please, save my daughter." Upon hearing this, Chen An used his skills to search for Zhu Zhu's whereabouts. He thought to himself, "My sensing ability can't locate Zhu Zhu. Where has she gone?" Before Chen An could find Zhu Zhu, a cry for help rang out in his ears. He gritted his teeth, and with a quick grunt, Chen An dashed toward the fire, thinking to himself that it would be better to both rescue and search for her at the same time. Meanwhile, in a flat area outside the fire, most of the people had already been rescued. Bai Wu ran up and said, "Chen An, you didn't even let her finish her sentence." Chen An immediately shouted, "Don't worry about me. Get the injured to the hospital quickly." Upon hearing this, Bai Wu hurriedly answered the phone, "Got it." At that moment, a flash of light went through Chen An's mind, and he suddenly felt a bit of joy, thinking, There's a response now. Then, without warning, he soared up into the sky, leaving everyone there astonished. They seemed unable to believe their eyes, and they whispered to each other, "Oh my God, is that a deity? He's the one who saved me, an angel descending from heaven to save us." As the sky began to brighten, Chen An ran swiftly through the forest as though he had no concept of fatigue. Suddenly, Chen An stopped at a spot and said, "I can sense Ju's presence. Ahead of me is a dark cave." Chen An, puzzled, murmured, "But why would she be here?" Slowly, he entered the cave and surveyed its interior. He thought to himself that the cave seemed very spacious, large enough for two people to walk side by side. Then, he suddenly noticed something and his thoughts raced. Something was wrong. In the pitch-black cave, two red eyes, glowing like rubies, shone through the darkness. Chen An stood frozen. His eyes flashed with realization as the bear, with its bloodshot eyes full of fury, lunged toward him like a missile. Chen An stepped aside. The cave, originally spacious, had become cramped due to the appearance of the bear. He moved with some difficulty, cursing the bear under his breath. "Damn it, you big beast, you become a nuisance." Unable to toy with him, the bear grew angry, its form darkening with rage. Seeing the bear turn back towards him, Chen An quickly spoke. "Wait, after dodging that last blow, I can tell just how strong you are." He thought to himself, the bear's speed and strength were truly exaggerated. Compared to the strange beast that had just transformed, the strange beast now seemed like nothing more than shrimp in comparison. Chen An suddenly realized that when he told the bear to wait, it actually stopped. Could it understand him? He wasn't entirely sure if what was happening was a coincidence or if it really understood him. Regardless of his thoughts, he waved his hand and quickly explained to ensure his survival. "I don't mean any harm." Hearing this, the large bear looked at him skeptically, as though it didn't believe him or simply didn't care to listen. Chen An then introduced himself as if to prove that he wasn't a threat to the bear. "I am." Before he could finish, the bear attempted to slap him. Caught off guard, he was struck squarely, flying back to the ground. Enraged by the bear's actions, Chen An shouted at it, adding a line that sounded like something out of a romance novel with an overbearing CEO. "Damn it, you're playing dirty, but you've succeeded in getting my attention." Realizing he had been insulted, the bear charged toward him. This time, Chen An decided to fight back. With a face as menacing as any villain, he grinned maliciously. "All right then, let's see who's stronger." Both of them threw their punches at the same time, and the blue spiritual energy radiated around them. Because he didn't expect Chen An to be that strong when they clashed, the big bear, who had been silent from the start, suddenly shouted. The big bear was knocked back, enraged. It charged like a wild beast, mouth dripping with blood, and Chen An charged back, meeting it head-on. The two of them grappled, each trying to land a blow, and when they found themselves evenly matched, the tension on their faces increased. Boom, boom, boom. The big bear was struck on the head, leaving two large bumps. It curled up in a corner, holding its head. What had once been fierce now looked pitiable. Realizing that it couldn't defeat Chen An, the big bear rushed to hug Chen An's leg, acting spoiled and throwing a tantrum, clearly showing how heartbroken it was. Seeing this, Chen An stopped moving and stared at the big bear, stunned. He asked, "You can act spoiled too?" He was still pondering when a voice suddenly echoed from the entrance of the demon realm. Chen An looked up in surprise and asked again, "Is this a future version of me? Why are you speaking directly in my ear?" The future will answer as well, "I'm not sure either. It seems that my consciousness can now see what you see, and this conversation might be a mental connection between us." He remained doubtful and continued, "Could it be that my abilities have leveled up?" "Yes, that's right. I had data on this before, but I didn't expect the effect to be this good. It's probably related to the energy. Now everything we see is the same. We no longer need to be connected all the time to communicate anywhere and know everything." Chen An was stunned, unable to believe that it could be like this. His thoughts gradually turned in a negative direction. "My God, doesn't that mean you see me eating and drinking hygienically too?" The future, knowing your thoughts, is also helpless and boring. He responded with a convincing answer, "Would I criticize myself?" "That's true," Chen An agreed. "All right then." To avoid further embarrassment, he quickly changed the subject. "What's this demon realm you're talking about?" The future recounted what it knew. "If I'm not mistaken, Wanuan Mountain didn't have this place before. It only suddenly appeared later with the changes in heaven and earth. New places like this are emerging more and more, and at that point, humanity will enter a stage never before seen in history. This bear is very likely from the demon realm." Seeing Chen An looking at him, the big bear nervously shrank back, much like a shy young maiden. Chen An, uninterested, asked about his own future. "What level is this bear? How does its strength compare to mine?" "This is just an ordinary little demon. As for cultivation realms, right now, your strength is at the second tier. The current realm classification is divided from low to high into 9 levels, with the 9th level being the highest, equivalent to transcending to the immortal realm. Your talent is at level 4 now, but I believe that in this harvest, you'll break through to level 5. The big bear shrank itself and followed Chen An. Seeing this, Chen An became curious it can shrink itself. Demon beasts' ability to grow large is a basic skill when cultivating, so if they can naturally grow or shrink at will. Of course, each type of demon beast is different, and their abilities and attributes also vary. The two of them ventured deeper into the cave. At the end of the cave, a girl was lying asleep. She was incredibly beautiful, with flowing pink hair loosely tied to one side, wearing a pale yellow dress. Zhu, he called out. As if understanding something, the big bear quickly covered its flushed face. Chen and turned around as well. Asterisk this, asterisk, he thought to himself with a frown. Asterisk dotes this bear like Zhu asterisk. Leaving the big bear behind, he rushed to shake Zhu awake. As she stirred, her body also came to consciousness. She asked suspiciously. Chen An. Then suddenly she threw her arms around his neck and screamed in fear. There's a bear. The big bear, which had appeared gentle in her eyes, now looked terrifying. Zhu clung tightly to Chen An's neck, calling out, Chen An. Seeing her reaction, he blushed slightly and stammered, Zhu, are you all right? The bear that had been struck by Chen An earlier stood up, glaring at the two of them with fierce eyes. As Zhu saw the bear, she screamed in panic. She clung to his collar, her face pale, and with a frightened voice said, Chen An, there's a bear. The bear, seeing her distress, tried to explain, it's all right. I've already been beaten into submission by him. Hearing that, her face still looked somewhat frightened. Chen An shot a sharp look at the bear, then pointed a thumb at himself and said clearly, she's mine, got it? Upon hearing this, the bear became enraged and bared its teeth. Chen An coldly replied, are you dissatisfied? Be careful. I'll beat you so hard you'll crap yourself, then shove you into a pile of dung and use your own shit to beat you. The bear, upon seeing Chen An's serious demeanor, immediately toned down its mood, grumbling softly before punching its chest with one paw and giving a thumbs up with the other in agreement. Then it bent down toward Zhu, startling her and making her exclaim. The bear acted cute to win her favor, causing her to laugh. Suddenly, Chen An spoke up and asked, but why are you here? Hearing his question, she lowered her gaze slightly and said, after recalling what you said to me, I couldn't stop tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I was about to go for a walk behind the mountain to get some fresh air when I was caught by it. As she spoke, he listened intently while glancing at the large bear, which scratched its head innocently. Then she suddenly thought of something and asked blankly, you just said you subdued it? Are you an awakened one? Do you know Flying Sky, Earth Escape? Chen avoided both her gaze and her question, skillfully changing the subject. Let's go. Your family is probably worried. In his mind, he silently thought, if I don't cut her off, I don't know how many more questions she'll ask. He then carried her out of the cave. The bear, trailing behind, put on a regretful expression, wiping away the tears streaming down its face with a cloth and crying out, Hugo. At this moment, Zhu, leaning against Chen, said, after hearing what you said, I went online and looked it up. There's so much talk about the world changing, about cultivators, awakened ones. Many pieces of information have vanished in the blink of an eye. She pressed her lips together, her face a little pained. In her heart, she thought, he is an awakened one. He will be immortal. We are no longer from the same world. After walking for a while, the two of them finally returned to Wanuan village. Chen An spoke up, Zhu, we're home. Get down. At that moment, she tightly hugged Chen An's neck, resting her head on his shoulder, her eyes filled with tears as she said, you're not a normal person anymore. I just want to hold you a little longer. In her heart, she thought perhaps we will never have any more contact after this. Then Zhu's parents ran up from a distance and shouted, Zhu, where have you been? You've scared us to death. She got off Chen An, wiped the tears from her eyes and said, Mom, Dad. She ran to them and they hurriedly asked, are you okay? Are you hurt? She replied, I'm fine. Chen An stood silently, motionless, without saying a word. Zhu turned her head and glanced at him. At that moment, his figure was slowly disappearing into the distance. Chen walked alone in the dark night, when suddenly Bai Wu appeared behind him and said, where are you going? The Chen family will stop at nothing to kill you. You're in great danger. Chen's face remained expressionless, and he replied indifferently, it's fine. I don't care. Bai Wu stood behind him, thinking about the times she'd encountered Chen An, pondering. Sometimes he was timid and weak, other times he was arrogantly domineering. What kind of person was he really? She looked at his disappearing figure and suddenly thought, that back, could it be him? She was thinking about the masked man who had saved her that day. She remained deep in thought, wondering just how strong he really was. At that moment, he waved his hand and said, Thanks for the reminder. Returning to his residence, Chen An rested his head on his hand and looked at the report from the system. Tianfu Devouring has a value of A-level talent 1/50th 000. Tianfu Space has a value of S-level talent 1/1 million. Hidden Tianfu Connecting a Future has a value of SA-level talent 1/10 million. Available talent value can be used 80,000. Tianfu Merchant's Insightful Vision costs 100,000. He leaned back into the sofa, thought for a moment, and then said, what is Tianfu Merchant's Insight? Can I still buy new talents? Before he could finish his sentence, Chen and Tuom spoke up, upgrade the devouring ability first. As soon as he finished speaking, the system's screen displayed Tianfu upgrade deducts 50,000 talent points, remaining talent points 30. Tianfu Devouring has been upgraded to S level. Chen and Tuom was slightly surprised and said, the strength of a third grade ability is growing faster than mine did back then. Now I can go to the space pool to accumulate more talent value. He then submerged himself in the pool and his talent points kept increasing by 1,500. At this moment, a notification appeared again on the system screen. Hidden Tianfu Connecting the Future has a value of SA level talent 1/10 million. Available talent points can be used 98,000. Tianfu Merchant's Insightful Vision costs 100,000. Mentalist's Spiritual Power costs 500,000. He looked at the system's report and said happily, eyes without pupils, wait for me to get you. In his skyscraper headquarters building, a knock on the door suddenly echoed. A voice from inside said, come in. It turned out that the one who knocked was none other than Bai Wu. She opened the door and walked in. She had just opened the door when she froze for a moment. Inside the room was a middle-aged man who said, Bai Wu, tell us about what happened on Mount Fangyuan, the incident involving Chen An. Along with a young man sitting beside him, he smiled evenly. Bai Wu's face darkened as she looked at him. She thought to herself, Chenzai Lang, so that young man is Chenzai Lang. He sat on the side, watching her with a mocking smile. She averted her gaze and hesitated before speaking. On the day of the fire, I saw him with a woman, and then there was a conflict between us. That's basically what happened. Somewhere, there was a blonde girl wearing glasses that shone brightly. It turned out that was Du Henyu. She crossed her arms, speaking as she walked. There was no issue with her words. Everything she said was the truth. After hearing this, Bai Wu was stunned, her eyes wide and her mouth agape. She thought, this woman was always behind me, yet I never noticed. What's going on? Du Henyu turned to look at her and raised her hand to greet her. Hello, I'm a spirit master. I just used some tricks to blind you earlier. Don't take it to heart. In response to her greeting, Bai Wu turned her face away in annoyance. Huff. Du Henyu awkwardly smiled and withdrew her hand. In the room, the middle-aged man spoke with a stern face. Chenzai Lang, for disobeying Captain Bai Wu's orders, and before understanding Chen An's attitude, you instigated your subordinates to attack him. You are hereby expelled from the army. Chenzai Lang's face darkened as he slammed his hand on the table and shouted, I refuse to accept this. On what grounds? Old man, you don't even care about the face of the Chen family. Suddenly from somewhere, a bodyguard rushed in and violently punched him in the face. The punch twisted his face, distorting it grotesquely. The blow was so powerful that it sent him flying several meters, crashing straight into the wall. The middle-aged man frowned in anger and waved his hand, saying, all right, that's enough. Take him down. He spoke irritably, as though one bad apple had spoiled the whole bunch. Bai Wu stood there, watching everything from start to finish. She glanced at the black handbag the bodyguard had brought outside, then turned to the middle-aged man and said, the Chen family will definitely not forgive Chen An. The middle-aged man responded immediately, if the masked man you're talking about is Chen An, then I think the Chen family doesn't even consider that kid a threat. The middle-aged man sneered and said, the Chen family has done a lot of things. They should be prepared to pay the price. She told Chen An we won't get involved in this matter, nor will we help the Chen family. We just hope he won't hold a grudge against us. Meanwhile, in another setting, the sky gradually darkened and the lights of the buildings began to turn on one by one. Chen An was walking on the street when he suddenly stopped for a moment. From a distance, in a white car, a girl called out to him, hey, what are you standing there for? It was Su Wuxie. She took off her glasses and smiled at him. Hurry up and get in the car. Since she had invited him, he had no choice but to accept. The car started and sped off. As they sat in the car, the two of them chatted. Chen asked her, how did you know I was here? Where are you planning to go? Before Chen An's doubt, she quickly responded, oh, do you think I'm watching you? This hotel is owned by my family. Do you think I have nothing better to do? After hearing this, Chen An stiffened, his face darkened, and the awkward smile on his face faltered. So Wuxie continued, the hotel is surrounded by experts. As soon as you step out of the hotel, someone will kill you. The Chen family has said they want to make sure you don't leave Yincheng. Their car suddenly stopped as they were waiting for the traffic light. The conversation didn't end. She continued, if you follow me, they won't strike easily. My family and the Chen family haven't openly clashed yet. She took off her glasses, her eyes sincere as she looked at him. Last time, they were struck hard. It was a huge blow for them, and they won't want to face my family again. She paused. Chen An, come to my house. Chen An furrowed his brows slightly, closed his eyes, and said, forget it. This is my problem. I can handle it. Thank you for your kindness, but please stop the car over there. I'll head home now. The scene shifted to a brightly lit street, the air fresh, and the sky, a beautiful oil painting. So Wuxie's car finally stopped at Chen An's request. Sitting in the car, she could only helplessly sigh. Who would regret Chen An's departure? As soon as Chen An stepped out of the car, he heard loud arguing. Are you blind? Does my boss ever pay for his meals? It turned out a tall, fierce thug was arguing with a petite, cute shop assistant. He yelled, enough talk, I'll smash the door. The shop owner here is no pushover either. She won't tolerate this nonsense. You all can't leave. If you want to eat, you might have to pay for it. Hearing the loud argument, Suo Wuxai also got off the car to watch the drama. She looked at Chen An and asked, do you know her? He immediately responded, this is King's sister, the owner of the Sichuan hot pot restaurant. She's divorced and raising her daughter on her own. She's a good person. Chen An quickly ran over to see what was going on. I'll go check it out. So Wuxen followed him. I'll go with you. As for the shop owner, those who thought they could bully a weak woman just because they were stronger. One of them said, third party, what are you doing here? This woman doesn't know the rules. Take her away. Send her to Huang Cheng. The technician will give her to young Master Chen. Doesn't he need a woman over there? A green-haired thug from the group grabbed King's sister's arm, a hot pot restaurant owner. He started sneering. Ha! Who brother is right? This girl is offering herself on a silver platter. Don't blame us if King's sister ends up screaming. Suddenly, a glass bottle hit the green-haired thug's face, making him yell. Damn it! He angrily cupped his head and yelled, what the hell? Who's the blind idiot? It turned out that the one who threw the bottle was Chen An. He swung his arm and threw another bottle at another thug in the group. Chen An and Suo Wuxia looked at them like they were scum of the earth. Chen An raised his voice. What are you doing? Suo Wuxia shook his wrists slightly and slowly said, I'm on my period. He furrowed his brows and looked at Chen An, shouting, are you tired of living? There were two tall men standing beside him. The two men gritted their teeth, their faces filled with anger as they glared at him. There was also one person lying sprawled on the ground. He looked fine, but something was off. One hand was in his pocket, while the other held a lighter, lighting a cigarette. He muttered, meddling in things that don't concern him, asking for death. Just as he put the cigarette in his mouth, the two men were immediately beaten to a pulp. He was stunned, frozen in place, staring. Chen An raised his fist, his body tense with rage, his eyes never leaving him. Meanwhile, Suo Wuxai stood beside him, calm and composed. The man was in disbelief, his eyes wide open, mouth agape, shouting, what? But in no time, as though he had not learned his lesson, he stood holding the cigarette, looked at Chen An and Suo Wuxai and said, kid, you got some skills. Do you know who I am? As soon as he finished speaking, he was punched straight in the face. He fell to the ground, his face bruised and swollen. But his mouth kept moving. Damn it, I'm a friend of young Master Chen. You're finished now, kid. Let me tell you, you're done for. Chen An looked at Suo Wuxai and said, the Chen family's dog legs. Anyway, I had a grudge with the Chen family for a long time. You go ahead. Seeing this, he shouted loudly, are you scared now? Want to leave? I'll tell you, I've remembered your face. This filthy woman, he muttered. Suo Wuxai heard this and smiled lightly, looking at him as she said, what should I do now? He's remembered my face. Why did you kill him for me? I'll go ahead. Upon hearing this, his face darkened, a sinister smile spreading across it. As he spoke, his hand was already rolling up his sleeve. The man panicked, starting to frantically clear his name. I said you're the type of beautiful woman who makes everyone fall in love at first sight, the kind of person who leaves a deep impression just by looking at you. She turned around to walk away, waving her hand as she said, if there's anything you can't handle, just call me anytime. My words are always valid. Chen An watched her retreating figure. The total was 35 coins for the 5 people, plus a few losses. The emotional distress fee was 500 coins. After paying, the person left. He sat down on the chair with his legs crossed and said, you've got King's sister next to you. The man's hand trembled as he tightly gripped the money, saying, all right, I'll give it. And there are 2 underlings next to me, their faces all twisted. As he handed over the money, he secretly thought to himself, Let him enjoy this moment. Once I get back and report to young Master Chen, young Master Chen will make sure that Brat's life is worse than death. After handing over the money, all four of them left together. King's sister, seeing this, immediately reminded Chen An, "Xiao An, you should hurry up and leave. They'll definitely come back. After you hit them like that, they won't let it go." Chen An, hearing this, wiped the table with a cloth and said, "King's sister, I'm fine, but you should leave here instead." "Ah!" King's sister sighed, carrying a bowl. At that moment, in some bar, young Master Chen, "You must take responsibility for me and kill that little brat for me," he exclaimed. Chen family Chenzai Lin sat in a chair, holding a glass of wine. Chenzai Lin spoke. "What's the matter?" Hearing this, he replied, "At first, we were just having a meal, but when we left, it turned out like this." He knelt on the floor and recounted everything. Upon hearing it, Chenzai Lin shook his glass of wine. "Young Master Chen, we've got the camera footage." A tablet was placed before Chenzai Lin. "Hemph." A kid was looking at the tablet, saw Chen An, and then he exclaimed, lifting his glass to his mouth while keeping his eyes fixed on the tablet. He said, "Bai Lang, follow him and see where that kid is. Bring people over here." He smirked, continuing, "Let me see who dares not show respect to me in Yin Chang, even a who dares to hit." Bai Lang slightly bowed and said, "Yes, young Master Chen." Hearing that, he was overjoyed and prepared to stand up. "Who, brother? I've gathered the information already." A voice came from in front of a house with its lights on. Someone pointed at the house and said, "That kid is on the upper floor of this building." At that moment, Chen had just finished his shower, still holding a towel to dry his hair, when he suddenly heard a noise. He wondered, why is it so noisy in the middle of the night? He walked out and saw a group of people inside his house. One of them was even eating a banana. "Brother Bai," that's him. Upon seeing Chen An, he shouted. Chen An sighed, "Oh dear!" He then threw the banana on the floor, his face full of anger, and shouted, "It's this brat who did it. Kill him." Bai Lang's face also darkened. "Oh, the awakened one." Bai Lang glanced at Chen An, then spoke. "Young Master Chen asked me to bring you back. Follow me." Upon hearing this, Chen An calmly turned around, put on his slippers, and said, "I was just about to go meet him." He wasn't scared at all. With one hand on his hip and the other pointing toward the door, he said, "Lead the way." At the bar, the voices of a man and woman could be heard. "Ah, you're so annoying. Stop hiding. Come here and give me a kiss." It turned out that it was young Master Chen, who was joking and flirting intimately with a girl who had golden hair, glamorous makeup, and a tight, seductive dress. Young Master Chen had his arm around her shoulder, and with the other hand, he was holding his phone, saying, "I've got a message. Let me check it first." She laughed and replied, "Yes, yes, yes." At this moment, young Master Chen received an urgent message on his phone from the Chen family. The message read that Chen family disciples should refrain from acting rashly and avoid provoking this person. Attached was a photo of Chen An with a red note underneath the picture saying that if one was confident of victory, they could kill this person. Young Master Chen looked at it and recognized the face, thinking to himself, "It's him, isn't he the one who beat up Ahu?" He stared at the phone screen, then leaned back in his chair, smirking. He thought, "So now, they won't even show respect to the old man anymore?" As he thought this, he sent a message to someone named Bai Lang, telling him, "Kill this person on the spot." He then called out to his subordinates, instructing Lai Bao and the other three to go assist Bai Lang in bringing back the head of that brat. The subordinate bowed his head and replied affirmatively. Meanwhile, at Chen An's house, a man with white hair and braided hair, watching the phone screen, smiled. Suddenly, a knife fell from his sleeve. He rushed toward Chen An, shouting, "Die!" This shocked everyone present, who didn't understand what was happening. Chen An smiled faintly and effortlessly dodged the blade that barely grazed his neck. One of his subordinates spoke with admiration. "Our Lang brother is taking action." Sure enough, at this moment, the knife in the white-haired man's hand seemed to have missed its target completely. Then Chen An suddenly appeared behind him, catching him off guard. The man turned around, swinging the knife at Chen An, shouting, "Impossible! When did you?" But before his eyes, all he saw was a blurry figure that slowly began to fade away. Chen An suddenly appeared behind him, startling him so much that his face turned pale, drenched in sweat. He kneeled and said, "Boss, spare me." The henchmen nearby stood frozen, their mouths agape, as if they couldn't believe what was happening before their eyes. Chen An coldly responded, "I won't." He then pulled out a sword from his spatial ring. Suddenly, blood sprayed from the white-haired man's body, causing the henchmen to fearfully retreat. In unison, they knelt and begged him, "Boss, please spare us. Boss, I was wrong. I shouldn't have." Chen An didn't listen to their explanations. He simply swung his hand, slicing all the fruit on the table in half, while the henchman cried out in agony. Now, only the man in the yellow shirt remained. He trembled and frantically backed away, holding his hands up in front of him, pleading for mercy. Don't kill me, he yelled desperately. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Chen An smiled and replied, don't worry, I won't kill you. Before he could finish his sentence, the man suddenly dashed backward, catching Chen An off guard. He stepped on a banana peel on the ground, then crashed his head into the wall, creating a deep dent. As his head hit the wall, he cursed. Damn it. Seeing this, Chen An was momentarily stunned. His expression darkened, his face pale as if he were about to faint. He struggled to finish his sentence. I still want you to lead me to find young Master Chen. He stepped closer and saw the man lying motionless, so he kicked him to shake him awake and said, Hey, are you still alive? When the man didn't respond, Chen An applied the right-hand rule, repeatedly slapping his face and saying calmly, Wake up, wake up. Suddenly, a streak of green light flashed past, surprising him. Chen An leaned to the side and managed to avoid the dart flying towards him. But suddenly, the dart soared upwards. Chen An was astonished and thought to himself, this technique with the hidden weapon, if you're not an awakened person, then you must be a martial artist. From a distance, 2 more darts flew towards him. Luckily, he quickly dodged and the 2 darts embedded themselves in the wall. However, he hadn't anticipated that another dart would come from a different direction. He was shocked and thought, how could they predict my movements? Chen An touched the ground, flipped over, and leaped up to evade the dart. He figured there were at least 3 assassins, maybe more, and that the darts were poisoned. Sweat began to bead on his forehead as he silently thought, I have no idea where they are hiding, otherwise I'll be at a serious disadvantage. Then another dart appeared. Chen An blocked the opponent's line of sight, activated the devouring space, and drew the dart into the space, thinking to himself, looks like I need to draw them out first. He pretended to collapse onto the ground, and the assassins, seeing this, emerged and laughed, saying, this damn kid looks like he got hit by the dart after all. At this moment, Chen An lay motionless on the ground, clutching his chest while the assassins stood there, grinning smugly. The old man with the white beard said, this kid's vitality is quite strong. Even after being hit by the poisoned dart, he's still not dead. Upon hearing this, the man in the red robe sneered and continued, it's just a matter of time. Finish him off, young Master Chen promised 5 million. After saying this, they laughed heartily. Suddenly, Chen An sprang to his feet and laughed along with them. Ha ha, leaving them bewildered and confused. You, how are you still? Chen An brushed one side of his hair, trying to look cool, and flashed a mocking smile at his opponent, asking, surprised, happy? Then he stomped on the foot of the man in the red shirt, making him cry out in pain. The others suffered the same fate. Afterward, he took out the dart he had just hidden in his space and said, you guys had a lot of fun shooting earlier, right? I will give it a try. Shaking the dart in his hand, he continued, but my skills aren't that good. I only know how to do this. With that, he flicked the dart with the force of 2 fingers towards a group of assassins. The dart shot through the air at incredible speed, and the assassins, terrified, scrambled to dodge the incoming attack, but it was too late. The dart struck the heads of 3 assassins without missing, and they collapsed to the ground, dead before they could even scream. At that moment, only the fake white-haired man was left. Seeing this, he feared and retreated. Chen An approached, causing him to fall to the ground in fear. Chen An spoke, his face breaking into a sinister smile as he looked at the assassin. For the lucky audience, do you agree to take me to see young Master Chen? Meanwhile, at the bar, young Master Chen was on the phone with someone. Damn it, why are they picking up? Just as he was about to dial again, he heard the sound of a door being kicked open. He eagerly asked, oh, you're back. The door was smashed open and cracks appear on the wall. Chen An, holding the old assassin with one hand and kicking the door open with his foot, stepped inside. Upon seeing him, young Master Chen was stunned, his eyes wide. He took a step back and leaned against the sofa, stammering, You. Chen An threw the assassin to the ground and asked, didn't you want to see me? He then sat on the table and asked again, now that you've met me, how is it? Am I handsome? Young Master Chen at this moment was terrified, sweating coldly. He gripped the golden ring tightly, pressing it against his chest as he said, handsome, what do you want? Do you know who I am? After saying that, he tried to calm himself, but he still felt a bit anxious. He spoke to him, today I admit defeat. What do you want to let me go? Just tell me how much you need. Chen An sat on the table, his face dark as earth, not saying anything. On the other hand, young Master Chen continued, I'm just a second-generation rich kid, a parasite waiting to die. Killing me wouldn't mean anything, so why not let me go? I can guarantee that my family will pursue this matter. At this point, young Master Chen was thinking in his head, Huff, let you be proud for a while longer. Once Butler Zu arrives, you're done for. He is a top-tier expert. After hearing his words, Chen An spoke, looking towards the door. Why don't you just be quiet for a moment and stop making noise, buying time for someone to come help, right? I'll wait. I also want to see who the Chen family will send. Just as he finished speaking, a voice full of killing intent echoed. You are quite bold. Chen An glanced at the person entering. The newcomer was a man with white hair slicked back, his hands also behind his back, and a few wrinkles on his face, making him appear quite elderly. He continued, but today, I'm afraid you won't be able to get out of this door. At that moment, Chen An from the future appeared beside him and said, he is Zhu Fa, the second most powerful expert of the Chen family, not someone easy to deal with. You better avoid him. Just after hearing Chen An from the future speak, Butler Zu suddenly lunged forward, his hand clenched into a fist aimed at him. Chen An reacted swiftly, managing to block the strike in time. Two streams of red and green aura clashed against each other. Seeing this, Chen An from the future simply said, forget I said anything. Chen An was knocked back but didn't pay it much attention as he was mentally analyzing the situation. The old man's strength was formidable. The awakened one he had met earlier was nothing compared to this man. Old man Zhu's face turned cold as he said, indeed, you have some skill. You managed to block 1/3 of my strength. You are worthy of dying by my hands. With that, he rushed forward again, launching another attack. Chen An saw this and lightly dodged to the side. The old man, still not understanding what had just happened, was hit by a palm strike from Chen An, sending him crashing to the ground, causing the tiles beneath him to crack. Young Master Chen stood to the side, looking displeased and disdainful, clicking his tongue. Butler Zu sat up, saying, interesting, interesting. Suddenly, he tore off the shirt he was wearing and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. Chen An, seeing this, looked at him with a disgusted expression and shouted in confusion, what the hell are you doing? I'm not stealing anything. Before he could finish his sentence, the old man flexed his muscles, crazily transforming into an insane form. A misty smoke billowed, slowly revealing a shadowy figure surrounded by red, blood-like spiritual energy. At this point, his body had grown twice its original size, and his bloodshot eyes flashed with electricity. Chen An gaped in shock, exclaiming, what the hell? Is this the second form? Chen An from the future, standing nearby and protected by a deep purple barrier, said to him, I told you to avoid his attacks first. Young Master Chen sat on the sofa, happily saying, come up and kill that kid. On the other side, Butler Zu, full of momentum, said, Junior, dare you take another punch from me? Chen An, with a fake innocent expression, replied, you throw the punch and I'll throw the bag. Immediately after, he rushed towards him with overwhelming force, making it difficult for Chen An to counter. He was pushed back, his hand reddened from the previous block. He thought to himself, as expected, this is the aggressive form. The strength has doubled compared to before. Before he could regain his composure, Butler Zu leaped into the air, delivering a kick as the next blow, saying to Chen An. Before he could finish, Chen An's head was instantly shoved back several meters. At this point, Butler Zu laughed with pleasure, veins popping on his forehead, saying, reincarnate well. He then beat Chen An in the stomach, sending him flying into the wall, shattering it into pieces, dust flying everywhere. At that moment, young Master Chen walked over, pointing his finger and ordering Butler Zu, old man, chop off his head and bring it back here. Despite the kick and crashing into the wall, Chen An stood up, saying, old man, you don't follow martial ethics, playing rock, paper, scissors, but dodging like this. Young Master Chen was startled and stepped back, hiding behind Butler Zu, his head still sticking out, asking, what's going on? Why is he still alive? Butler Zu, looking at Chen An from the debris, sneered coldly. Chen An, appearing unbothered as if nothing had happened to him, waved his hand and said, come on, let's continue. This time, no more playing around. Butler Zu, slightly frustrated upon hearing this, clenched his fist with all of his strength and aimed it at Chen An, shouting, I'll grant you your wish. At this moment, only Chen An could be seen sneering, gently using his left hand to block the old man's attack. The two hands met, creating a tremendous force, and smoke billowed into the air. Chen An, with a proud look on his face, thought to himself, all three powerful strikes earlier have been left behind, and now it's time to return them slowly. On the other side, when the old man saw that Chen had blocked his previous move, he was surprised, sweat pouring down his face. With a hint of panic, he asked, how? How is your strength exactly like mine? Chen An's hand remained tightly gripping his, causing the old man's hand to tremble. Why can't I pull my fist back? The old man thought to himself. Young Master Chen, standing behind, immediately retreated, shouting loudly, you damn old man. What are you doing? Quickly, cripple him. Hearing this, the old man gritted his teeth and shot a glare at the useless brat. Did he see that he was at a disadvantage? When Butler Zu said nothing, young Master Chen rushed to the table, opened a drawer, and pulled out a gun. Nervously, he pointed it at Chen An, saying, damn it, looks like I have to do it myself. Seeing this, Chen immediately pulled Butler Zu's hand. The old man's massive body absorbed all the bullets fired. He cried out, "Ah, stop shooting, damn it." After the barrage of bullets had ended, Chen An tossed him aside, his body riddled with bullet holes. Now, young Master Chen was trembling with fear, his face pale, still trying to raise his hand towards Chen An, but unable to say a word. Chen An turned to look at Butler Zu, who was trembling on the ground, and then glanced at young Master Chen. Now he had collapsed to the ground, his eyes wide with fear as he begged, "No, please don't spare me." Chen An slipped his hand into his pocket, gave a cold laugh, lifted one foot, and said no. Then he stomped directly onto young Master Chen, causing him pain, his face turning pale and his teeth gritted. A scream of agony came from their room. In another room, a man gripped the table so tightly that it cracked, his fingernails leaving deep scratches. He stared at the large camera screen and said, "It seems Chen An's strength has reached the peak of the second rank. Currently, even at the highest level of the battlefield, it's still only the second rank. We can't let him continue developing. Give me a solution to deal with him." Behind him, a group of people knelt awaiting orders. "Yes, master." Outside the bar, Chen An walked leisurely, sipping his drink. Suddenly, he noticed something, stopped, glanced behind him, then threw his cup at the person behind him while shouting, "Have a drink for me." A blurry figure, dressed in a purple dress and black ankle boots, screamed. The woman dodged, causing the cup to fall to the ground. She was a beauty with golden yellow eyes and dark purple hair, looking slightly surprised as she glanced down at the cup by her feet before asking him, "What are you doing?" Chen An looked at her with a look of disdain and said, "You're still so young, yet your memory is so bad. Have you forgotten how you tricked me?" She crossed her arms, smiled faintly, and asked, still angry. Then she stepped closer to him, slightly turned her back, saying, "If not." As she spoke, she turned away from him, her body slightly tilted, showcasing her alluring curves. She looked at him with a gentle expression and continued, "I'll let you slap me twice." Hearing that, he stepped back in fear, his mouth hanging open, his nostrils flaring wide like a pig's, his face flushed red. He shouted, Who are you really?" She looked at him with trembling eyes as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Angrily, her head felt like it was about to explode. Grinding her teeth, she said, "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" As she spoke, she thought to herself, "If it weren't for the organization valuing him and ordering me to do everything I can to pull them to our side, I wouldn't have to do something so shameful. It's driving me crazy." She regained her composure, though her face was still slightly flushed, and said, Actually, from the moment those thugs came to destroy the spicy hot pot shop, it was already a trap. Chenzai Lin just wanted to test you, but the scene of your fight with them was transmitted to the higher-ups of the Chen family. They're currently discussing plans to deal with you." Her expression grew serious as she warned him, "The head of the Chen family is terrifying. He'd even sacrifice his own son. This time they will use the power of the family to deal with you. You're in great danger, but you can cooperate with us. The Chen family's strength is not something one person can handle. We can help you." Hearing this, Chen An looked at her with concern and asked, "Have you done anything useful so far?" His question made her feel a little guilty, but she quickly explained, "I know you're dissatisfied, but please trust our sincerity. The Chen family will definitely come up with a reasonable plan. With one strike, they could kill you. All the forces of the Chen family are pulling back. They also have some extraordinary tactics, and now you've been completely exposed to them." Chen sighed upon hearing this and asked, "How do you want to cooperate?" At this moment, she finally breathed a sigh of relief, walked a bit, and replied, "It's very simple. Force the Chen family to act against you first." At this point, he was thinking to himself that it seemed the organization had been planning to deal with the Chen family for a long time, but there were certain reservations preventing them from taking action. Now that they wanted to use him as a weapon, he then said with a serious expression, "Fine, but I want something to prove your sincerity." She was delighted, and her tense expression gradually softened. She asked, "What do you want?" His face was now slightly cold, with a hint of killing intent. His eyes gleamed slightly as he said, "I want one of your people to decapitate the head of the Chen family." She was stunned, thinking to herself the organization's goal wasn't to reveal everyone's plans, but to use Chen An's power to eliminate the Chen family. As he seemed for the organization's plan, before she could finish her thoughts, she saw him leaving and hurriedly called out, "No, the organization cannot fulfill your request." At this, he waved his hand and said, "Then there's nothing more to discuss." The next day, in front of the bar from the night before, Chen An was carrying a bag as if he had just bought something. After standing there for a moment, he thought to himself, "What she said makes sense. If a powerful family like that is targeting me, I am indeed in great danger. It might be better to provoke them into taking action first." With this in mind, he took a red spray paint can out of the bag and drew a large line in front of the bar's entrance. Seeing this, several guards rushed over and loudly asked, "Who are you?" When the guard approached and saw the words on the door, he immediately became angry and shouted, "What does the word death written here mean?" The person next to him whispered and reminded the captain, "Captain, this word is a mistake." Hearing his subordinate, the captain became even angrier, shouting, not caring whether it was death or a mistake. Before he could finish his sentence, Chen interrupted him, speaking nonchalantly, "This door is annoying, tear it down." The captain, furious, gritted his teeth and said, "You have a lot of nerve. Wang Meng, chop him down for me." Hearing the captain's command, the subordinate, still chewing on his half-eaten sausage, jumped up and swung a metal pipe towards Chen An. Chen and Leslie raised a finger to block the blow. The subordinate, confused, didn't understand when it just happened and scratched his head, asking, "Where's my stick?" From a distance, another person rushed over, shouting loudly, "Captain, Captain." He ran up to the captain and whispered to him. It was Chen An, the expert who had killed young Master Chen. Only then did the captain panic and respond, "Ah, why didn't you say that earlier?" While the two were talking without paying attention, the subordinate, who was standing nearby, overheard their conversation. Hearing the exchange, his eyes lit up with excitement as he turned to Chen An and asked, "Huh? Are you the master? Did you really kill young Master Chen?" The two men froze, their faces turning pale, not knowing where this subordinate had gotten an axe from, making everyone around them step back in fear. Meanwhile, he happily said, "Do you want to keep this door? I'll do it, I'll do it." Hearing his subordinate speak nonsense, the captain shouted loudly, "Wang Meng, are you crazy?" Hearing that, the subordinate turned around and looked with eyes glowing bright red, then coldly replied to the captain, "Get out of the way." The captain, seeing this, was frightened and fell to the ground, trembling. Chen An stood on the side, hands in his pockets, silently thinking to himself that this was the pressure of authority, but not yet fully awakened. After smashing the door to pieces, he turned to the man with a blank but bright smile and asked, "Idol, is there anything else you want to do?" Chen An pointed his thumb at himself and asked the man, "Do you agree to follow me?" Wang Meng, excited, replied, I agree. I'll follow you from now on." Chen An waved his hand, "Follow me, next house." Wang Meng threw his security guard hat aside, deciding not to work anymore. Behind him was a door with a giant hole torn through it. Wang Meng followed Chen An and asked, "Boss, do you know why I want to follow you?" "Why?" Chen An asked. "Because I admire the strong. That second young Master Chen has done so many bad things, and I heard he even forced his sister to death in the shop. I've wanted to teach him a lesson for a long time, but I held back because they could trace it back to my family." Chen An asked, "But following you will be dangerous. After all, I've killed the young master of the Chen family. Aren't you afraid?" Wang Meng patted his chest and replied, "Not afraid." "You're so strong, and you dared to mess with the Chen family. You must have a powerful backing." Chen poured a bucket of cold water on Wang Meng's face. "Well, you can still regret it. I don't have any backing." Wang Meng admired his idol. "Boss, even if you don't have backing and still dare to mess with the Chen family, that means you're especially powerful. So following you is definitely not a mistake." Chen An chuckled lightly and then answered the phone. The voice on the other end said, "Is this Chen An? I'm the class monitor. Ha. We're having a class reunion today, and everyone's hoping you can come. You're not busy, are you? I've heard that you don't have anything to do now." Chen An responded disinterestedly, "I'm not going," and hung up the phone. He turned on his device and saw messages from Zhu Yang and his group of university friends from the Department of Social Work. He was puzzled about Zhu Yang. Chen opened the voice memo. The voice of his friend spoke, "This class reunion is being organized by Zhang Wei. That guy seems to have a lot of connections now, looking rich and powerful. I can't afford to offend him. Plus, I heard Lu Jing is with him too. Wasn't that kid on bad terms with you back in the day? He came to me saying he wants to make up with you. I can't afford to offend him either. So we're meeting in the VIP room at Dahuang Hotel. Can you come?" Chen An clenched his fist. Lu Jing was with Zhang Wei. He remembered the day when Zhang Wei had pushed Lu Jing against the wall, teasing her, and then kissed her, saying, "Why are you crying? If you cry more, I'll touch you." At that time, Chen An had stepped in to stop it, saying, "Apologize to her or you'll embarrass yourself." Zhang Wei had gotten angry. "What? Who do you think you are?" Zhang Wei's grandfather had walked over. "Chen An, what do you want to do? Are you going to hit a classmate?" Chen An retorted, "He's harassing Liu Jing." Zhang Wei quickly called out, "Grandpa, save me." Zhang Wei's grandfather had asked, "You're harassing her?" Liu Jing stammered, "Well, no." Chen An was furious. Who was responsible for my expulsion back then? Liu Jing didn't know, yet she still got back together with Zhang Wei. Now they were holding a party, clearly trying to humiliate me. Huff. Well, let's see. Wang Meng asked the boss, "Do you want to attend the class reunion?" The Dahuang Hotel was also part of the Chen family's assets. Chen An replied, "Then the next one is at the Dahuang Hotel." Chen An commanded, "You wait outside for me." Wang Mang raised his hand. "Okay, boss." He entered the hotel and saw a group of people gathered. Zhu Yang was about to greet them. Chen An Changwai patted his shoulder. "Don't call in yet." The staff blocked the way, apologizing. "This is the VIP floor. Only senior members are allowed." Jiang Wei joked, "Looks like Chen An can't get in. Should I go help him?" The staff member suddenly bowed 90 degrees. "Mr. Shen, please come in." Jiang Wei gaped. "What?" The brown-haired man ran out and asked, "Manager Zhu, isn't this place for members only? Can't non-members enter?" Manager Zhu hesitated. "Ah, well, this is because." Chen An shot him a glare, and Manager Zhu quickly covered his mouth. The brown-haired man mocked. "Oh, so now Chen An is also a VIP at the Dahuang Hotel. Where did you find that membership card? You must have picked it up off the ground." Chen An retorted, "Who are you?" The brown-haired man, offended, snapped, "You?" Lu Jing stepped forward. "Chen An, long time no see. You're still as temperamental as ever." Chen An sarcastically said, "Right, so you and Jiang Wei are doing well now? Not bad. Seems like you two were made for each other." Jiang Wei grunted in annoyance while Lu Jing's face darkened. A female staff member asked, "Manager Zhu, isn't this person not a member?" Manager Zhu quickly replied, "Didn't you see the company's announcement? He's the one who smashed the technician from Cheng." At the banquet, Jiang Wei spoke up, "I'm treating today. Feel free to order whatever you like." Everyone looked at the menu and could only exclaim, "Wow, dishes over 1,000 coins." Chen An snatched the menu. "Not ordering anything?" "Since you're looking at the menu, then I'll order. 1 lobster per person, then we'll get some caviar, abalone, and also a little of the most expensive dishes you ordered." Jiang Wei gritted his teeth. "Good, very good. Looks like Chen An is living quite well, knows how to order fine food." Chen An replied, "Can't compare to young Master Zhang. Normally I can't afford these things, but since you're treating today, it would be a shame not to order the best." He mockingly glanced at Jiang Wei's expression. "Don't tell me you can't afford it. If that's the case, maybe I should just leave." At the street food stall, Jiang Wei hurriedly regained his composure. "How could that be? It's just a little money. You guys enjoy yourselves." But then he rested his chin in his hand and said, "I remember when we were in school, your skills were quite good. I've recently started boxing too. How about we spar a little? Don't tell me you're afraid." Lu Jing grabbed Jiang Wei's arm. "Don't, we're all classmates." Zhu Yang added, "That's right, you guys rarely gather together, and when you fight, it breaks the bond of friendship." The brown-haired guy said, "Young Master Wei didn't really beat Chen into a pulp. So what are you all afraid of?" Chen An replied, "Young Master Wei wouldn't go that far. If it's just because of a few dishes, it's fine. If not, you and your dog can come at me together. Right? What's your name again?" The brown-haired guy was furious. "Chen An, you're really asking for trouble." Jiang Wei stopped the guy. It seemed Chen An was pretty confident. "Let's see how this goes." He took off his suit jacket, showing off his bulging muscles, and everyone started murmuring. Jiang Wei had definitely gotten stronger thanks to his training. Chen arrived, and Jiang Wei rushed at him. "Take a punch from me." Chen An tilted his head to dodge the blow and then landed a punch straight to Jiang Wei's face. Jiang Wei held his face, groaning. Chen An pretended to be innocent. "Young Master Wei, what are you doing? Using your face to hit my fist?" Jiang Wei charged again. Chen easily dodged and landed another punch. Jiang Wei's nose started bleeding, and Chen An once again acted all innocent. "Hey, why are you lying there playing the victim? I don't even have money to pay for your medicine." Everyone murmured, "What's Jiang Wei doing? Is this suicidal? Iron destruction technique?" Jiang Wei wiped his nosebleed and thought to himself, "This brat's strength is far beyond mine. I'm really losing face today." Chen An shrugged. "Looks like I won't be having lunch today. In that case, I'll leave now to avoid young Master Wei going to find his grandfather later." Wang Mang suddenly called, announcing, "Boss, you need to run." Chenzai Liang arrived. Chen An activated his power and looked outside. Wang Mang had been beaten badly. "Are you relying on the car?" Wang Mang, with a battered face, tried to make a call to inform him. A stream of red energy suddenly appeared, blocking Chen An's power. Chenzai Liang showed up, and Jiang Wei asked, "Who the hell are you?" He thought to himself, this is just the right chance to regain some face. Chenzai Liang clicked his tongue. "Get lost." Jiang Wei, enraged, spat out, "Damn it." Chenzai Liang kicked Jiang Wei without hesitation. Jiang Wei was sent flying, crashing against the wall, knocked unconscious. Everyone was worried, thinking he had pissed off young Master Wei. Chen An thought to himself, how did Chenzai Liang's strength increase so much? He noticed Chenzai Liang's red eyes his pupils. Chenzai Liang said, "Chen An, you ruined my military career and killed my younger brother, so now you can join him." He reached out to grab Chen An. "Quick, dodge." Chen An swung his arm to counterattack, but Chenzai lying disappeared. He was taken aback. What? Chenzai lying appeared behind Chen An, and he raised his hand to block the strike. Chen An was forced back. His speed and strength had increased several times. What was going on? Looking at him, it seemed like he had used some kind of drug. Chenzai lying smiled clearly. This was just the beginning. He unleashed his power, die. Chen An thought to himself, these Chen family people watch Dragon Ball for 180 minutes and then transform with just a little movement. The future spoke. What are you afraid of? Just go for it. Chen Zai Liang charged forward, go die. He took the full brunt of Chen Zai Liang's punch, and in turn, Chen Zai Liang did too. Chen An touched his face. You selling your house, bro? That really hurts. The future crossed his arms and said, don't you see? There's not a single bruise on me. Look at that kid. He's in worse shape than you. See that? Chen Zai Liang spat blood. The future continued. Although his speed and strength had increased, his body's defense wasn't very stable. They both charged straight at each other. Chen An kicked hard into Chen Zai Liang's side, sending him flying. Before Chen Zai Liang could even get his bearings, Chen An moved in. Chen Zai Liang schemed, quickly grabbing Lu Jing, threatening, Chen An, I admit you're strong, but these are your friends. If you mess around, I'll kill her. Lu Jing, terrified, shouted, Chen An, save me. Chen An, calm as ever, replied, we don't know each other. If you want to kill her, go ahead, or let me do it for you. Lu Jing was furious. Chen Zai Liang was stunned. Chen An threw a knife, hitting Chen Zai Liang's hand. He screamed, ah! Lu Jing quickly broke free and rushed to hug Chen An. Chen An pushed her away, dodging. Zhu Yang, take the others and go. Zhu Yang helped Zhang Wei up. Let's go. Lu Jing's face was full of question marks. Chen Zai Liang sat in a corner, remembering what his father had said. Zai Liang, your younger brother is dead. Chen An is the one who killed him, and he's been messing up our family's business too. There are too few experts in our family. I want you to go deal with Chen An. Chen Zai Liang was surprised. You are no match for him. His father gave him a box of medicine. It's a newly developed formula that can significantly boost his strength. All you need to do is injure him, and I have a way to kill Chen An. I have also arranged for reinforcements to assist you. Although this medicine has certain side effects, once successful, I can give you the majority of the Chen family's business. Chen Zai Liang took the box of medicine. Yes, I will deal with him. Back in the present, Chen Zai Liang looked at the box of medicine in his hand, emptied it into his mouth, and then writhed in pain. Chen An gasped. He seemed to be changing. Chen Zai Liang stood up, his eyes turning red. Kill. Chen Zai Liang disappeared in an instant, moving with incredible speed. Chen An was stunned. What he had sensed but couldn't avoid was that Chen Zai Liang's punch hit him squarely. Chen An clenched his fists and counterattacked. Damn it. Another punch struck him in the back. Chen Zai Liang swiftly moved forward and kicked Chen An into the air. Chen An emitted a wave of energy. His speed was too fast. He couldn't just predict his movements, but even his sensory abilities couldn't lock onto him. He hurriedly called out, Future, hurry up and think of something. I'm about to be beaten to death. Where is he? Chen An summoned his sword. Chech, looks like I have to rely on myself again. He raised his sword, ready for the fight. In a combat stance, Chen An gripped his sword, and a golden aura radiated around his body. The life formed graceful curves enveloping him, with a scene around him that was shrouded in mystery. He, with bloodshot eyes, furrowed his brow, his mouth wide open as he shouted, Kill! He looked furious and mad. He launched a powerful attack, and he was immediately knocked back by the blow. The man then smiled, a slight smile, one that concealed something unpredictable. He silently thought, his eyes flashing with a mix of confidence and calculation. Immediately, the man was taken aback, his eyes widening, his whole body pausing for a moment. Suddenly, he screamed in pain, the scream echoing, ripping apart the stillness of the space. Yellow streaks of light, like fiery sparks, viciously attacked his body, burrowing deep into his flesh, each streak leaving behind bleeding wounds, making his whole body feel as if it were being burned from within. His eyes began to turn bloodshot, veins clearly visible, his eyes wide open with hatred and madness, staring at him without looking away. Suddenly, he clasped his hands together in a decisive and powerful motion, then thrust them straight toward his chest. A strange energy emanated from his body, causing the surrounding air to grow tense and suffocating. His gaze was sharp and tensely focused, as though preparing for a mysterious and powerful action. He uttered, Kill! His hand shot forward with terrifying force, shattering the invisible barrier in front of him, as though it were nothing more than a thin mist. He stood frozen, a little stunned, unable to believe his own eyes. Before he could react, an overwhelming force from his strike slammed into him, sending his body crashing into the bar. Chen An fell to the ground, pain spreading throughout his body. The sword he held in his hand had snapped under the tremendous force. Yan, watching him with clenched teeth, thought to himself, I'm only at the peak of the second level, and this guy has already reached the third. How am I supposed to fight now? Damn, after all this, it's turned into this situation. Chen An in the future gaped, somewhat stunned. You're still standing here like that? I'm about to get killed. What should I do now? As he was on the verge of meeting his ancestors, a future Chen An spoke calmly. Think of a way to knock him out. Make sure he has no strength to retaliate. Upon hearing that, he yelled angrily, Stop talking nonsense or I'll sing you to sleep. Future Chen An pointed at his face with his hand, his expression a little amused. Haha, but this method is not guaranteed. My singing is terrible. First, go destroy the camera. I fear the Chen family might be watching you. As soon as he heard this, he immediately ran over, using small stones and throwing them at the camera with all his might. Each stone flew like a rocket, when suddenly, the man unexpectedly stepped forward from behind. The silence was broken by the heavy sound of his footsteps. His eyes blazed with fury, as if he wanted to incinerate everything in his path, and he grabbed Chen An by the shirt. Realizing the danger, Chen An knew something was wrong. The man hurled him violently into the wall, his body shot forward like an arrow. The force of the throw so powerful that the air around him seemed to tear apart. At the same time, in another place, Chen Longhai was sitting in front of thousands of small screens, flickering light enveloping the entire room. He sighed and said, Chen An is seriously injured. The effect of the medicine won't last long. Bring Chenzai back or he will really go mad. Chen Longhai continued, Huan Yu, this matter is your responsibility. You must eliminate this kid, but try your best not to use that thing. Yes, master, Huan Yu replied. He stood up, hands clasped behind his back, looking down at the group of people below, saying, Follow me, kill. At that moment, at Chen An's location, he hesitated, looking at the dust in front of him. He muttered, outright, all the cameras have been dealt with. Chen An smiled, blood trickling down his chin. Though he was about to die, he remained defiant. He looked away and said, They're coming, get ready. Suddenly, a voice spoke up, already prepared. You should quietly stop this person. Poisonous Snake turned towards the voice. His eyes turned bloodshot as he looked around, not knowing where the voice had come from. Suddenly, Poisonous Snake moved behind him, holding a knife, staring at him as if he were about to devour him whole. Seeing this, Chen angrily shouted, Damn it, wasn't it you who wanted to use a flying dagger to assassinate me last time? Then he turned his head and looked into the empty space, saying, Damn, this person is one of yours. When will that woman leave? Had I known earlier, I would have broken your neck. His body trembled, 3 parts helpless, 7 parts like a woman. He began to rush toward Poisonous Snake to attack, but Poisonous Snake had already reacted in time and swiftly jumped high. Chen An saw this and wondered, Chen Ziliang's speed is getting faster. He began to ponder, his gaze decisive, blaming himself for calling him a poisonous snake since he had originally used poison techniques. The future Chen An, seeing him speak like this, looked at him with an expression of annoyance and said, Is it really necessary? Just now, you went to the 3rd rank, but it wasn't even exposed. The blood spitting must have been intentional. He looked at future Chen An, then smiled brightly and asked, how's my acting? Future Chen An crossed his arms in front of his chest, his mouth slightly curling up. What? Compared to me back then, it's not much different. On the rooftop of a building, a voice rose up. He had an assistant who was holding binoculars, looking and speaking. We need to take the young master away quickly, but first, inform the family head. Suddenly, something with great force flew straight toward its face, causing MC to immediately turn red, his head instinctively tilting to the side. Immediately, he reacted, looking toward where the object had come from, staring intently, but seeing no one. He muttered in surprise, People from Enzu, are you trying to oppose the Chen family? He frowned, still looking in that direction, and a voice spoke, Huff, I'm not one of Enzu's people. Another object, thrown with strong force, flew straight to the other cheek. The person continued, Besides, what the hell is the Chen family? Wang Mang raised one hand to his cheek, while the other held a knife, continuously waving it back and forth. In his mind, he silently thought, This is bad. Young Master Chen is done for. Why did Enzu suddenly strike like this? Suddenly, his gaze dropped down, his face showing a bit of joy as he touched his flushed cheek. It's here, he thought. Below, there was a group of strange individuals, all wearing black uniforms that covered their faces, leaving only their eyes visible, filled with mystery. A group of black-clad masters wearing masks had gathered in the grand hall, where the luxurious furnishings were clearly visible, all surrounded by the golden color of wealth. An assassination was taking place right on the rooftop of the building. The leader, a man with gray hair and a black beard on his chin, heard the screams. This is bad, and Zu has struck. Quickly go rescue Zai Lin. Poisonous Snake, holding a knife, looked with fierce eyes, ready to strike the opponent immediately. The group of black-clad masters stood in formation, waiting to receive their assigned tasks. Just behind, a voice suddenly sounded. It was Han Feng. Without hesitation, he gave an order. Who told you to go? A red light flashed, blinding them, and one of them asked, Who is it? Han Feng, probably fearing that their full-body coverage would still keep them cold, conjured flames to provide warmth. He arrogantly replied, It's your grandfather. To prove his skill, Han Feng made his move, launching a fierce flame toward them, leaving everything to the side. Two beautiful girls managed to block Han Feng's power in an instant, causing him to feel a bit bewildered. What? Ice element? Both girls were not only talented, but their beauty was also far from ordinary, with undulating curves that were irresistibly captivating. The blonde girl said, With your cat's paw skills, you dare to stop us. The two girls joined forces and counterattacked, standing close together and holding hands as if they were dancing. Unwilling to back down, Han Feng continued to fight back, his expression no longer as natural as before, now replaced by a scowl. Neither side gave in, exchanging blows, relentlessly striking each other. Chen An entered from somewhere, standing still as if watching a play. This crazy guy still thought of himself as invincible, only to meet his match in a master of the ice element. He ran to a corner, looking back at Poisonous Snake, who was holding a knife. His opponent was shirtless, screaming wildly. Chen had reminded himself that this man, Tan Du, was a bit unusual, and that he would have to be more cautious in the future. A group of skilled fighters in black rushed out from the hall, following the orders of their master. Chen An showed no fear, prepared to face them, his eyes shining with confidence and his expression one of challenge. My turn to play with you all. The gray-haired leader, along with his subordinates in the building nearby, waited to see how things would unfold. This little guy's relationship with Zu had progressed to this point, just as Chen Longhai had predicted. There was something to it. He was eager to see Chen An's strength, but taking on 10 second-grade masters by himself seemed somewhat forced. He was curious to see what his true abilities were. Bai Wai, who was standing next to him, felt a bit anxious and had many questions in her heart, but she dared not express them outwardly. She asked, Chen An, what exactly is your relationship with Zu? The scene shifts to another location, where a blonde man is being beaten, his face bruised and battered. He sits on the ground in panic, only able to utter one word, you. The voice from his opponent sounds, You're distracted while fighting. If you don't die, then who will? He barely manages to stand before stumbling, swaying, and falling to the ground. The image reveals a girl with long purple hair staring at her hand. It is none other than Nu Lin Shuo. Chen An grasped a sword, ready to engage in a decisive battle with them. Come at me then. These people are unreasonable, refusing to admit it, and stubbornly asking more. The one with the gray hair and beard, Chen An, you really have ties with Zu. In the end, you even gave a piece of advice. And Zu is no good. You should turn back quickly. Doubting life itself, he retorted fiercely. No good. You've listed a whole bunch of their wicked deeds. Chenzai uses forbidden drugs, and when he goes out of control, starts killing people. How will your Chen family explain yourselves? Seeing he couldn't soften his stance, the bearded, gray-haired man spoke with menace, clearly threatening. If that's the case, you should be eliminated as well. The sword was already in his hand, waiting for them to make the first move so he could fight to the death. There were many of them, so they split up to attack one by one. The first to be mentioned was the blonde-haired one, who was circulating his energy to unleash his full power. As he rose, the wind swirled into a tornado, rushing toward him like a storm. He resisted with all of his might, but it was still somewhat difficult. His face scrunched up as he gritted his teeth and pushed back. Another opponent was releasing an even greater power than before. Looking into his eyes, it was clear how determined he was to win. The force multiplied fivefold. Chen unleashed his ultimate punch, combining two sources of energy, one red and one yellow, which collided and blasted out in opposite directions. The second-rank expert was in total shock, unsure whether to feel happy or sad. What? His power has increased again. The more they fought, the stronger he became. His entire body was enveloped in a golden light. But the female expert with red eyes seemed to have noticed something. She said, Trapland. Immediately, the ground beneath his feet cracked apart. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and leaped high, narrowly avoiding her attack. How foolish. He forgot about gravity, and despite his flustered state, it was too late. In danger, just when he had barely managed to pull off a cool move moments ago, he now fell straight to the ground. Ah, where's my image? The earth and rocks piled on his head. How embarrassing, forgetting something so simple. Bai Wai panicked and shouted his name. Chen An. The more frantic she became, the calmer the man beside her was. He spoke calmly, "Let's just watch and see." Confused and doubtful, she could only stay silent and continue watching the battle unfold. Far away, because of the heavy damage caused by the ongoing battle, a man dressed in black surveyed the situation and guessed, "It seems he's dead." Next to him was a woman dressed in a full black suit, who, in agreement, said, "This guy is very strong. It's a pity he's fighting against us." Seeing that everything seemed to be resolved, the middle-aged man turned and began to leave, his gaze resolute as he said to the other two, "Let's go, we need to help the young master." Upon hearing this, the two of them followed. Suddenly, a man in a gray cloak, holding a purple glowing saber, rushed forward, his face contorted as he thought to himself, "This isn't good." Looking at the wreckage, he muttered, "Where is it? There's no more aura fluctuation." The red-haired man was irritated, and around him were fiery streaks as brilliant as his hair. That kid was really not worth his attention. Just like that, he had already gone to tour the underworld. He released a wave of intimidating fire. Everyone around screamed and quickly backed away. Beneath the layers of earth and stone, deep within Chen An's consciousness, he was thinking. Guarding the spirit, the mind is unaffected by external things. Chen An himself was a sharp weapon. His body was floating freely. He thought seriously, electric radiance, lone dragon. His body emitted a green light as if he was unlocking something, harnessing his power, drawing out the weapon in his hand like a flash of lightning. The sword in his hand shone with a beam of light like. A figure dressed in all black, walking along, heard a clattering sound from beneath the ground and immediately turned around. Huff! His face turned pale when he saw the light coming from under the ground, and he instinctively muttered, "Huh," as if he couldn't believe his eyes. A whirlwind rose from beneath the ground, blasting the man away. He wasn't prepared, only managing to shout, "Ah!" His companions, upon seeing this, were equally shocked, all of them turning around in unison to see what was happening. The male lead leaped up from below, smiling brightly without needing any encouragement. His eyes flashed with two bolts of lightning, landing smoothly on the ground with cool confidence, and said to everyone, "I have returned from hell." Bai Wu was stunned, her mouth agape in surprise. The man beside her was also taken aback, though his reaction was less obvious, only letting out a soft, "Oh!" The girl with purple hair and the others who were running also turned back with surprised expressions. The man in the gray shirt cautiously asked, "Do we need to help him anymore?" The girl with purple hair, hearing this, showed a bit of disdain, not wanting to pay any more attention to the matter, and turned to leave. "Forget it. Let him handle it himself." A mocking voice continued, "Let him deal with the elite fighters of the Chen family while we go take care of Chen Longhai. Wind." After the shout, a whirlwind began to swirl violently. Chen An still wore his original smile, confidently asking, "Do you think you know how to call the wind?" With that, Chen An's sword cut through the storm, thrusting straight toward the throat of the man in black. He stood there in shock, frozen as if stuck in glue. The whirlwind now crackled with sharp purple lightning. The man was knocked back, only managing to utter a startled "A" like his previous companion. Before he could even hit the ground, another man charged forward, fiercely rushing in, increasing his strength fivefold. But it was all for show, as before he could land a single hit, he was sent flying back, his body contorted. The people around them were stunned and exclaimed, "What?" The man with the small beard under his chin saw what happened, and without a second thought shouted, "Everyone charge! Orders from above." The remaining men in black rushed forward without hesitation. Each of them unleashed their attacks simultaneously. Trapped land, icebind, binding spells. But our male protagonist wasn't afraid. Instead, he grew even more excited, laughing loudly. "Ha ha! Come on." At the Chen family villa, the scene was peaceful, but the screams coming from there revealed that it was far from calm. "Kill them all!" "Ah, please don't." In the middle of the main hall, the girl with purple hair, the red-haired older brother, and the man in the gray coat stood right in the center, interrogating the remaining survivors. The others had already been killed and piled up around them. The captives trembled, begging for their lives. "Please don't kill me, I will leave." Some even betrayed the Chen family to save their own lives, pleading for mercy. "Please don't kill me, I'll tell you all the crimes of the Chen family." The purple-haired girl waved her hand, signaling them to leave. As soon as they had the chance, they fled with all their might, thinking they had escaped death, only to be met at the door by an old man with snowy white hair, who swiftly executed them all. While wiping the blood-stained blade of his sword, the old man spoke with a tone of disdain. "A bunch of useless meat, not worthy of life." The mysterious man's hands lightly brushed the hilt of his sword. "I've carried this old bonehead for a long time without a chance to use it. Since the day the world changed, I've been hiding." He then raised the blade in a solemn manner, his face furrowed in a serious expression. "I've been waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the Chen family, and I thought that person was Chen An. He slowly took a few steps forward, his killing intent rising, forming a dense aura of dark purple mist incredibly eerie and ominous. Unfortunately, it seems that you and Zu have arrived here at this moment. In that case, shall I kill you first and then kill him afterward? The beautiful woman with purple hair gradually became terrified, her face changing color as she recoiled, her eyes wide open in horror. No, he is third rank. The middle-aged man swung a sharp sword in front of him, his green eyes flashing with an unusually fierce gleam. A row of towering buildings appeared, and Chen An rested the massive black sword on his shoulder. The assassins, who he had been overpowering, were struggling on the ground, kneeling, drenched in sweat, looking completely defeated. They cried out in terror. Monster, he's a monster. The scene was so chaotic that no one noticed a mysterious figure loading a gun with a strange green aura. The woman spoke slowly, assessing the situation. It seemed that the spear formed from the monstrous tree was discovered at the Jiaote estate some time ago. It appeared the Chen family had approached and studied it. The middle-aged man stroked his chin, hard to read. If that's the case, he was eager to see what other trump cards the Chen family had. Nearby, a man sneakily fired a gun at him, but all he saw was Chen, and swinging his sword upward, easily slicing the small golden bullet in half as it flew toward him. A victorious smile appeared on his lips. The assassin at this moment had started to falter, sweat pouring down his face, but there was no turning back now. He could only fire continuously at him. The bullets flew like mosquitoes, and all he needed to do was swing his sword a few times to avoid them. He collapsed to the ground, terrified beyond measure. He shrank back, shielding his face with his hands. Please don't. Without hesitation, he slashed through the gun. With a smooth, decisive swing of his sword, he cut through it effortlessly. He said triumphantly, "Don't blame me, my swordsmanship has improved." On the other side, feeling cornered, the assassin pulled out a small paper packet from his coat pocket. "Chen An, you forced my hand." He swung his arm, scattering a cloud of white powder toward him, shouting, "Die!" Chen An quickly formed a shimmering green shield around himself. He was taken aback by the assassin's sudden action. What is that? The powder inadvertently hit the bodies of several other assassins. It emitted a strange purple hue. Ah, this is bad. The moment the powder touched their skin, it seemed to trigger something in them. Their faces turned ghostly pale, and their muscles tightened uncontrollably. Some of them were struck dead the moment the powder hit their wounds, but then, as if revived, their bodies became disfigured and sluggish like zombies. The scene before Chen An caused him to panic. "Virus, it's a virus, damn you, Chen Hai Long." The voice of the mysterious figure echoed in his mind. Chen An quickly tried to stop them. When they are infected with the virus, it will permeate their bodies, causing their blood to become contagious. Once infected, it passes through the flesh, and then their blood will spread the infection. Every day, they draw closer, and you take a breath. Mysterious energies surround you, as if you're preparing to strike. A voice screamed, "By that time, the entire yin chain will turn into hell. How long do you still want to watch this?" The middle-aged man standing beside them spoke. "These creatures carry the virus. If we don't stop them, the entire yin chain will be in danger." The fiery-haired girl with green hair jumped down from a high-rise building. They're mobilizing a large force for the safety of the world. You're right. If we don't stop them, this is no longer a personal grudge between him and the Chen family. By using the virus, the Chen family and humanity will become enemies. They surrounded the man, with the sky turning pitch black. The air became gloomy and hidden in the darkness. A group of zombies staggered towards the humans. Bai Wu quickly rushed forward, blocking the group and loudly warning, "Be careful not to get hurt." The virus spreads quickly. A zombie suddenly lunged forward as if it had lost control, attacking Bai Wu. She quickly blocked it. With just one strike, Bai Wu sent the unfortunate zombie flying. She rushed to the zombie, grabbing its neck. Immediately, Bai Wu slammed it down onto the ground. Her strength was so immense that the earth cracked beneath her. Witnessing her power, a few despicable men commented. Some mocked her for being too violent, while others lecherously remarked, "That's strange. I think I like her." Humans and zombies gradually entered into a tense battle, the scene chaotic as humans fought zombies. Suddenly, it was unclear who was the unlucky one to catch the attention of the zombie, which lightly bit them, causing that person to scream loudly. The bite infected them with the virus, their body convulsed, purple veins spreading across their face, eyes rolling back. Despite this, they still didn't forget to curse at the zombie. Those watching saw the person slowly collapse, and a blonde girl nearby screamed in fear. Not good, he's probably infected. At that moment, Chen An shot forward like lightning, leaving behind a trail of green light flashing from his sword, quickly sending the unfortunate soul to meet their ancestors for the second time. He raised his voice and reminded, "Everyone stay alert. His blood will spread the virus through the wound, and at that point, he'll turn into a walking piece of meat." Following Chen An's warning, those with spirit power heightened their vigilance. On Bai Wei's side, she was valiantly sweeping through the zombies with just a few lightning-fast kicks. The zombies she kicked fell in a heap, their mouths hanging open. While everyone was fighting, a pair of polished leather shoes appeared. Su Dongwan suddenly entered the scene, analyzing seriously. Attacks that don't kill them might lead to more experts being infected. He then concluded, the situation isn't looking good. Upon hearing Su Dongwan's words, Chen An suddenly had an epiphany. That's right, I almost forgot. Don't I have it? A small orange glow gathered at the tips of Chen An's index and middle fingers, and the name of the technique flashed in his mind. Wanuan Mountain Fire of Chi *. With the Wanuan Mountain Fire of Chi, the group of zombies were consumed by the great flames and turned to ashes. Watching this scene, Chen An couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. A group of zombies had been burned to death by a single spark, and all that could be seen was a large blaze. The people around them were astonished and murmured in surprise. One person spoke up, this kid can control fire? Is he even more powerful than Enzu's people? Others were puzzled and asked, what other abilities is he hiding? Bai Wei's clothes were singed by Chen An's fire, causing her to move closer to him, her tone of voice tinged with reproach. Do you want to burn me alive? Despite being scolded, Chen An felt no guilt whatsoever. On the contrary, he gave her a defiant look and responded, who told you to stand around and watch? You didn't bother to help for a long time, and I'm not angry with you. Burning your clothes is a small price for me. In her entire life, Bai Wei had never encountered anyone as thick-skinned as Chen An. She was left speechless for a moment and could only angrily exclaim, Chen An you. Half an hour later, Chen An and Bai Wei were still standing there, watching the fire. Suddenly, Chen An began to walk away, prompting Bai Wei to call out, where are you going? Without turning his head, Chen An walked towards a brightly lit building and explained to her, I'm going to see if the old man of the Chen family is dead yet. I want to step on his 2 legs. He then instructed her, I'll leave this place to you. Entrusted with this unexpected responsibility, Bai Wei felt somewhat embarrassed. Her face turned slightly red as she frowned, thinking to herself, you're still worried about that, and Zhu Gai argue. A group of people saw Chen An leave and immediately started following him, calling out to each other, Koboko, hurry up, this guy is definitely heading to the Shen family. At the Chen family's estate, the once beautiful manor with its lush trees and vibrant garden now looked desolate, the atmosphere thick with death. On the broken stairs, a man wearing a cap and a young man with pink hair were both collapsed, struggling to breathe, clearly injured. A beautiful girl with purple hair was also gasping for air, appearing to be in worse condition than the other two. A white-haired man in a suit stood in front of her, its expression one of triumph. His right hand raised a sword, poised to strike while he sneered, saying, Enzu's strength is nothing but a facade. Remember to train properly in your next life. A bright purple light shot toward the purple-haired girl as though it were coming for her life. The purple-haired girl had already given up, accepting that she would die here, yet she couldn't help but wonder, is this the end? A tear, as clear as a pearl, ran down her cheek as she closed her eyes. Inside, a surge of anger rose, and she thought, I'm unwilling. I've been waiting for death, yet it never comes. She wondered, why does it not hurt? The question slipped from her lips. Am I dead? She opened her eyes, asking, or is this a dream? The purple-haired girl knelt waiting for death, but instead, the figure of Chen An appeared in front of her. Despite the tense situation, he couldn't resist teasing her. Pinch your cheek and see if you're dreaming. At that moment, Chen An stood in front of Mu Lin Shuo. The other man spoke, you can face my swords head on. You really don't disappoint me. He sneered and continued, it was not a waste of time for me to wait for you for so long. Chen An, hearing this, pretended to be surprised and replied, Ha, you know me? Then with a teasing tone, he added, is it like how my mother understands me? He laughed loudly with satisfaction and said, Ha ha, I have a lot of information about you. From when you were young to now, I know everything from when you were a kid to the top-tier third-rank strong man. Everyone was surprised, and a man with a hat standing behind asked in astonishment, you really reached the 3rd rank? Beside him, Mu Lin Shuo Ko was also speechless with amazement. The group that had been fighting outside the door also stuck their heads in to listen, exclaiming, did I hear that right? Chen Longhai said solemnly, it's the 3rd rank, no wonder you're so powerful. They started to discuss among themselves in excitement. Seeing this, Chen simply smiled and said, you really know quite a lot, huh? Suddenly, the man drew his sword and said, Chen An, I really admire you. He twirled his sword and continued, your growth makes me uneasy. But then he jumped up and charged straight at Chen An, shouting the final part of his sentence as he did. At that moment, Chen An's expression turned cold as he smiled a bloodthirsty smile and said, but in life, the more you know, the faster you die. With that, He drew his own sword and blocked the man's attack. Looking at him with disdain, he said, "You rely on strength, but to me, you're just trash." The man's sword trembled continuously. Finishing his words, Chen An pushed him back, leaped into the air, and with lightning speed, 2 sword strikes came down. At the same time, he also said, "You're just scum who forces his son to use forbidden drugs. You deserve to die." Before the strike could land, the man, caught off guard, had no time to react and could only use his bare hands to block. The moment the sword struck the flesh, he revealed a layer of metal armor beneath his skin. Chen was slightly surprised and asked, "Huh?" Locked by the strike, it had no effect. He unleashed a series of rapid slashes toward his opponent, shouting, "Hey!" Before the man could recover, a flurry of cuts was already heading toward him, causing him to panic and exclaim, "What?" As Chen An's strikes landed, the man was sent flying toward the wall, his eyes rolling into the whites as his mouth hung open in shock, unable to defend himself. He looked at the wall he was about to crash into and gritted his teeth, muttering, "Damn it, the attack is too strong." Just as he finished speaking, he slammed into the thick wall, and though he appeared unscathed, he quickly stood up and tried to escape, saying, "You think you can run?" With that, Chen An hurled his sword at him. The sword soared swiftly and stabbed into the ground right in front of the man. Surprised and frightened, the man stammered, "Chen An, you're saying this here." Suddenly, he realized something. Grabbing Chen An's sword, he smugly remarked as if he had turned the tide of battle, "You no longer have a weapon." Ha ha. Without warning, his wrist was seized. Chen An appeared from behind, laughing as he said, "Did no one tell you? My sword can't be wielded by just anyone." With those words, the man's arm was twisted, and with a loud snap, his wrist was broken, making him scream in pain. His body slumped, his knees buckling as he struggled to hold up his upper body. He trembled and said, "Chen An." Then, through gritted teeth, he endured the agony and raised a red pill to his mouth. He swallowed it without hesitation. Chen Longhai's body was enhanced with power, and around him, streams of red spiritual energy radiated. Chen An, upon witnessing this, was astonished and wondered to himself. His arm had healed. At that moment, he seemed to have been resurrected. His eyes changed from white to black, and the black part turned red, sparking with electrical energy. His whole body emitted smoke, looking no different from a demon. He said, "I didn't intend to use this, but you forced me." With that, he dashed toward Chen and at the speed of light, disappearing in an instant. The people standing outside the door watching the scene remarked, "This is bad. Mr. Chen has taken the drug. If he goes berserk, we're no match for him." Chen An stopped them. Meanwhile, Chen Longhai rushed toward Chen An, his hand directed at him with killing intent. Chen An sneered dismissively, as though the situation before him was nothing significant. He said, "Your power is nothing more than this." With that, he grabbed his neck, startling him. Before he could react, Chen An slammed him hard into the ground, leaving him wide-eyed, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The floor beneath him cracked open. Chen An looked down coldly, as if staring at a dog, and said, "You turned yourself into a sick man with that drug, a wasted life. Die." As he spoke, he lifted his foot and stomped down on him. A loud crash echoed across the scene as dust and smoke slowly dispersed. At this moment, Chen An slipped his hands into his pockets, looking down at the floor. Chen Longhai was completely outmatched with no chance to resist. A large hole was punched into the ground, with Chen Longhai lying within it. The people around were both shocked and in awe. He's too powerful. Is he even human anymore? Then from outside the door, a man wearing glasses and a gray-blue shirt with an extremely eye-catching blue tie entered. He walked in with a friendly demeanor and said, "Chen An, I am Su Tianming from Zicheng Pharmaceuticals. Nice to meet you." Upon hearing this, those around seemed to realize something, their mouths agape as they quickly began calculating in their heads. "That's right, we need to act fast. If we build a relationship with him, who would dare touch us in the future?" Chen An turned toward him, looked him over, and said, "Oh, is it that fun?" Hearing this, the man stammered, I didn't get to explain when suddenly a figure appeared from behind and spoke up. "Mr. Chen." A man with red hair entered, smiling warmly as he said, "I am the father of Suo Wuxai, Sudong Wang." At this point, Chen An relaxed his facial muscles and smiled back at Sudong Wang. "Hello, Uncle Su, I'm acquainted with Suo Wuxai." He then walked closer to him and continued, "I'll make sure to visit when I have time." Sudong Wang nodded with satisfaction. Good, he thought. This performance might just help the Su family become the ruler of Yincheng. After the conversation, he left without giving the crowd around him a second glance. The people saw this and began speculating among themselves. This Chen An guy doesn't seem to care about us. Is he just nice to old Suo, or is he trying to rely on the Su family? Sudong Wang also looked after the retreating figure of Chen An and said, "Chen and his abilities. Does he want to compete with us?" Does he have the qualifications to become the ruler of a region? As Chen An was walking, Mu Lin Shuo, along with two members of the mysterious organization, followed him and ran to where he was. She called out to him, "Chen An." Hearing her voice, Chen An turned his head and glanced at her, saying, "Came to thank me? Or are you trying to make a match now? I used to think that you turned down my offer so that later, when you strike, you'll owe me a favor." She was a bit shy, her cheeks flushed, and said, "Still, thank you. If something happens to you in the future." Before she could finish her sentence, he slightly tilted his head and interrupted, "You all just want to come to me, don't you?" In his mind, Chen An from the future spoke up, "That's right, you should build your own power." Hearing him, Poisonous Snake replied with a slightly worried expression, "As long as you ensure that I won't be hunted by an Zu, I'll follow you." He answered, "No problem." Su Yun seemed to worry about something, forced a smile, and said, "Mr. Chen, I'll pass." Hearing that, Chen An calmly responded, I respect your choice, but just don't regret it later." After the two had spoken, only she remained silent. He then asked, "What about you?" But she still said nothing. Suddenly she looked up, as if she had made up her mind. Then, raising her hand to her chest, she spoke to him clearly. "All right, I can do this for you, but Zu will never forgive me when the time comes. Chen An, can you protect me?" Chen An smiled and confidently replied, "Of course, I'll need your help in the future." 3 days later, at a high-end hotel, Mu Lin Shuo, with a serious yet sparkling expression, opened a file and said, "This is the detailed record of the Chen family's assets. Almost everything has been transferred to your name. Please have a look." Chen An, upon hearing this, only replied, "You can handle this, and if it's not enough, call Wang Meng for help. I'll go to the Chen family estate and meet you later." At that moment, Wang Meng was blushing as he stared at her. He casually whistled as he walked out the door. She, noticing this, angrily shouted from behind, "You're still my secretary. This is so frustrating." Wang Meng merely stood by, silently chuckling. Meanwhile, at the Chen family estate, Chen An looked suspiciously at the wall in front of him and asked, "Is there a secret chamber here?" He then walked down a dark corridor where only a small patch of light from the outside illuminated the spot where he stood. Future Chen An answered, "Yes, I accidentally discovered this passage many years ago, so I've always remembered this place." Upon hearing this, Chen An walked toward the main control station, pulled a lever down, and said, before he died, he seemed to want to return here, but I don't know what for. When the surrounding lights flickered on, a large pillar in the center of the basement began to glow with a shimmering emerald light. The pillar was intricately carved with a winding dragon. Chen An, seeing this, immediately asked, "What is this?" Future Chen An, slightly surprised, replied, "This is the stone pillar seal. I never expected it to be here at the Chen family estate." He then explained that the stone pillar was the great river-crossing mountain of this world. When the seal was broken, places that were once unnecessary began to emerge. It seemed like the first time this happened was when an earthquake had damaged the seal, causing the Silver Lake to appear on its own. After hearing the explanation, Chen An asked again, "So why is it Silver Lake and not something else? Is there something beneath it?" Chen An from the future replied, "The recent earthquake only exposed a small seal. Beneath it, there are much larger broken seals. There must be something extremely significant down there. The Chen family manor is truly deceiving in appearance." Hearing this, he stood silently, deep in thought, then stopped and asked in confusion, "What about this seal in the future? Should we open it or not?" Chen An from the future calmly explained, "Not right now. Your abilities aren't enough yet. Besides, you'll need to prepare some things to open it. Go search for them first. You should focus on being a good boss for now." Chen An, listening but still not fully understanding, muttered as his eyes spun, "My head hurts so badly." After leaving the manor, Chen An saw his secretary waiting for him outside and asked, "Is something the matter?" She gestured to the side and replied, "This person has urgent business and wants to negotiate. I brought him here. It's the same person who wanted to establish a connection with you last time." He spoke first, "Boss Chen, Xing Wu, I am Xu Tianming from Zicheng Pharmaceuticals." Upon seeing him, Chen An stepped forward and shook his hand, asking, "Young Master Xu, what brings you here today?" He smiled and responded, "It's like this. Our company has a partnership with the Chen family, and we really want to continue maintaining it. Right now, all the pharmaceutical products and the hospital stores are from us. If this stops, it would be quite inconvenient." Upon hearing this, Chen An's face turned cold as he asked, "Are you trying to threaten me?" At this moment, Xu Tianming, fearing Chen An might misunderstand, quickly explained earnestly, "Boss Chen, please don't misunderstand. I would never have such intentions. I just wanted to let you know the strength of our company." Hearing him speak, Chen An coldly waved his hand to usher the guest out, saying, "If that's the case, you can go through Miss Mu. No need to see me off." Seeing Chen An's attitude, he still didn't give up. Holding a business card in his hand, he smiled confidently and said, "Mr. Chen, I believe we will meet again soon. Chen An emotionlessly took the business card from Su Tianming's hand and replied, Miss Mu, please see the guest out. 10 minutes later, Mu Linshuo had escorted Su Tianming out and returned to Chen An's side. As soon as she saw him, he immediately asked, What do you think of him? Mu Linshuo casually voiced her opinion. He's probably an awakened one, but I can't guess his level of strength. Then she asked him in return, Boss, do you think there's something off about him? Chen An crossed his arms and stated his conclusion. Second rank peak, this person is not simple. Mu Linshuo, surprised and doubtful, asked him, Is he really that strong? Chen An didn't answer, but instead gave her a task. Check the details of the cooperation between the Zhicheng Pharmaceutical Company and the Chen family, as he mentioned. Mu Linshuo replied, Got it. As evening approached, the last rays of sunlight poured into the houses facing the west. Inside, Chen An was holding a glass of water and called Mu Linshuo, asking any findings. On the other end of the line, she responded, Boss, you were right. The cooperation between the Chen family and Zhicheng Company is related to the production of illegal drugs. Meanwhile, Mu Linshuo was leaning against a railing, standing with her back to the setting sun, making the curves of her body appear particularly alluring. She continued, seriously reporting her investigation results to Chen An. They were in charge of the technical aspects, the Chen family was providing support, and there were comprehensive relationships as well as a factory in Bai Wu village. She kept reporting. Additionally, I sent Poisonous Snake to investigate. You're not mad at me, are you? Her voice was somewhat timid. Upon hearing this, he smiled with satisfaction and said, You did very well. Now, come pick me up, and let's go take a look. At the factory in Bai Wu village, smoke was rising thickly. Poisonous Snake observed and gritted his teeth, saying, Damn, they're fast. Poisonous Snake looked around and saw that every corner of the factory was on fire. People inside had collapsed, and amidst the chaos, he finally discovered the one behind starting the fire. He shouted, Over here. At that moment, the suspect was about to escape through the window. Poisonous Snake dashed towards him like lightning, shouting loudly, Stop. The man in black, upon hearing Poisonous Snake's shout, stopped immediately. Poisonous Snake also halted, sweat pouring down his face, a bad feeling creeping up on him. The man in black turned around, his red eyes filled with a cold, murderous aura. His right hand was clenched into a fist, looking menacing. Suddenly, he grabbed Poisonous Snake's hand, making him jump back in shock, but it was too late. He spoke loudly, You're done for. As the man in black's hand gripped Poisonous Snake's wrist, a purple mist appeared. Poisonous Snake's face was filled with panic, his hand trembling in the grip. He thought to himself, This is bad. The hand that held Poisonous Snake seemed to be poisoned. The man in black looked slightly surprised and muttered, Ah! Immediately, he kicked Poisonous Snake away, sending him flying, and Poisonous Snake yelled out, Ah! His face was scratched, but he still managed to get up and pull out a knife from behind. This guy's ability is probably on par with Mu Linshuo. I need to stall for time and wait for the boss Chen to arrive. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, he saw the man in black turning to flee. Poisonous Snake immediately sprinted forward, holding a knife in each hand, chasing after the man in black and shouting, Don't run. The man in black heard this and turned his head, giving Poisonous Snake a glance with his cold, bloodshot eyes. His voice was full of murderous intent. Seeking death? Outside the workshop, Chen An and Mu Linshuo had just arrived. Seeing the scene before him, Chen An told Mu Linshuo, Wait outside. No one is allowed in without orders. Then he entered the workshop, where fire was raging everywhere. He immediately used his Devour skill to absorb all the flames in the workshop. In an instant, the workshop, which had been engulfed in flames, was completely extinguished by Chen An's Devour skill. Even Mu Linshuo was amazed, blinking as the fire disappeared. What just happened? At this moment, Chen An stepped out of the workshop. He showed her a piece of light blue powder wrapped in paper and said, Take a look. Seeing it, she asked him, What is this? He replied, This is powder I found among the machinery. He examined it, sniffed it, and said, The composition is unclear. We'll have to test it first. It's highly likely to be illegal drugs. Hearing this, she looked around and said, Poisonous Snake is very knowledgeable in this area. Let's have him check it first. But where did he go? He activated his tracking skill for Poisonous Snake and said, There's energy from a second-rank expert here. We need to find Poisonous Snake quickly. He's in danger. She heard that and immediately turned around to search for the person. She ran towards the cluster of trees, and upon noticing something, she called out loudly, He's here. Poisonous Snake was lying in the bushes, beaten badly by the man in black. His eyes rolled back. Chen An heard this and rushed over to check on Poisonous Snake. The injuries were severe, but they weren't life-threatening. At this moment, Poisonous Snake began to regain consciousness and struggled to speak. Master, I couldn't stop him. He managed to escape. I did my best. Please don't punish me. Upon hearing this, Chen calmly responded, "It's fine, focus on healing first. Can you make out his appearance?" Hearing his question, Poisonous Snake replied, "I couldn't see clearly. He was wearing black, his face was hidden, and he was incredibly strong. I couldn't do anything." Suddenly, Chen An reached his hand out towards Poisonous Snake, casting a shadow over his body. Seeing this, Poisonous Snake was frightened and yelled, "Master, Mu Lin Shuo can't do anything. I can only grit my teeth, turn my face away, and shout once, 'M.'" But just a few seconds after turning away, Poisonous Snake called out loudly, "Thank you, Master." Mu Lin Shuo was startled, turning to look, not understanding what had just happened. Chen An was now using a healing technique, treating Poisonous Snake's injuries as he spoke. "First, don't worry about the internal injuries, they're quite serious. Let's focus on healing for now. We'll talk about the rest later." Seeing Chen An's actions, Poisonous Snake's eyes filled with tears. He thought happily to himself, "Back in Zoo, when I failed to complete a task, I was punished severely, but Master Chen doesn't blame me. He even helps me heal." Mu Lin Shuo felt a sense of relief upon seeing this and smiled lightly. Then Chen An assigned her the next task. "You must not be an unknown person to have defeated yourself. His strength can definitely be traced. Miss Mu, please keep an eye on Chengji, especially Chu Tianming." She stood at attention, slightly bowing her head in acknowledgement understood. At the same time, in a small house at the foot of the mountain surrounded by trees, the man in black entered. He removed his mask, revealing a large scar on the left side of his face, running from the bridge of his nose down through the corner of his mouth to his chin, with a hint of red-tinted hair showing. He spoke, "Leader." He looked at the person in front of him and said, "The mission is complete." The one called the leader had light platinum-colored hair and wore a half-yellow mask, which gave him a mysterious aura. Along with his black cloak that draped over his neck, he looked quite cool. Upon hearing the man in black, the leader responded, "That took a bit longer than expected. Did something happen?" The man in black replied, "Slightly worried, Leader. I encountered a reader, but I didn't exert much effort, so he won't recognize me." The leader's expression darkened, and he replied, somewhat surprised, "A reader? I didn't expect it to be them. All right, you should leave immediately. Make sure not to reveal yourself to them." The man in black bowed slightly in acknowledgement, understood. The man in black left, leaving only the leader standing in place, holding up his phone to check it. He typed a message and sent it to someone, then destroyed the phone. It exploded with a loud bang, and after the task was done, he left, leaving the flames still burning in the corner from the phone's explosion. When he left, a loud explosion rang out behind him, and a house caught fire intensely. On this side, half of someone's face was visible, staring at their phone, a smirk on their lips. It turned out to be Su Tianming. He stood with the light behind him, looking at his phone, smiling in a way that made him look no different from a villain. 3 days later, at the hotel, Bai Wai and Chen An sat across from each other talking. Bai Wai spoke first. "This place will soon become a hub for the awakened ones." She sat, one leg crossed over the other, and said, "So, you want to recruit a group of talents?" Chen An folded his arms and smiled, replying, "I just want to gather some information, and it will be mutually beneficial. I hope you have copies of the data so I can avoid being investigated too much." Bai Wai raised an eyebrow slightly and said, "What? Do you think it's that simple? You want to share information with the authorities? This is something no one from the 3 major families has ever done." Chen An, hearing this, rummaged through his bag and said, "Don't refuse just yet. I still have something I need you to investigate. Here, take a look at this and analyze it for me." He then took out a paper package from his bag, placed it on the table, and pushed it toward Bai Wai, saying, "I suspect this could be some kind of forbidden drug." Upon hearing Chen An's words, Bai Wai suddenly jumped up, asking loudly, "Forbidden drug? Where did you get this from?" Chen said seriously, "It's from the factory I took over from the Chen family. It recently caught fire and many people died, but I've taken care of everything already. The government contacts who are helping me investigate this are doing so quietly, without making a big fuss." Bai Wai hesitated a bit before replying, "All right, let me take this for inspection, but I'll report back once it's done. Actually, I don't have the authority to make a decision." Just after she spoke, a commotion from the floor below caught their attention. Was it really as simple as saying no? The two of them walked toward the railing and looked down at the floor below, where the sounds of an argument could still be heard. "Register for what? Do you even know who my father is?" On the lower floor, the receptionist was in a heated argument with a pair of Chen An's old classmates. She was trying to explain things to the couple. "Sorry, young master. The second floor is reserved for our boss to meet with the awakened ones for registration. It's temporarily closed." Upon hearing this, the man pointed at the female receptionist and shouted loudly, "I am a senior member. What registration are you talking about?" Upstairs, Chen An immediately recognized his old classmate and sneered as he walked downstairs, leaving Bai Wai behind, still confused and not understanding what was going on. As he walked, he muttered, "This guy actually dares to come here. Haha." Then, a blonde man appeared from nowhere, shoving the female receptionist aside, causing her to cry out, "Hey." He then arrogantly stuffed his hands into his pockets and said, "What are you all doing? Just go straight up. Let me see who dares to stop me." Bai Wu looked down at the scene, arms crossed, her eyebrows slightly furrowed, and with a smile, she said, "I'll go as well. How about I handle this little inconvenience for you?" Upon hearing that, Chen An squinted his eyes and waved his hand, replying, "No need, I wouldn't dare trouble Mr. Bai. Besides, I have some grudges with that guy from when I was in college." Listening to Chen An's story, Bai Wu stroked her chin and said, "I see. Well, you can handle it yourself then. It could be from a youthful romance, I suppose." Hearing her words, Chen An stiffened and retorted, "Nonsense, far from it." Before he could finish his sentence, Bai Wu turned and walked away, cutting it off with, "Don't kill him. Bye-bye." At this moment, Zhao Young Master intentionally walked upstairs. The receptionist was pushed aside, but she still tried to persuade him, "Young Master, please, you really can't go up." "Ah." The blonde-haired man yelled irritably, "Go away." A hand reached out to support the receptionist, and she asked, "Are you okay?" Wang Mang, standing behind, wore a confident expression and told the receptionist, "You can leave. I'll handle this. Young Master, please stop making noise." Zhao Young Master immediately became angry, clenched his fist, and shouted, "Do you want to die?" Wang Mang gritted his teeth and used his hand to block his punch. He looked at the arm Zhao Young Master had just struck, which had frozen, and suddenly thought to himself, "This isn't good." Before he could react, Zhao kicked him from behind, causing him to cry out in pain. "Ah." Zhao Young Master put his hands in his pockets, grinning smugly as he said, "You dare to stop me. Let's see if you can get up." Jiang Wei, standing behind, added, "When Zhao Young Master strikes, it's certain death." Chen An suddenly walked up to Wang Mang and said, "This place forbids fighting." Wang Mang looked up, and seeing Chen An, he immediately felt joy, shouting, "Chen An." Chen An, along with Jiang Wei, appeared surprised and asked, "How come you're here?" The receptionist, standing next to them, quickly explained, "This is our boss." Jiang Wei was once again taken aback, saying, "What?" Lu Jing, standing beside them, was also stunned, almost unable to believe his eyes, saying he actually took over the Emperor Hotel. At this moment, Zhao Young Master arrogantly said, "Boss Chen, how do we get to the upper floor?" Seeing his attitude toward Chen An, Wang Mang shouted angrily, "How dare you speak to the boss like that? I'll teach you a lesson." Zhao Young Master slightly lowered his head, his face filled with disdain, and said to Wang Mang, Do you think you can stop me? Come here and let's see if your arm, still frozen with my ice sealing technique, can even move." Suddenly, Chen An placed his hand on Wang Mang's shoulder, closed his eyes to steady his mind, then whispered into Wang Mang's ear. His hand still on Wang Mang's shoulder began to glow. He said, "Imagine yourself as the commander of the king, and they are nothing but lowly creatures." His eyes gleamed slightly as he continued, "What would you do to such lowly creatures, insects?" After hearing Chen An's words, Wang Mang closed his eyes and muttered to himself, "I am the king, and they are lowly." Meanwhile, Zhao Young Master continued to mock Wang Mang. He laughed and said, "Ha ha! Is this some sort of psychological victory? Is this guy a sorcerer or something?" At that moment, Wang Mang seemed to transform into a different person. His face exuded a murderous aura as he said, "How dare these lowly creatures buzz around in front of me?" Zhao Young Master was terrified, his face stiffened, and he couldn't utter a word. You dare to make me hate you." Wang Mang exuded a golden pressure around him, looking like a monster. He asked, "Are you still not convinced?" Zhao Young Master trembled before Wang Mang's pressure, stammering, "Damn you, I yield." Wang Mang suddenly slapped Zhao Young Master's face, causing him to scream. "Ah, damn it." He slapped him repeatedly, forcing him to beg for mercy. "Stop. I was wrong, I'm sorry." Jiang Wei saw Zhao Young Master's face bruised and swollen from the beating. He stepped back and said, "Mr. Chen, please let us go." Chen An, with a satisfied expression on his face, said, "That's enough. Let them go." Wang Mang turned to him with a blank expression and said, "Okay, boss." Then he turned back to the others, his demeanor fierce, and said, "Hurry up," making them jump in fear. Jiang Wei had to support Zhao Young Master as they left, while Lu Jing glanced back at Chen An before departing. Chen An spoke up, addressing him, "You triggered his energy. Aren't you afraid of retaliation?" He sighed softly and continued, "Luckily, I was just dealing with a low-level awakened one. If you had met a master." Chen An closed his eyes, full of confidence, thinking, could it be that I don't understand Meng Zi's personality? Suddenly, a voice came from behind, triggering potential. That's quite a skill. Chen An turned around, not knowing who had spoken. A tall, middle-aged man appeared, followed by Bai Weiwei and Du Henyu. He seemed friendly and said, "Hello, Chen bro, I've heard a lot about you. It's nice to finally meet." Ha ha ha. Du Henyu, standing next to him, crossed her arms and looked displeased, saying, "What, you had to bring us personally here, or did you send this kid of yours?" Hearing your words, Chen An turned to Bai Weiwei and asked, "Is this Bai Weiwei?" Bai Weiwei gestured toward them and replied, "This is Cunning Elder, the brain of the operation. Cunning Elder came at just the right time. You can tell him the plan you just mentioned so I don't have to explain it myself." Upon hearing this, Cunning Elder laughed and said, "Ha ha, friend. Is there something we need to discuss?" Chen An smiled and responded, "Hello, Cunning Elder. I must say, it feels like I've opened the door and already seen the mountain. I hope we can work together with the government." Du Henyu's eyes brightened. As soon as Chen uttered the word about, her eyes suddenly gleamed. Stiff person. Bai Weiwei, noticing this, turned and said loudly, "What are you doing?" Du Henyu coldly replied, "I'm just diminishing his prestige a bit. She's giving orders to Chen An, and now let's see him dance." As she finished speaking, Chen An's body began to uncontrollably sway. Bai Weiwei, realizing she couldn't stop the spirit master, turned to seek help from Cunning Elder. "What's going on, Cunning Elder?" Seeing Chen An moving toward her, Du Henyu couldn't help but wonder, and before she knew it, Chen An lifted her up, causing her to panic and blush slightly. She shouted, "Ah, what are you doing? Put me down." Hearing her speak, Chen An let go of her hands, causing her to fall to the ground with a cry. Du Henyu, one hand on her back, shouted at him, "What do you want to do?" Chen An whistled, his face showing no sign of knowing what had happened, and said, "Didn't you want to dance? But I know my partner. Unfortunately, your technique is too poor." He then raised an eyebrow and sneered, "Don't try to use that mental manipulation on me." Now Chen An in the future heard Chen An's words and shouted at him, "If I hadn't reminded you, you would have turned into an idiot by now. The spiritual system setup of Du Henyu has some advantages." Du Henyu gritted her teeth in anger, unable to argue back. At this moment, the Cunning Elder speaks up, "No mistakes allowed. Friend, my subordinate is young and inexperienced. Don't mind him. Earlier, you mentioned something about cooperating with us." Hearing him, Chen An thought to himself, this old fox clearly didn't stop the girl when she was performing earlier, but now he's acting like this toward me. He spoke up, saying, "The number of awakened ones who are still hiding will definitely be more than what we know. I hope to share intelligence with the government. I already gathered some information myself." Du Henyu stood up and said, "What kind of intelligence do you have to share with the government?" Chen An, hearing this, retorted, "Hey, back then I was a psychologist. After the first great change of the world, I discovered that I had the ability to hypnotize. Since then, my mental power has been increasing every day, and now I can make people fall into an illusion, losing all 5 senses." He taunted her, but her dance skills were a bit lacking. She blushed, angrily shouted, "Enough, don't say any more." Cunning Elder looked at Chen An seriously and said, "My friend, you truly have great ability. The government has agreed to cooperate with you. The request for intelligence sharing is negotiable, but I also have a favor to ask of you. The 4 great families are now down to 3. The Chen family manufactures illegal drugs and creates viruses, but I am not sure about the others." Hearing this, Chen An seemed to understand and replied, "You want me to investigate what's behind them, right? Cunning Elder, you're overestimating me." He slightly furrowed his brows, sneered, and said, "Your insight isn't bad. Your strength is probably far greater than what you just showed, but I don't have to ask you to do this for nothing. First, let me send you something." He handed him a scroll. Chen An was a little puzzled and asked, "Is this a treasure map? What's inside?" "There is indeed a map inside the scroll," he said with a narrowed smile. "I'm confident it will not disappoint you. To show our sincerity, I'll send someone to assist you." He continued, Why, from today, you'll be following Chen Bro here." Hearing him give the order, Bai Weiwei was startled and said, "What? Me?" Cunning Elder, after hearing her, gave a sinister smile, rubbed his chin, and looked at Bai Weiwei, saying, "Any request is acceptable." Bai Weiwei, still in shock, said loudly, "Chen An, I won't agree to unreasonable demands." The Cunning Elder had a somewhat inquisitive look on his face, smiling as he said, "If it makes sense, then fine, but if it doesn't, we'll have to see what she thinks." Chen An's face at that moment seemed like he was plotting something, as if he was about to drag Bai Weiwei into it. He raised his thumb and said, "Deal." Bai Weiwei's eyes were like sharp blades, screaming in despair, "Damn it, is no one going to ask for my opinion?" The next day in a forest, Chen An spoke up. "According to Cunning Elder's map, this should be the place. Assistant Bai, take a look." Bai Wu grabbed the map, irritated, and said, "If you dare to call me that again, don't blame me for not being polite." Upon hearing this, Chen An arrogantly responded, "Haha, I'm your boss now. Your former boss confirmed it, so you dare be disrespectful to your superior?" At that moment, Bai Wu calmed down her temper and shifted the subject. "How do you know about her?" "Even I don't know much about her." Chen An leaned close to her, cautiously glancing around, and whispered, "This is a secret. Come here, I'll tell you." Seeing Chen An getting close, she felt a bit shy but was curious about the secret. Suddenly, Chen An, with an expression full of guilt, yelled into her ear, "I have many more secrets, but I won't tell you. You'd be left staring in confusion, eyes wide and mouth agape. You probably know that if you stick around, you'll end up getting hit." He ran off in a hurry, laughing loudly. "Haha." Bai Wu regained her composure and shouted back, "Chen An, you are dead." Bai Wu hurriedly chased after Chen An. Chen An stopped right there. At this moment, Chen An could only see the shadow of Bai Wu getting farther away and shouted back, "No, no." Finally, Bai Wu grabbed the collar of Chen An's shirt. With a furious, cutting glare, she grabbed his collar and yelled in his face, "Don't you know how to write the word death?" Chen An, with a look of grievance, weakly said, "Someone is being rude to the handsome, rich guy." Suddenly, a tentacle shot towards the two of them. Chen An noticed and shouted, "Watch out." Then he quickly pushed Bai Wu aside, causing her to cry out in surprise. "Ah!" But he was then wrapped up by the tentacle. He gritted his teeth and struggled to escape, but couldn't. At that moment, more tentacles were rushing toward them from a distance. Bai Wu ran over, reached out, and shouted loudly, "Chen An!" Because her body was made of iron, she shielded him. Chen An, worried, asked, "Are you okay?" Chen An, being behind her, had his shirt sleeve torn by the earlier tentacle. He anxiously asked Bai Wu in return, "Are you all right?" "I can handle it. You don't need to worry about me." She answered him, "I'm iron skin and steel bones. This kind of thing can't hurt me." Suddenly, he sat cross-legged, resting his chin on his hands, a smile of enjoyment on his face as he said, "Soft bodies are really easy to handle, huh?" Upon hearing this, Bai Wu, in anger, yelled, "Don't just sit there and get down." After a while, they finally defeated the group of tentacles. Bai Wu wiped the sweat off her forehead and said, "Phew, let's just call it exercise." She turned to look at Chen An, seeing him as though he had ascended to heaven, his eyes wide and his nose bleeding profusely. She immediately asked, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Is something going on?" She asked him. At that moment, her clothes were torn by the tentacles, revealing her alluring figure. Chen An must have been really tempted. Hearing her question, he regained his composure and awkwardly replied, "Ah, over there." Following his gaze, she glanced down and her face turned bright red. Then she screamed loudly, causing the birds in the forest to scatter in panic. At this point, Chen An was only wearing a sweater, his face having been slapped squarely by Bai Wu. His hand rested on his cheek as he pitifully explained, "I really didn't mean to." Bai Wu stepped out wearing a white coat while Chen had been wearing a red one earlier. Gritting her teeth, she said, "Why is your coat so short like this?" The coat was too short, revealing her smooth white thighs. Chen An seemed resigned to fate, clueless, and said, "Well, I guess I'll just take a little disadvantage." Seeing his actions, Bai Wu immediately covered her eyes, her face flushed with embarrassment as she shouted, "Chen An, you're a pervert." Then she pointed and said, "Go away, go ahead. Your coat doesn't cover your backside properly." Hearing this, Chen An scratched his neck awkwardly and laughed, "Sorry, hey." On their way, he destroyed the tentacles and devoured them. Eventually, they stopped at a location. Chen An spoke up, "We're here. This is the place, take a look." Looking at the scene before her, she focused on a tree and said, "Isn't this the type of rare fruit used for the Awakened One?" Chen An held a dark yellow fruit in his hand, pondering for a moment before saying, "All right, the number of strange fruits here could form an army. Cunning Elder really has an eye for it." At this point, Bai Wu felt a bit confused and thought to herself, could it be that Cunning Elder wants Chen An to build his own force, then go after the three major families? But how can he compete with Chen in the future? Is this a double-edged sword? Suddenly, a noise came from behind the two of them. Bai Wu, on alert, turned around and asked, "What's going on?" A group of wolves with red eyes gradually approached them. Chen An glanced up at the tree branches and noticed a red-eyed monkey. They slowly closed in on the two. Chen assessed the situation and said, "Not good, we're surrounded. I won't be able to protect you for now. Be careful." The two of them stood back to back. Bai Wu spoke up, "Don't worry, they can't hurt me." One of the wolves leaped forward, its sharp fangs bared at Chen An. He swung his sword, slicing the wolf in half, and shouted, "Leave the wolves to me." The wolves simultaneously charged at Chen An. He then executed a move that sent them flying, never missing a strike. The wolves lay scattered on the ground. Meanwhile, Bai Weiwei also used a palm strike to take down the monkey. Chen An looked around again and saw that there were still more. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's not over yet." He grabbed Bai Weiwei's hand and shouted, "Run quickly, there are too many of them. We can't fight them all." Bai Weiwei, feeling her face flush from his grip, called out, "Eh." Suddenly, Chen An's foot slipped and he sensed something was wrong. He tried to stop and shouted loudly, "Wait," but it was too late. Both of them fell into the hole. Their faces turned pale. What terrible luck. As they fell freely, Bai Weiwei yelled, "Chen An." He responded, "Sorry." At the base of the towering cliff was a massive cave. Someone had just fallen from the cliff, probably in pain because they screamed loudly. As soon as they hit the ground, things weren't exactly safe, and Bai Weiwei fell right on top of him, letting out a cry. Bai Weiwei realized she was lying on top of Chen An and anxiously asked, "Chen An, are you okay?" Even though she asked, it seemed she forgot she should get off him, which caused him to pass out from the pressure. His body trembled, his head spinning, and he couldn't help but complain. "What do you think? I've had a 100-pound metal block on top of me. Do you think something's wrong?" Bai Weiwei immediately seized on the core of Chen An's words, pouting and scolding. "Who are you calling 100 pounds? You're such a liar." Just as she angrily scolded Chen An, he pulled her into his arms. She was stunned, stammering, "Huh? What are you doing?" Feeling embarrassed to be held, Bai Weiwei noticed the wariness on Chen An's face. He ordered, "Don't look back, just keep moving forward." Chen An's words made Bai Weiwei alert as well, and she asked, "What do you mean?" She turned her head to follow Chen An's gaze, and panic surged through her. Ahead of them was a massive herd, charging toward them. Bai Weiwei was so frightened that she jumped up, clinging tightly to Chen An and screaming, "Ah, kill the giant!" It almost made him lose his balance, and he helplessly said, "I told you not to look back." Bai Weiwei turned pale with fear, clinging tightly to Chen An. He had no choice but to let her stay like that as he looked around for a way out, then said to her, "Let's head up there first." Chen An carried Bai Weiwei on his back, leaving the vast cave behind. Perhaps still terrified from the scene with the giant centipede, Bai Weiwei's face was slightly pale, but she didn't forget to mock Chen An. "You really think I can fly like Superman? With this kind of performance, I wouldn't even make it past the Olympic qualifiers." Even when carrying her, she still complained, so Chen had to respond. "Isn't it because you're too heavy?" Bai Weiwei angrily bit Chen An's head, but he didn't care and began thinking. Something's wrong. The abilities here seem to be much higher than those outside. Could there be some kind of barrier here? Perhaps overwhelmed by the current situation, he sighed inwardly. Is the future even here? Chen thought for a moment, and it seemed like he dozed off again. For now, he could only rely on himself. After thinking, he gathered his spirit power in his hand. From the spirit power, he created a torch to light the way. He walked while talking to Bai Weiwei. "At least those creatures aren't actively attacking us." Upon hearing this, Bai Weiwei immediately said, "We need to find a way back." After walking a few steps, they encountered another swarm of giant centipedes. Both of them were terrified. Chen An suddenly remembered something and immediately told Bai Weiwei, "I forgot to mention earlier. It turns out there's more ahead." Seeing the centipedes drawing closer, Bai Weiwei was scared out of her wits and shouted, "Get out quickly." Seeing her fear, Chen An immediately reassured her, "Don't be afraid, I have a way." Chen An swiped his hand across, and flames erupted fiercely, burning the centipedes alive. Roasting the centipedes made him realize something, and he exclaimed, "Oh, that's impressive. Those centipedes are terrifying. They turned golden brown and looked really delicious just a moment ago." Bai Weiwei understood Chen An's intention and immediately warned him, "Chen An, if you dare eat them, I will never speak to you again for the rest of my life." Chen An gave an expression of helplessness and smirked, teasing Bai Weiwei, "If we really can't get out of here, we might have no choice but to eat these things." Bai Weiwei shuddered just thinking about it. Who was he scolding? Stop talking. Chen An stopped teasing Bai Weiwei and focused his spirit power, sending it out in all directions to gather information. Realizing something, he said to her, "There's wind." From the perspective of an ordinary person, the wind was invisible, but was blowing strongly, being sucked into a dark cave. Thanks to his spirit power, Chen An was able to sense it and reported that it was coming from the other direction. The two of them headed toward the wind-sucking cave, unaware that above them, numerous red eyes were watching them. Perhaps due to a woman's sixth sense, Bai Weiwei felt a chill down her spine and said to Chen An, "Chen An, I feel like something is staring at us." Chen An was using her spirit power to scout the path and sense something unusual. As she spoke to her companion, the spirit power emanating from her revealed the presence of a group of bats. On the cave ceiling, There were countless bats with glaring red eyes hanging upside down, staring intently at the two of them. Chen was terrified by the sight, shouting, "It's those bats! Quick, follow me and run!" Saying that, she grabbed Bai Wei's hand and pulled her along, making her panic and ask again. The two of them quickly ran out of the cave, trying to head toward the light. When Chen An saw the light ahead, she joyfully exclaimed, "There's light ahead, let's go." At last, the two of them escaped from the terrifying cave. The strong light forced them to shield their eyes from the glare. They found themselves in a lush forest with unusually large trees everywhere. The unfamiliar scene made them both wonder, where is this place? Chen An surveyed her surroundings and suddenly froze when she saw an unusually large grasshopper. She sighed, "Look at the size of that grasshopper." Suddenly, a voice echoed in Chen An's mind, "How did you end up at the gate of the beast world?" Chen An replied mentally, "Future, are you awake now? Are you saying this is the beast world?" A person from the future, who was in a space resembling the cosmos, explained to Chen An, "This is the transition zone between the demon realm and our world. We call it the entrance to the demon realm." Then the person warned Chen An that if they were indeed in the demon realm, this place might be filled with many terrifying things. Escaping from his train of thought, Chen An asked Bai why. "This map was given to us by Cunning Elder. He must know about this place." Bai why shook her head in objection. "That's impossible. This map was obtained by Cunning Elder from a hunter at the Imperial Hotel. At that time, the hunter said he had eaten a fruit that awakened his abilities and was looking for someone to compete in strength right outside the hotel." Upon hearing this, Chen An became furious, his temples bulging, his hands trembling as he clenched them into fists, gritting his teeth and saying, "This guy is terrifying. How could Cunning Elder's big gift have been found like that? Now, I'm even more suspicious of their sincerity in cooperating." While the two were busy bickering, neither of them noticed a dragon-like eye shape that was watching them. Just as they were both still confused, a butterfly flew by, drawing their attention. This butterfly has such big wings. The two continued deeper into the forest. Suddenly, a brown squirrel jumped out, and Chen exclaimed in amazement, "This squirrel is huge." As they went further, the two encountered more and more strange things. Chen could hardly contain his excitement. "This place feels like something out of a dinosaur park, doesn't it? Let me take a picture and show everyone." Seeing this, Bai Wai quickly stopped him. "Hey, wait, don't you think that if people find out about this place, they'll flock here in droves? If you post it, delete it quickly, you fool." He heard it, and it sounded clear enough. He immediately took out his phone, ready to delete the photo, but then realized there was no signal at all. At that moment, the ground began to shake. Chen An, frightened, said, "Oh my god, is it an earthquake or what? It's shaking so violently." She screamed in panic, "Wah!" The ground started to rise and a head poked out. It turned out that where he and she had been standing all this time was the shell of a giant turtle. Chen An sighed, "What did these creatures eat here to grow so big?" While they were still in a state of panic, the turtle suddenly retracted its head back into its shell. The squirrel, which had been running around earlier, sped off as though it had just seen something terrifying. He wondered what's going on. Then, a giant snake appeared right in front of them. It lunged forward, throwing her aside while he managed to dodge just in time. She let out a sudden scream, "Ouch!" At this moment, Chen was excited, really eager to test the power of his muscles, wondering if all those years of training would pay off. Seeing him act more impulsively than rationally, she reminded him, "Be careful." The future Chen An, seeing him in that state, shouted out in worry, "Don't." Before she could finish her sentence, the snake's tail swung and sent him flying several meters. Only then did the future Chen An continue, "I couldn't stop you in time. With your current strength, you might as well be a piece of stainless steel." As for Bai Wai, she ran over to help him up and asked, "Are you okay? Not dead, right?" He forced himself to reply, "I'm fine." The snake, which had turned back around, charged at the two of them. He noticed this, grabbed her, and leaped to another spot, saying, "Watch out." The two of them began to run desperately, trying to escape the pursuit of the monstrous creature. He didn't know what to do now, so he turned to ask future Chen An, "What should I do now? Without me, there's no you." Future Chen An replied, "With the strength you have now, you won't last half a day in the demon realm. You need to find a way out of here quickly." He thought about it for a moment and realized it was true. He said to Vi, "Being chased by it like this isn't a solution. We should find a way to escape this place. Hurry." He turned toward the cave entrance. Inside there. After hearing this, she felt that this idea might not be very promising. But if they entered the cave, wouldn't that be the same as being a turtle in a jar? The snake had already caught up. He saw the situation wasn't looking good and shouted, "There's no choice. We can only take a gamble." He grabbed her wrist and ran toward the cave entrance. Once inside, he said to her, "We have to think of a way to stop it, or we're done for." The two of them were able to rest for a moment, but she still felt uneasy and asked him, "Do you think this will work?" He hesitated before replying, "I'm not sure, let's just observe for now." 2 hours later, seeing that there was no movement outside, he spoke up, "It seems safe for now, let's go." Noticing she did respond, he looked over and saw she had fallen asleep at some point. He marveled at how she could sleep in such a situation. Was it that her kindness was greater than fear? He bent down, gently picked her up, and continued deeper into the cave. Sensing some movement, she opened her eyes to see herself cradled in his arms. Flustered, she looked at him. "Chen An, you?" Thinking that he had woken her up, he quickly said, "Did I wake you up?" "Sorry, but it looks like we won't be able to leave here today. Let's find somewhere to rest for now." The space around them was suddenly enveloped by a stream of green gas. She wondered aloud, What is this?" He answered her question. "This might be some kind of toxic gas. Let's wait until morning to talk about it. For now, we need to find shelter." After finding a suitable place, they began fiddling with starting a fire to keep warm. Noticing that she looked tired, he gently said, "You can keep sleeping, I'll stand guard. Later, you can take over for me." Recognizing his concern, she did refuse and agreed. "All right, I'll nap first then." A little while later, she woke up unsure of how long she had slept. But where was Chen An? And Shen? She turned to her side and saw him lying right next to her. She looked at him for a moment when suddenly a noise came from outside. In a panic, she said, "This is bad. Is the giant python coming?" No sooner had she spoken than the beast charged toward them. The giant python, suddenly aggressive, lunged at the two of them, and Chen An quickly stepped back, unable to hide his panic. This is too much. He threw a firebrand, intending to burn the snake, but the creature quickly dodged and moved to the side. Looks like this little guy doesn't want to turn into snake suit. Too bad we won't get a chance to feast. But just then, from within the flames, the snake lunged again, causing him to step back in surprise. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh wow!" Bai Wei confirmed that the fire had no effect on it and quickly regained her composure. He swiftly handed her the gun and said, "Take it, shoot it." Each of them held a gun fully focused, aiming at the monster. Each shot was incredibly precise, but the attack seemed utterly meaningless to the creature. Chen An and Vi were sweating. He was panting. How can this be? The bullets don't penetrate its scales. It seems like we're going to die here. The two had truly angered the giant python, which opened its mouth and charged at them, intending to swallow them whole. At this moment, the future Chen An quickly realized normal weapons won't work. Use the gun the Chen family used last time to deal with him. He angrily slapped his past self. So stupid. I don't know who I take after. Finally, Chen An had an epiphany. Right, the bullet was only meant as a special material for places where anomalies occur. How did I not think of that sooner? With that, he threw the gun toward Vi, startling her. Vi asked, "Should I use this?" Once again, Chen An took the gun and fired a rapid series of shots. Unlike before, this time the snake let out a painful roar, as though the bullets were actually effective. Despite the monster's thrashing, Chen An aimed and shot with deadly precision. Holding the gun, he fired a decisive shot, the bullet speeding toward its target with tremendous force. The destination was the eye of that cunning snake. He shouted, "Got it." It was wounded, quickly retreating into its cave to hide, leaving the two humans standing together, having narrowly escaped danger. Only then did they truly let out a relieved sigh. Chen An, exhausted, rolled his eyes and sighed, "Phew, we finally won." Why, drained of all energy, weakly said, "We've been saved." Chen An bent down and picked up the fang the snake had left behind in the chaotic battle. Why, seeing this, walked over to him and bent down, curious. "What do you want with this snake fang?" Without letting her wonder for too long, a purple sword, intricately carved, suddenly appeared in midair, using the material of black steel to craft the fang into a weapon. Wei couldn't help but marvel. "It's so beautiful." He smiled and quickly moved the sword toward her. "It's for you, to keep as protection." She hurriedly took it, unable to hide her discomfort, quickly turning her face to avoid his gaze. Seeing this, he spoke to ease the tension. "Since the mist is clearing up, we should leave this place." With that, he used his strength to create a path leading straight to the cave's exit. An hour later, in a forest, the lush green canopy with warm rays of sunlight shining through created a picturesque scene. At that moment, a muddy hand emerged from the cave's mouth and climbed to the top. Chen was so exhausted that her senses felt scattered, but she had finally made it. Behind her was Wei, who had climbed up from behind Chen An. The cave was more than 1,000 meters high. Once they reached the top, both of them were completely drained, lying flat on the ground. Fortunately, the cave was deep enough. Otherwise, if that monster had crawled up here, we would have been dead. Chen An instinctively took out her phone. She glanced at it and couldn't help but mockingly comment, "Mr. Chen, the busy noble, went missing for a night, and who knows how many little girls have been waiting anxiously for him. He remained calm, just looking at her. Inside, his mind was in chaos. Why did I say something like that? I'm really an idiot. At that moment, his phone lit up with notifications as a flurry of missed calls arrived. You have 12 missed calls from Mu Lin Shuo, 6 missed calls from Wang Meng, and 3 missed calls from He Zhu Zhu. Chen An couldn't help but exclaim, huh? So many missed calls, what happened? With that, he pressed the call button for Mu Lin Shuo. A piercing scream blared from the phone, causing him to reflexively pull it away from his ear. Chen An, where on earth have you been? We've been searching for you all day. He broke into a cold sweat and hesitantly replied, I went to find something with Bai Wu. There was a bit of an issue on the way. There's no signal here. The scream came again, even louder this time. Something happened. Chen An's expression shifted to one of concern. What happened? Mu Lin Shuo was also in a state of panic. He Zhu Zhu, he's been kidnapped. Upon hearing the shocking news, both Mu Lin Shuo and Chen An froze, unable to hide the confusion on their faces. The 2 parallel roads stretched long under the morning sun, casting shadows across the pavement as a yellow car sped by. Chen An sat beside Bai Wu, pressing his phone tightly to his ear. Boss, yesterday, He Zhu Zhu's father suddenly came to the hotel looking for you. He wouldn't say anything, and because he couldn't reach you, he decided to tell us. Mu Lin Shuo placed his hand on the back of his neck. Mister, he received a call yesterday afternoon. The person on the other end said He Zhu Zhu was in their hands, but didn't mention anything about ransom. Wang Meng has already sent people to investigate. Please don't worry, boss. As soon as he heard this, Chen An started to consider a few things. Given Meng Zi's influence over the second-rank experts, kidnappings, especially of this level, wouldn't be his style. Responding to Mu Lin Shuo, he spoke into the phone, I understand. We'll discuss it more when I get back. The building shimmered by the swimming pool, and Mu Lin Shuo ran out from inside to the waiting yellow taxi to pick up the boss. Chen An and Bai Wu had just gotten out of the car when he instructed, go with Lin Shuo and change your clothes. I'll assess the situation. She nodded in agreement, got it. Mu Lin Shuo extended his hand politely. When did she start seducing the boss? She's really fast with her methods. His gaze drifted toward Bai Wu's pale, smooth thighs, his face showing clear disapproval. Captain Bai, follow me. What size do you wear? Mu Lin Shuo covered her mouth, provoking Bai Wu. The chibi doll with red cheeks made a teasing remark. Ah, seems like you're a little younger than me. Probably just right. Bai Wu clenched her fists, her expression annoyed. What? Chen An entered the grand golden wooden room. He was He Zhu Zhu's father, holding his face with a despondent expression. It can't be. It'll be fine for sure. Definitely. He walked closer, placing his hand on the man's shoulder, asking with concern. Uncle, what exactly happened? Why did you come here? Zhu Zhu's father looked up at him, his eyes red from crying. Chen An, you finally come. Zhu Zhu just returned 2 days ago. I wanted to go buy some things to cook her a nice meal. Who would have thought, after buying everything, I came back and she was gone. Her luggage and phone weren't taken with her. Zhu Zhu's father's tears were streaming down his face, his voice trembling. Afterward, he received an anonymous phone call. The person on the other end said that the girl was in their hands, warned him not to contact the police, and told him to wait for further instructions. His voice broke with sorrow as he turned to Chen An. I know you have the ability to save Zhu Zhu, so I wanted to trouble you. I found your phone number in Zhu Zhu's phone, but I couldn't get through. I was so worried, so I rushed into the city to find you. At his words, Chen An looked puzzled and asked, but I've only just taken over the Emperor Hotel for a few days. How did you know I was here, uncle? He Zhu Zhu's father wiped away a tear, his face slightly flushed. Maybe it's fate. On the bus, I overheard someone talking about how the Chen family from the 4 great families was defeated by a young man named Chen An. Now with the assets in his hands, including the Emperor Hotel, which specialized in hosting those awakened ones, Chen An hurriedly made his way here. As soon as he overheard that random remark, flashes of doubt sparked through Chen An's mind. Could it be a coincidence? He feared that this matter was far from simple. Into the midst of that tense air, Mu Lin Shuo burst in shouting loudly, Boss, there's something important that she needs to report seriously. Wang Meng is back. Hearing the news, the uncle was overjoyed. He's back. Was Zhu Zhu saved? Mu Lin Shuo remained silent, casting a glance at the boss, and Chen spoke up. Uncle, wait for me a moment. I'll go see what's going on. Don't worry about Zhu Zhu. The two of them closed the wooden door and Chen's tone shifted. What happened? Mu Lin Shuo explained the situation. Wang Meng had been carried back. Chen An was taken aback. What? From the hotel lobby, Wang Meng lay on a stretcher, his body in pain as though he'd been through torture. Two anonymous individuals were carrying him in. Seeing this, Chen An stepped forward, his expression filled with worry as he asked one of them. His voice carried an edge of anger. What happened exactly? Who hurt him? Why wasn't he taken to the hospital first? The person who had been questioned finally responded, Mr. Chen, we don't know. Meng Ji told us to wait by the door, but after a long time, there was no movement. When we went inside, we found Meng Ji like this. It was Meng Ji's wish to be brought back first, and he also had something he wanted to tell you. Chen An's face grew serious, the air around him turning cold and dark, his gaze empty as usual. The injuries seemed quite severe. His arm is broken as well. Wang Mang's panting face lay motionless on the bed, face down. Mu Linshuo, beside him, was closely monitoring his condition, while Chen An used a bit of vital energy. His pulse was stable, not life-threatening. Wang Mang managed to open his eyes, his face weak and barely able to speak. Boss, I'm sorry, I'm useless. I couldn't save young lady He. Chen An smiled with understanding, speaking gently. It's okay, just focus on recovering for now. As for the one who hurt you. His eyes narrowed, the reflection of a red bullet gleamed in them, and his expression showed extreme anger. His voice was cold. I will kill him for you. Meng Ji struggled to sit up, his words laced with worry as if warning. Boss, this isn't simple. I've called back Uncle Ha's number, and I had someone trace the signal, but the other side is very cunning. He only gave you the address, and it doesn't look good for you. Chen An's handsome face was now marked with a few bruises. Returning to the story Meng Ji had originally told, it was a large, shining skyscraper. At that time, he had opened his mouth, intending to say the location was here. His serious eyes reflected confidence. He said to the others, You guys wait outside. If anyone tries to run, catch them quickly. I'll go inside. In response to Meng Ji's words, someone said, Got it, Meng Ji. Now you know mosquito will escape. He went in alone. Inside, the lights were dim and only shadows passed by. He was caught off guard. Before he could react, a blinding light flashed into Wang Mang's eyes. He squinted, raising one hand to shield himself. Who is it? Suddenly, a heavy punch struck his left cheek, leaving him no time to react. His head jerked to the side, thrown into an unsteady tilt. Wang Mang was pinned down by the soul of a person whose identity was unknown, blood spilling from his mouth. His eyes reflected the deepest pain, and the voice of that person was filled with disdain. So weak, you're not Chen An. Wang Mang was paralyzed but mustered the strength to grasp the person's ankle, gritting his teeth. Who are you? Why are you taking me? His words were interrupted by the immense pressure from the other person's strength. You don't have the right to ask who I am, said a man in a doctor's coat, grinning provocatively. His eyes gleamed behind his bright glasses. Bring Chen An here. If he makes a mistake, don't blame me 15, the man said. Mu Linshuo, upon hearing this, seemed somewhat surprised. He asked, Is that person from the Mediterranean? You're sure you didn't mistake him? Wang Mang firmly replied, I'm certain. A middle-aged Mediterranean man dressed in a suit, wearing glasses. Mu Linshuo squinted, as if calculating something. Chen An then asked, Do you know that person? She hesitated, half skeptical. He is... The two suddenly heard a voice and turned to see Bai Wu behind them. She interjected into their conversation. He's the bodyguard expert of the Song family from the 4 major families. That's Song Zhongji. Her tone was serious, as if she knew the old man was a great danger. The image of a white-haired man slipping his hands in his pants pockets, wearing a sinister smile, appeared mysteriously. Bai Wu spoke with a gleam in her eyes. This Song Zhongji is very mysterious. We only know that he helped the Song family carry out the secret assassination missions that have never failed, and his ranking on the assassination list has stabilized in the top 3. Mu Linshuo glanced at Bai Wu upon hearing this. She quickly dismissed it, not making it seem all that mysterious. It's because your organization's skills are weak. The Dark Organization investigated this person before as well. At least I know he's proficient in the art of perfecting mechanisms. Chen An looked at Mu Linshuo seriously and said, Top 3 on the assassination list. So where you rank, Linshuo? Maintaining a calm demeanor, she replied, A virtuous woman like me doesn't like death and killing. So why would I aim for a spot on that list? Bai Wu's face hardened. The art of mechanisms isn't a supernatural ability. Has your Dark Organization investigated his awakened powers yet? Mu Linshuo waved his hand. The Dark Organization wants to recruit him, but doesn't want to treat him as an enemy. In the end, they've done thorough research. Mu Linshuo rubbed his chin as if thinking, then spoke. But why would this person still commit dirty acts like kidnapping? Bai Wu crossed her arms, clearly displeased and obviously aimed at Chen An, saying, Chen An, what have you done with the Song family? Chen An, staying out of the verbal sparring between the two women, began to sweat. He weakly responded, I don't know anyone from the Song family, but whatever the reason, if he kidnapped Zhu Zhu and harmed Meng Zi, this man must die. The future Chen An, drenched in sweat, suddenly became frightened and spoke. What exactly did your kid do to those two girls? I've been drawn into this competition myself. This song Zhongji has value. If you take the risk and go there, you will definitely be at a disadvantage. The Song family will not do anything harmful to Zhu Zhu, so take this opportunity to improve yourself first. He is not skilled in mechanical arts, but he does have a killing intent that allows him to see through the awakened strength of his opponents. I was once played by him in a street fight. Upon hearing this, Chen An could not hide his worry. His eyes widened and sweat began to form. Chen An suddenly froze, unable to say a word. Bai Yu opened her eyes in shock. Mu Lin Shuo remained silent, his face as cold as ice. I need some time to adjust. You all go rest for now. I'll think of a way to handle this. He was indeed thinking seriously. Chen An sat on the sofa, his legs neatly crossed. With a blink, he appeared in the garden, surrounded by lush green trees bearing countless strange fruits. These fruits emitted a soft glow, decorating the scene. Around him, green-colored panels kept appearing. Potential value plus 1,000. Potential value plus 1,000. Potential value plus 1,000. Chen An stared seriously at the words in front of him. The available talent value was 95,000, innate gift, piercing eyes of the 1,000 realms, 100,000, mental strength 500,000, primal chaos body refining technique 10 million. Seeing this, he frowned in concern. The growth rate was not enough. Another 5,000 was needed to reach 100,000 to exchange for the piercing eyes, but he no longer had the time.